Talk about a rude awakening. This kid just snapped back to reality in an absolute nightmare scenario, dumped in the back of a truck, crawling with mutated zombies, right after taking a savage beatdown. He was stranded in the middle of nowhere, but plot twist before this teenager's soul got swapped, he was an absolute unit, a walking, breathing military legend. We're talking about a one-man army who could easily wipe out hundreds of elite troops solo, but right in the heat of a high-stakes black op, his own squad stabbed him in the back. Now he's hit the reset button, reincarnating as Manuel, a defenseless teenager who was endlessly bullied and treated like total garbage. But the tables are about to completely turn, because Pablo wasn't just some guy. He was an absolute demon in tactical warfare built to dismantle an entire army, all by himself. Cut to a stealth chopper slicing through the midnight sky. On board the Republic of Aldemir's deadliest shadow operatives, codename Ghost. These guys were the ultimate boogeymen, sending shivers down the spines of global syndicates and rival militaries alike. The undisputed top-tier strike force on the planet, and right at the top of the food chain sat the apex predator Pablo Correa. Standing tall, gripping his sidearm with zero hesitation, he shreds through hostiles like a cold-blooded machine. The underworld bows down to him, whispering his legendary title, the Warlord. But on July 6th, 2025, the world's most lethal weapon finally met his match on the battlefield. It all went down during a massive sweep to wipe out the notorious IGNA terrorist syndicate. The pilot radios in warning that hurricane-level winds are tearing the chopper apart, forcing them to reroute the drop zone. But Ghost's commander violently bites back. He snaps that changing coordinates now would totally blow their element of surprise. It's a suicide mission that'll wipe out half the squad, yet he stubbornly insists on sticking to the original playbook. Without missing a beat, Pablo just kicks a fast rope out the door. Saul loses his mind, screaming, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Pablo casually drops that he's taking the plunge first, and they can catch up. At point B, Saul fiercely barks at him to hold his position. But the Warlord is already gone, sliding down the line into the abyss, sticking a perfect flawless landing in the dirt without a scratch. His ice-cold gaze locks onto the target ahead. Up above, Saul scrambles to pull him back, but the pilot bluntly shuts it down, saying it's impossible. They're forced to pivot to point B, leaving their ace with a simple parting message: just try not to die down there. Pablo pushes forward a relentless force of nature, until the glaring red dot of a laser sight dances across his skull. Crack! The sniper pulls the trigger, but Pablo pivots with godlike reflexes, shattering a stone statue to eat the incoming lead. In a split second, he flips from defense to offense. He breaks cover, snaps his weapon up, and drills the sniper clean through the head and arms. The body plummets from the rooftop. But there's no time to breathe. A cold muzzle suddenly presses right against the back of the Warlord's neck. He glances back as the hitman growls at him to freeze. But right as the trigger is squeezed, Pablo violently smashes his elbow into the guy's forearm, sending the bullet wild into the dark. He brutally sweeps the enemy's legs out, slips behind him like a ghost, and wraps him in a lethal chokehold, snapping his neck with a sickening crunch. Pablo cuts his eyes to the shadows. He's totally surrounded. The remaining gunmen immediately light him up, unleashing a massive storm of bullets. Without dropping a beat, he smoothly maneuvers, dragging the dead merc up as a meat shield, scoffing, "Man, what a trashy welcoming committee." He levels his own barrel at the swarm of hostiles and just unleashes hell, holding the trigger down and mowing down every single breathing soul in his path. Through the static, Saul is screaming into the comms, demanding to know if Pablo is still alive. The panic in the earpiece loops endlessly, while our captain casually scoops up his radio, kicking the reinforced door wide open. Cut to point B, where a squad mate flags that they're locked and loaded for the breach, asking for an update on their heavy hitter. But Saul bitterly mutters that the radio is dead silent, and scoffs that the dude basically just begged for a death wish. Out of nowhere, the heavy steel doors burst open. The entire unit snaps their rifles toward the threshold, leaving Saul absolutely speechless. Strolling out of the smoke, Pablo casually drops that the entire compound is wiped clean, tossing the boring intel-gathering duty right into their laps. The soldier lets out a massive sigh of relief. Lingering outside, they whisper about how he actually pulled off the impossible, calling him a total glitch in the Matrix, a literal warlord. But Saul isn't having it. He violently gets up in Pablo's face, barking at him for going totally rogue, spitting out that lone wolves who trashed the chain of command are dead weight. Unfazed, the captain coldly claps back, "The target is eliminated, we won." He adds that if they had blindly pushed that botched drop zone, every single ghost on the team would be coming home in a body bag. Saul scoffs, bitterly warning him to watch his mouth. Suddenly, a comms officer snaps to attention, declaring that the top brass is calling. Directly for the captain. Saul sneers, but Pablo stares right through him. "Don't get it twisted," he growls. "I just did you a massive favor. The only metric that matters out here is burying the enemy and securing the dub. It's not about ego, it's about results." The jealous commander processes that for a toxic second, turning his back and whispering that this cocky kid just needs to be put down for good. As they start moving out toward Heg Pablo, expected the guy to just fall in line. But Saul suddenly pauses darkly, asking the squad to confirm his latest order, checking if they remember their absolute priority. Instantly, every single ghost in the room raises their assault rifles, aiming directly at Pablo. The warlord freezes his eyes, narrowing, as he demands to know what kind of sick joke this is. His own brothers mumble a hollow apology. "Sorry, man. Saul's orders." The massive betrayal clicks in his brain. He violently rips his hand toward his holster, but it's too late. The squad lights him up a brutal headshot, sending the legendary soldier straight into the dark. Saul's orders echo in his mind, gnawing at him. Wait, was that bastard planning to take me out this entire time? A fleeting memory flashes by a blonde woman, Rita desperately begging the captain to make it back alive. Boom! His eyes snap open. What the hell is that deafening grinding sound? A thick rotting stench fills his lungs, the undeniable smell of absolute death. He's practically lip to lip with a literal corpse. Scrambling to his feet, his mind races. How did he get here? He was right in the middle of the lethal strike against Ignite just a second ago. Suddenly, the truck's cargo bed violently tilts up, dumping a massive avalanche of lifeless bodies straight into the churning ocean below. He loses his footing. Crap, this is bad. The entire metal platform is ripping apart underneath him. He plummets right alongside the corpses, but desperately snags a jagged edge dangling by his fingertips. His chest heaves, sucking in frantic gasps of air as pure adrenaline floods his veins. Pablo hauls himself up over the ledge, his heart hammering against his ribs. That was a downright nightmare, a literal mountain of rotting flesh reeking to high heaven. Is this the front lines of the anomaly zone, he wonders? Just then, two muffled voices cut through the air, griping about hauling trash at the crack of dawn. To these goons, dumping bodies is just casually feeding the fishes in Tokyo Bay. Our guy freezes, catching every chilling word. Tokyo's Bay. His brain scrambles to process the impossible truth. Out of nowhere, a sharp gust of wind whips the blindfold right off his face. Pablo whispers the word in absolute shock. Japan. The motherland he left behind. And just like that, on July 6th, 2026, Pablo Correa officially flatlined, only to wake up in a completely different body on a mysterious island. A godforsaken wasteland drenched in the rawest, darkest despair imaginable. He scans the grim horizon, utterly baffled. What the hell is this place? He was fighting a war out in the Middle East just moments ago. How in the world did he magically teleport all the way to Tokyo Bay? Whipping around, he frantically searches for any kind of clue, but there's nothing, just an empty dump truck. Trudging forward, he eventually hits a dense, overgrown forest, letting out an exhausted sigh. He's been trekking for hours. His chest burns with every shallow breath. What is wrong with my lungs, he thinks, realizing this fragile shell is definitely not his original body. Gritting his teeth, he forces himself to keep pushing forward. Survival mode kicks in. He needs grub and hydration fast. Snapping a thick vine in half, he tilts it back, gulping down the fresh water trapped inside while perched high up in the canopy. The humid air instantly triggers a flashback to when he got stranded from his squad in a tropical jungle. But wait, his sharp eyes catch something totally out of place. A rundown, sketchy little settlement hidden in the outskirts. Creeping closer through the brush, he figures this sketchy camp has to be located somewhere right along the coastline of Tokyo Bay. He spots a squashed, dirty tube of toothpaste on the ground. His brows furrow. This level of absolute filth in Japan. No way. Something seriously doesn't add up. But before he can piece it together, a harsh reflection blindsides him. He stares into a shattered shard of glass, absolutely paralyzed, the face staring back, not his. He's trapped in a stranger's meat suit. Suddenly, a heavy hand clamps down on his shoulder. "Hey, Manuel!" a voice calls out. Pablo's combat instincts take over instantly. He spins around, locking the guy in a brutal chokehold. The dude sputters, practically choking out. "Bro, chill! What the hell? It's me, Masa!" Pablo's eyes narrow. Wait, does this random guy actually know the owner of this body? He does a quick ocular pat-down, no weapons. He releases the grip, the realization sinking in. "Alright, guess I go by Manuel now." Masa rubs his bruised neck, gasping. "Dude, why did you jump me like that?" Unfazed, Pablo coldly demands, "What do you want?" The guy looks completely hurt, insisting they're actually best buds. Catching on, Manuel plays along, extending a hand with a quick, "My bad." Masa enthusiastically shakes it, letting out a massive sigh of relief that his friend is still breathing. "Man, you had me terrified after that savage beatdown you took," Masa blurts out. Manuel raises an eyebrow. "Wait, someone beat the crap out of me. Why would they do that?" Masa frantically whispers that a guy named Sergio runs this mining turf like a brutal dictator, and whatever he says goes. Speak of the devil, Sergio struts right into view. "What did you just call me, maggot?" Sergio snarls. His eyes burn with pure rage that a filthy slave from his own crew dared to drop his name without a proper title of respect. Looks like somebody desperately needs another brutal lesson in manners. Without warning, the boss winds up and viciously decks Masa in the jaw, sending him crashing into the dirt near the shattered glass. Sergio sneers, mocking him for being dumb enough to forget the absolute hierarchy. "You forget your place, you bleed. You piss me off, you pay the price," he barks. Masa scrambles backward, desperately pleading, and stammering out pitiful apologies for slipping up. In a massive panic, Masa throws his buddy right under the bus. He whines that Manuel was the one dropping the honorifics first, and he just accidentally copied him. Sergio slowly locks his deadly gaze onto our hero. "Honestly, I'm shocked you're even standing after I practically beat you to a pulp," Sergio taunts. But Manuel, he doesn't even flinch. Zero reaction. He just glares back with ice-cold dead eyes. Sergio scoffs, totally triggered. "What's with that cocky look, trash? Did I not pound enough sense into your thick skull?" Absolute dead silence. Not a single muscle twitch from our guy. Sergio cracks his knuckles, vowing to violently wipe that smug, arrogant smirk right off his face. "Right freaking now!" He lunges forward with a wild haymaker, but Manuel effortlessly slips past it. Too wide, too slow. This guy is a total amateur, he casually thinks. The seasoned soldier flat out states he doesn't waste his time beating on helpless civilians. But hey, if this punk really wants a death wish, he'll gladly take control of the situation. He ducks flawlessly under another sloppy hook as Sergio screams at him to shut his mouth. In a blink, Manuel counters, driving a devastating, picture-perfect right hook straight into the bully's jaw. Sergio's eyes violently roll back into his skull. He's practically seeing stars, but somehow pure stubborn rage keeps him upright. Spitting curses, the brute completely loses his mind. Manuel frowns inwardly. That counter was flawless. Why didn't he drop? The harsh reality sets in: this new scrawny body is insanely weak. This vessel is way flimsier than I expected, but he still charges right at him. Sergio swings wild, aiming for another strike, but our guy launches himself into the air, figuring that even with this trash-tier physique, a solid elbow drop should be more than enough to completely wreck him. Bam, he slams his elbow straight into the giant's jaw with brutal bone-crushing force. Sergio stumbles backward, completely dazed and groaning in sheer agony. The absolute unit crashes into the dirt. Manuel coldly stares down at him, warning him that he never stood a chance, and to take his pathetic little brawls somewhere else, unless he actually wants to catch a one-way ticket to the afterlife. He turns his back to leave, but Sergio snarls, realizing he totally underestimated the kid, and whips a hidden blade right out of his jacket. The thug screams that anyone who dares to fight back is going to pay the ultimate price, bro. Manuel spins around in a flash, but out of nowhere, a little boy jumps right in front of him. Shrieking that it's way too dangerous, Sergio lunges forward, blade gleaming, while the terrified kid squeezes his eyes shut. But our MC is already moving. He intercepts the massive guy's arm, gripping the weapon hand like a vice, and drops a chilling warning. Now that he pulled a weapon, he better be ready to take a life or lose his own. In a split second, he delivers a devastating knife hand strike straight to the thug's throat, and using his own leg as a pivot, effortlessly sweeps the giant off his feet. The big guy slams into the ground, and our hero instantly mounts him. The little kid gasps in pure shock, his jaw practically on the floor. Meanwhile, Sergio is hacking and coughing, his whole body wrecked with absolute misery. But that pain quickly turns into sheer paralyzing terror. The MC raises a clenched fist. Sergio scrambles to scream, desperately begging him, "Ow!" to wait to just stop. But our guy coldly replies that there are 0 timeouts in a life-or-death brawl. He brings his fist down, absolutely hammering the guy's face with everything he's got. The kid is left speechless. Manuel calmly stands back up, leaving Sergio completely knocked out cold in the dirt. Man, I threw my entire body weight into that strike. The MC thinks, frustrated, that it barely did any real damage. He realizes he desperately needs to level up this totally nerfed physique, and fast. The boy is still mind-blown by the insane flex he just witnessed, but reality quickly kicks back in. He stammers, asking what in the world happened to Manuel. Our hero glances back internally, questioning who this kid even is, and why his face feels so weirdly familiar. The kid glares, asking if this is some kind of sick joke. Manuel casually drops the bomb that he has total amnesia. The boy waves his arms, shouting that it's him. The next-door neighbor Manu just shrugs, apologizing because he literally can't even remember his own name right now. The kid furiously chases after him, demanding to know if he seriously wiped him from his memory too. Back in the alley, an enraged Sergio regains consciousness, screaming that they are going to pay big time for this. Walking back, the kid is totally hyping him up, saying his moves were straight fire back there, and begging to learn how to fight like that. But our hero cuts him off. The only thing that matters right now is figuring out what the deal is with this weird island. The boy sighs, admitting that being stuck here is basically a life sentence. They are trapped on an industrial wasteland floating right in the middle of Tokyo Bay, a massive toxic dumpster fire of a city. The reincarnated MC is totally thrown off. I've never even heard of a dump like this, he thinks. Does this place actually exist in Japan? The reality is brutal. Men are worked to the bone in the mines, while women and kids barely scrape by, hustling scraps, or literally diving through the trash just to survive. And the crime rate? Exactly as chaotic as you'd guess. The whole island is just one giant lawless cesspool. Looking around, Manuel compares it to some hardcore post-war slum. Honestly, maybe even worse than that. Suddenly, the neighbor kid spots some fresh bread on a market stall, practically drooling at the sight of it. The grumpy vendor instantly barks at the brat to get lost, assuming he doesn't have a single dime to his name. But the kid snaps back, telling him not to judge. Without missing a beat, our MC slaps a bill on the counter and demands the bread. The vendor snatches the cash, and the kid stares wide-eyed, asking if he's seriously buying it for him. Manu just smirks. Considerate payment for the intel drop I borrowed from earlier. The kid beams with gratitude, but then squints, wondering where the heck he even scored the cash. The MC casually reveals he looted it off those alleyway goons. Sure, he wouldn't normally stoop to the level of robbing the defeated, but in a hellhole like this, cash is king. The boy looks up in awe, whispering that the old Manuel is gone, replaced by a totally different beast. Back at their rundown shack, the kid kicks the door open, happily shouting that he's home. He announces they are having an absolute feast tonight with his mom, all thanks to Manuel sponsoring the meal. His exhausted mother smiles weakly, telling him he needs to eat some too, but the brave little guy lies, saying he's already stuffed. His mom pauses, asking if he's absolutely sure. The kid gives her a reassuring smile, telling her to stop worrying and just eat. She needs to keep her strength up. But right then, the MC's instincts scream. He catches a nasty chemical scent in the air. Moving on pure reflex, he spins around and slams his elbow back to barricade the door. The kid shrieks out Manuel's name in total panic. Our guy braces himself against the door as vicious flames suddenly engulf the entire shack. Thick smoke fills the room, making the poor mother hack aggressively. Outside, the enemy grunts are literally torching the place to the ground. Through the roaring fire, Sergio's voice echoes roaring that this is his ultimate payback, and his punishment is a fiery grave. The kid and his mom are completely frozen in terror. Carlitos cries out, begging to know why this is happening. The MC grunts desperately, throwing his weight against the jammed door to break it open. Damn it! They locked us in from the outside, he realizes. It's a straight-up ambush. He frantically scans the burning room, knowing there has to be something he can use. And then he spots it. In a life-or-death situation, literally anything can be a weapon. His eyes lock onto a heavy bag. Bingo. He snatches it up and charges straight back toward the blazing exit. Carlitos shrieks his name, totally terrified, demanding to know what crazy stunt he's about to pull. With absolute tunnel vision, our protagonist accelerates his legs, moving with blazing speed. He boots the door completely off its hinges, launching those goons across the room like ragdolls. The miners scream in panic as Sergio zeroes in on him, calling him a brain-dead idiot for showing his face. They try boxing him in from every single angle. Manu just squares up for a brawl, smirking, "You again!" and asks what his endgame is this time. Sergio snaps back, "Isn't it obvious, punk?" For the absolute disrespect of humiliating him, defying his authority, and actually drawing blood, Manu is going to pay with his life. Manu's eyes go cold. Message received loud and clear. From this second on, every hostile threat in his way is getting wiped off the map. Sergio just scoffs, telling him not to make him laugh. Nearby, Carlitos and his mom choke on the thick smoke, watching Manu drop into a low, deadly stance. He flashes them a hand signal run the second you get an opening. Suddenly, a miner lunges at him with a jagged blade, screaming, "You think I'm gonna let you slide?" But our guy just scoops up a handful of sharp rocks. The thug slashes down, but Manu ducks effortlessly, and a split second later the miner gets his skull cracked open. The entire mob freezes, absolutely shook. Their jaws drop. What the heck did he just do? Then they see it, a handmade flail swinging in his grip. He had literally crafted this brutal weapon from scratch. Just some scrap leather and heavy stones, but once it builds up that sickening momentum, it crushes bone and tears through its target like paper. Super easy to build, but insanely overpowered. That's exactly why top-tier assassins obsessed over it, a lethally precise tool engineered solely to obliterate the human being. Sergio is completely paralyzed with fear as his entire crew gets absolutely wrecked. Manu stares right through his soul. "You're the last one standing, buddy." Sergio stammers, freaking out that he's just supposed to be some weak kid. He charges blindly, screaming at Manu to stop messing with his head. But crack Manu's flail smashes right into his arm. Sergio shrieks in absolute agony as his bone snaps, dropping his knife straight to the dirt. Manu slowly steps up, looming over him. Sergio is violently shivering, but when he forces himself to look up, he meets a glare filled with pure murderous rage. He begs for his life, crying out that there won't be any punishment. But Manu coldly replies, "Sorry. Anyone who threatens to end my life doesn't get to wake up tomorrow." Right before he delivers the final blow, Carlitos wraps his arms tightly around Manu's waist. "Stop! Please don't do this!" the kid begs. He cries out that he can't just end a guy's life, that no matter how tough he is, taking out another person is totally twisted. "Don't turn into a murderer!" he screams. Using the distraction, Sergio scrambles away like a terrified rat. Manu ignores him, spinning his deadly flail, locking onto his target. Even with the kid dragging him down, he launches his makeshift weapon right at him. Bam! It violently shatters a wooden post just inches from Sergio's head. The guy glances back in sheer panic while Manu mutters, "Did I seriously just miss?" As Sergio limps away sobbing in pain, Carlitos lets out a huge sigh of relief, thanking the heavens he pulled his buddy back from the edge. Manu's mind spirals, the word murderer echoing in his head. Cut to a dark warehouse later that day. Sergio is down on his knees begging his boss for permission to punish Manuel. He whines about how the kid attacked him, swinging a crazy weapon around like an absolute psycho for no reason. A menacing blonde guy slowly rises from his chair, deadpanning that such wild rebellion is completely unforgivable. Sergio aggressively nods along, until a brutal fist suddenly slams right into his face. The boss glares down at him disgusted. A legit area supervisor getting completely packed up by some random slave? That is beyond pathetic. It's so embarrassing it warrants a savage, fatal beatdown on the spot. Sergio bawls his eyes out, realizing he's literally about to get beaten into the afterlife. The blonde guy slowly pulls his fist back, revealing heavy metal brass knuckles gleaming in the dim light. He mutters Manuel's name, a twisted smile creeping up. This kid sounds like he's going to be extremely fun to crush. Meanwhile, in a rundown shack, Carlitos is pacing, stressing out about how insanely messed up this entire situation is. They poured blood, sweat, and tears into building that safe house, and it just got trashed in 2 seconds. What are we even supposed to do now? He panics. His mom gently calls out to Manu, nervously asking if he's seriously okay with crashing there. Manu nods firmly, but makes it crystal clear this is strictly a tactical alliance. He needs them to drop all the intel on how this cursed island operates. The food supply chain, the guard rotations, literally every single detail, because he's building a master plan. Carlitos gets totally triggered by his cold tone. He snaps at him to chill out and stop acting like some edgy stranger. "Ever since you lost your memory, you've been acting like a complete weirdo," the boy yells. "Did your whole personality glitch out too, Manu?" Zeroes in on those words, different person. Honestly, the kid might be spot on, because in his past life he was a hardcore soldier, until he got brutally backstabbed and murdered by his own so-called comrades, right in the middle of a massive war zone. There has to be some massive twisted conspiracy pulling the strings behind the scenes. But there's zero chance he's letting his story end here. He is going to break out of this hellish island and utterly destroy every single traitor that wronged him. Flash forward to the next morning, he's already grinding out a brutal workout. He drops down, knocking out one-arm push-ups, first crushing it with his left, then flexing with his right. Manuel flexes his trembling hands, totally baffled. Is this seriously his absolute limit? His muscles feel like absolute jelly, realizing he's got to grind his core stability back up from rock bottom. A familiar voice snaps him back to reality. Masa jogs over, instantly reminding our MC that this is the exact same dude who threw him under the bus with Sergio earlier. Masa tilts his head, totally clueless, asking what he's up to, before warning him they're about to be super late for the daily grind. Manuel's eyes narrow slightly. This is the perfect golden ticket to squeeze some much-needed intel out of him. Cut to the pitch-black underground caverns where a barking foreman commands everyone to fall in line. The exhausted crew nervously scrambles into a straight formation. Two guys shoot Manuel, pure death glares, practically confirming they're Sergio's loyal goons. Suddenly, the foreman steps up, dropping the hammer about a massive announcement. The bombshell drops Sergio, the head honcho of Team G, is officially gone for good. A massive wave of pure shock ripples through the crowd. The big boss wastes zero time naming the replacement Team G's very own number 8 Masa. The kid blankly points a finger right at his own chest, totally mind blown. The scene shifts deep into the grimy pits, where heavy pickaxes smash against solid rock. These forced laborers are locked into an endless cycle of grueling chores, dealing with a brutal shift from 7 a.m. straight to 11 at night, suffocating deep inside those toxic, dusty tunnels. The vibe here is straight up ruthless and totally unforgiving. It's absolute captivity, pure unadulterated exploitation at its absolute worst. One power-tripping guard sneers at a guy for lagging behind, instantly delivering a nasty jab right to his gut, barking that he's dragging the whole squad down. The poor dude crumples to the dirt, groaning in sheer agony. Masa gently drops a hand on his shoulder, calmly pointing out that while the other squad might be a total nightmare, he's calling the shots in this corner now. No one's throwing hands under his watch, so they can totally just vibe and pace themselves. The worker totally tears up, whispering Masa's title in pure disbelief. The new boss just smiles softly, noting how completely drained the guy looks, and urging him to take a solid breather. Manuel silently clocks the whole interaction from the shadows. Suddenly, the angry guard crashes their moment, scoffing and demanding to know what kind of sick prank this is. He mocks Masa for just copying his super lazy predecessor, plus he violently spits out how much he absolutely loathes soft nice guys, threatening to dish out some instant punishment right on the spot. Smash! A heavy iron pickaxe suddenly clips his leg. The guard yelps out in pure shock and pain, wildly screaming about who threw it. Manuel just casually shrugs, claiming his hand totally slipped, and tosses out a super flat apology. The goon storms over, practically foaming at the mouth, roaring about what his major malfunction is, completely rejecting the sorry excuse. It seriously looks like Manuel is the one begging for a brutal wake-up call right now. Boom! A raspy voice suddenly cuts through the tension, claiming he absolutely loves this vibe. Both guys whip around, totally caught off guard. The newcomer smirks, hyping up the brawl and instantly tagging himself in. The entire cave whispers Kusanagi's name, mutually agreeing that the loudmouth guard is completely toasted. Sweating bullets, the guard stammers out that he would never ever dare cross him in a million years, practically begging and admitting he's way out of his league. But Kusanagi just clicks his tongue, clearly super annoyed by the pathetic groveling. In a literal flash, he rockets off the dirt with insane explosive power, launching a devastating right hook, while coldly stating that if you don't listen, you're getting permanently put to sleep. Bam! It perfectly connects right with his temple. Manuel and Masa both flinch, totally stunned by the raw impact. Masa screams out loud that power level was absolutely out of this world. Manuel's brain runs a million miles an hour. It wasn't just brute force. The dude totally sniped a critical pressure point with laser-like precision. Kusanagi slowly pivots around, throwing a wicked grin at Manuel, daring him to step up to the plate next, and challenging him to see if he's feeling punchy. Manuel shoots back a deadpan stare, stating he never throws down without a legit reason, while Masa frantically hisses at him to show some basic respect. Kusanagi echoes his name, his eyes lighting up like crazy. "So, you're the guy I've been dying to meet you." He fiercely lunges straight at him. Manuel instantly locks into a rock-solid defensive stance, as the wild brawler closes the distance in a split second. Kusanagi unleashes a savage swing, but Manuel heavily tanks the hit, soaking it all up with his forearms. The entire crowd gasps, totally mesmerized by the insane blur of incoming strikes. At this crazy tempo, Manuel is practically signing his own endgame papers. Our MC, however, stubbornly holds his ground, analyzing the barrage. The guy is way too fast, hits like a freight train, and his aim is scary accurate. Dude's stats are literally maxed out. But wait, his reckless swinging totally leaves wide open gaps everywhere. Manuel aggressively plants his back foot, slips smoothly past the incoming arm, totally catching Kusanagi off guard, and beautifully counters with a stinging jab right to the face. Jaws physically drop all over the cavern. Did he seriously just check Kusanagi? Despite the insane hype, Manuel stands completely unshaken, stone cold. But wait, Kusanagi actually managed to parry the worst of it. He spits out a massive grin, praising the sick counter. He's totally hyped now, promising they're going to keep trading insane blows, until their bodies literally go entirely numb. But suddenly a booming voice orders them to freeze. Everyone sharply turns, totally clueless about who just crashed the ultimate showdown. Panic instantly sets in. The workers frantically drop to their knees. Hushed whispers, confirming Director Angel just rolled onto the scene. The sharp-dressed VIP effortlessly glides forward, flanked by his personal entourage, looking untouchable. He coolly pushes his glasses up the bridge of his nose. This guy, he is the ultimate overseer of this whole cursed facility. Manuel zeroes in on him, instantly sensing major boss energy. Angel drops Kusanagi's name, and the wild brawler immediately snaps into a stiff, terrified salute. Angel coldly orders him to stop wrecking the fresh labor with these completely pointless turf wars, ominously asking, if he seriously wants a direct complaint, file to the almighty Marcus of the Blood Pact. Kusanagi practically shatters, physically shaking in his boots the second he hears that terrifying title. He frantically stammers, completely backpedaling, claiming it was just a tiny, harmless little educational sparring session. Angel raises an eyebrow, mocking his pathetic excuse, noting how his version of a lesson is literally just throwing haymakers. He scoffs, telling him not to make him bust a gut laughing with such a weak lie. Since nobody expects a single brain cell from a meathead like him, Kusanagi just grunts and clenches his fist. Angel chimes in, demanding to know what the hell these grunts are doing. Like, if their whole purpose is just scraping the dirt, why bust their asses, digging every single second they're breathing? Unless they actually want to get tossed out like absolute garbage. Fast forward to 2 p.m. Finally, lunch break. Our boy stares at his food, stone cold and straight up flavorless. The other miners start venting. Portions are a total joke, while the suits up top are living on easy mode, feasting like literal kings. Man, he'd kill to taste a spread like that just once in his life. The guys absolutely collapse into the dirt, groaning about starving to death. Suddenly, Masa shoves his own lunch tray toward our guy. Here, just eat it. Manuel just glares at the grub. Complete silence. Then he brushes it off. Hard pass. Masa blinks, totally confused. Bro, why? He fires back, saying he's not about to owe favors to anybody in this hellhole. His buddy plops down right next to him, waving it off. Nah, man, it ain't like that. Consider it payback. You know, for dragging you into that massive mess when I scrapped with Sergio. He admits he threw Manuel right under the bus like a total coward. He can't just let that slide. Handing over his food is literally the bare minimum. A faint smirk finally cracks Manuel's face. He snatches the chicken, chuckling. All right, trading a dirty lie for some white meat, fair trade. We're officially square. Masa tells him to scarf it down quick, but the other two guys suddenly creep up from behind. Yo, if Manuel's gonna pass on that, toss it our way. Sighing, Masa snaps off a piece for both of the starving scavengers. Barely a minute later, the warden starts barking. They've been sitting on their asses, stuffing their faces way too long. Get up and get back to the grind. Instantly, these enslaved miners are trapped in a nightmare, forced to tank. Back-breaking, brutal manual labor. Human rights, literally zero, non-existent. Out of nowhere, one of the guys completely drops into the dirt. Masa scrambles over, shaking him frantically. Hey, talk to me! Don't you dare die on me! But the foreman stomps over, screaming at them to move. Masa just freezes, pure shock on his shoes. The guard savagely kicks the collapsed miner, then lazily checks his pulse, licking his tongue in annoyance before dropping the grim reality. He's a goner, just another casualty from Group G. Just chuck the body out back. Sick to his stomach, Masa warns Manuel, begging his bro not to push himself past the breaking point. But guess what? Even with the corpse on the ground, the meat grinder doesn't stop. The guard barks orders, forcing everyone right back into the pits. Someone dying. Doesn't even buy a 5-minute pause in this hell. Down here, a human life is literally worth less than dirt. Dropping his helmet into the dust, Manuel shoots a deadly glare over his shoulder. Right then, the ear-piercing clang of a bell echoes through the cave, signaling the absolute end of today's torture session. Drop the gear. Masa lets out a massive shaky sigh. Thank God, it's over! But then he spots Manuel standing right in front of him, totally unfazed. Dude, how are you even still on your feet? Our boy just shrugs. I'm used to pushing past this kind of pain. Masa stares low-key terrified. Has this guy always been this much of an absolute tank? The foreman aggressively smashes the bell again, screaming at Group G to stop slacking off and move. Shift's over, but the humiliation isn't. Stripped completely bare, they're forced to march while barely conscious from exhaustion. The guard screams at them. To keep the pace up, no stopping, no dragging your feet. Why a hardcore full-body strip search? Gotta make sure nobody's smuggling out raw minerals. Only after surviving that degrading nightmare are they finally cleared to crawl back up to the surface. The boss yells for Group Na, announcing payday is locked and loaded. Manuel runs the math in his head. 1,000 yen for 16 brutal hours of bone-crushing labor. Yet the dude standing right behind him actually bows, practically crying with joy over the pathetic cash. Manuel is mind blown. Like, how are you genuinely thrilled over literal pennies? Right then, the heavy rumble of a truck rolls up, and the entire camp loses its collective mind, hyped beyond belief. Our hero squints through the dust. What the hell is going on? Something massive is definitely pulling into camp. The guys start buzzing, whispering that the Holy Grail has arrived once again. The doors pop open. A group of women step out, hyping up the boys for surviving another brutal shift. And because they grinded so hard today, they're unlocking a massive 20% discount on literally everything in the truck. Manhwa mutters the words, "Mining Appreciation Day." Seriously. But the rest of the crew is already full sprinting toward the vendors like animals, screaming for an ice-cold beer and a tiny bag of chips. Meanwhile, another girl is tossing out grilled octopus snacks to the feral crowd. The orders are flying non-stop. Total chaos. One guy pops his beer and chugs the entire can in one savage gulp. He lets out a primal sigh of absolute bliss, moaning about how the alcohol is literally reviving every single dead cell in his body. Another dude laughs, saying Haida is totally missing the point. Trying to hoard your pennies on Appreciation Day? That's just a mega L and absolute waste of living. Because he's going all in, blowing his entire 1,000 yen payload on pure, unfiltered indulgence. Manuel just watches his brain short-circuiting at how twisted this is. Like 5 seconds ago, these guys were literally treated worse than dirt. And now, they're partying like they just hit the lottery. The mood whiplash is insane. Mesa cracks a sad smile, whispering that it must be nice to just let go. Manuel side-eyes him. "You're seriously not gonna buy anything?" Masa swallows hard. "Bro, I want to taste more than anything." But this guy swore he'd stash away every single dime until he scored that sweet ticket to paradise. Manuel was totally clueless. Masa just stared at him like, "Dude, seriously? You don't remember?" The warden spelled it out the second they got dumped here. From day one, they were nothing but bottom-feeding slaves crawling in the dirt. Worked to the absolute bone, scraping by on literal pennies. They were treated way worse than livestock. But hey, cash is still king even in hell. If you wanted a shot at grabbing that spider's thread, you had to scrounge up 1 million yen. That ticket to paradise was their only golden ticket off this cursed rock. Everyone lost their minds at the mere thought of breaking out. Swearing to stack their cash, one dude bragged he'd see the outside world again. But guess what? That exact same guy blew his paycheck on beer, claiming that sweet booze brought him back to life. Marcel says that was his ultimate wake-up call. Even if they beat him into the dirt or he passes out from pure exhaustion, he absolutely refuses to drop a single yen. Click. It all makes sense to Manuel now. The reason nobody starts a riot in this fiery pit, management dangles 2 juicy carrots right in front of their faces. Carrot number 1 is fake hope. Carrot number 2 is instant pleasure, where guys just drown their sorrows and forget they even had a future. The corrupt wardens and the big bosses pulling the strings know exactly what they're doing. It makes Manuel physically sick. Staring down at his hard-earned stash, Manuel turns to him. "How much more do you need for that ticket?" Mesa instantly gets defensive. "Why do you care? I'm not telling you anything." But Manuel just waves it off. "Chill, man. Your secret's safe with me." He flashes some cash, making it clear he just wants to fast-track the guy's great escape. "So you're 60,000 yen short," Manuel calculates. "At 2,000 yen a day, you'll hit your target in exactly 1 month." Masa is stunned and grateful, but he's got to ask, "Why would you stick your neck out for me?" Our boy tells him not to sweat the details, he's just looking out for a friend. But more importantly, he drops the real question. "Are there any boats around here? Is any beaches or hidden docks on this rock?" Masa shakes his head. "Nope, go look for yourself. Take a good hard look at reality. The whole island is boxed in by brutal jagged cliffs, everyone knows it. But our protagonist isn't buying it. He decides to do some deep recon. Are you insane?" Masa panics, warning him that trying to break out is a massive crime. But Manuel just smirks. "Crime, bro? Are there even laws in a totally lawless wasteland?" Suddenly a mechanical whir cuts their plotting dead in its tracks. Manuel spins around and locks eyes with a massive security drone. The lethal machine is glaring right back, a heavy-duty barrel aimed straight at his chest. He instantly clocks at military-grade hardware. Its red lens locks onto them, calculating the perfect kill trajectory. Without missing a beat, our hero scrambles back up the ridge. Masa is completely lost. "Dude, what the hell is going on?" Vaulting over the edge, Manuel screams, "Run! Move your ass now!" Masa is still confused until a high-caliber bullet literally clips his ear. The kid freezes, totally paralyzed by shock. Pure adrenaline-fueled terror kicks in, and the two book it for the tree line in an absolute blind panic. That killing machine unloads a relentless barrage, tearing up the dirt inches from their heels as Masa screams bloody murder. Absolute chaos unfolds. Glancing over his shoulder, Manuel recognizes the tech, an SG Nemesis 1.0. The thing shreds anything that breathes inside its radar. Once it locks onto a target, it flags them as a lethal threat and hunts them down until they're a corpse. They literally called it the Mad Stalker, a merciless meat grinder that made even hardened war vets shake in their boots. The gunfire creeps closer. Masa is losing his grip on reality as Manuel watches a stray round shatter the rock wall right beside them. Manuel violently digs his heels into the dirt, swerving hard to the flank. "We're trapped! There's no way out!" Masa shrieks, but Manuel just snaps, "Shut up and follow me!" They crash wildly through the dense forest brush. The drone hovers ominously for a split second before resuming the hunt, effortlessly strafing sideways through the massive tree trunks. Manuel gritted his teeth. just as he feared its hyper-advanced tracking sensors were utterly flawless. "Pick up the pace, you're lagging," he yells at Masa. I can't run anymore," the kid sobs. Manuel grabs him. "Move your legs or you're dead." Things are looking incredibly bleak. At this pace, they're about to be human Swiss cheese. But then out of nowhere, he spots a rat perched in a tree. A wild idea clicks. He lunges, snatching the squirming rodent barehanded. "Listen to me. I'm counting down from 3, he barks. "When I hit 0 freeze, do not move a single muscle." Masa hyperventilates. "Are you out of your mind? We're gonna get lit up." But Manuel completely ignores him and starts the deadly countdown. The kid tries to fight it right as the drone unleashes another massive volley of lead. They desperately dive behind a massive boulder, the drone hovering right on their tail. Finally, the countdown hits 1. "Sorry about this, buddy," Manuel whispers, yeeting the rat straight at the drone's sensory lens. The violent machine violently pivots, scanning the flying meat target, and completely blasts off in the opposite direction. Motion detected, rerouting target, new prey locked in. The machine pivots, locking onto a random rat and absolutely obliterates it in a brutal hail of bullets. The poor little guy was just minding his own business. The smoking barrel whips right back toward our guys, freezing in midair. Our main character, dude, doesn't even flinch. The drone circles them like a mechanical vulture, scanning their biometrics. It lets out a chilling beep right in Masa's face, but miraculously holds its fire. Then it swivels over to Manuel, running the exact same death scan. Tension spikes. A single bead of cold sweat slides down our hero's cheek, half expecting to catch a bullet. The drop falls, hitting a leaf with a silent splash. Hovering dead center, the drone suddenly shoots up into the sky, broadcasting that the execution sequence is officially terminated. Masa's knees instantly buckle. He completely collapses in the dirt, his adrenaline crashing hard, because he swore he was a total goner. Our guy just lets out a heavy breath, barely phased. Panicking Masa desperately begs to know what the heck that metallic nightmare even was. Manuel breaks it down. That was a high-tier hunting drone engineered by the Aldemir Republic, designed strictly to track down targets. Oh, and for blind massacres. The terrifying part. It physically cannot tell the difference between friends and foes. Because of that massive glitch, the military branded it as defective and pulled the plug on the entire line during the war. Masa was stunned, asking if those things actually see combat, and frankly how Manuel knows all this classified intel. But our hero is busy wondering why a scrapped death machine is chilling on this random island. Its threat level is so insanely high that trading or lending it to foreign nations is completely blacklisted. It hits him. This whole island might have some shady underground tie to the exact Aldemir military unit he used to serve in. Cutting back to the hideout, Carlitos is shouting for our hero while literally burning their dinner. The kid smirks, teasing him for taking his sweet time. His mom gently scolds him, telling him to say welcome back first. Manuel glances at the stove, asking what's cooking. The kid proudly flexes his so-called specialty, leftover scrap soup. He happily mentions they can finally afford higher-tier scraps now, and he's super grateful for the upgrade. Manuel just quietly processes that harsh reality. The boy hypes up the meal, claiming it smells absolutely divine, and practically forces them to dig in. Manu hesitates, then scoops up a spoonful. Instantly, his taste buds get assaulted. The acidity is violently aggressive. This sludge ain't even fit for human consumption. Honestly, stale military rations slap harder than this. Meanwhile, Carlitos is scarfing it down like a 5-star meal. Our hero is totally baffled, questioning what mutated palate this kid actually possesses. His mom chimes in with a sad truth. On this brutal island, even buying trash was a luxury, so the poor kid grew up swallowing stuff 100 times worse. The boy chokes down a bite, casually bragging that his earthworm udon was a total banger. He points at his bowl, hyped that there's actual meat clinging to a random bone. To him, it's a massive jackpot. He calls it absolute heaven, then immediately turns around and demands Manuel cough up the cash for the food. Manu blinks, asking what the heck he means by that. But the kid rolls his eyes, telling him to quit acting dumb and hand over the meal budget, knowing full well he just got his paycheck. Deadpan, our hero, drops the bomb. He's totally broke. He literally handed every single cent over to Masa. Hearing that, the kid completely loses his mind. To make it worse, Manuel casually admits he plans to keep throwing his cash at Masa moving forward. Pure devastation. The boy physically drops his precious bowl in sheer disbelief. He furiously blames Manu, letting out an angry groan because he wasted perfectly good scraps. But our protagonist simply slides the spilled food onto the table. He confidently states he's found a genius way to use it. He orders the kid to grab the sludge and follow his lead. Carlitos stares at him like he's totally lost it. Deep in the woods, the master plan is revealed. Carlitos watches, demanding to know what kind of sketchy contraption he's building, with scrap metal and a rusty bucket. Our hero smirks, claiming this is exactly how a pro operates. The kid starts whining about his trash dinner, but Manuel instantly shuts that down. He didn't trash it. He repurposed it. Since those foul scraps smell absolutely horrendous, they make the ultimate bait to lure in wild game. In short, that nasty stench is guaranteed to drag something out of the bushes. Catching on, the boy asks if they're setting up snare traps, eyes wide as he wonders what their target actually is. The protagonist guesses they'll snag some rats or smaller critters. Hearing that, the kid casually confesses he used to heavily debate roasting up rats for dinner. But he backed it down after watching slum locals literally drop dead from brutal stomach infections. Manuel nods, explaining that nasty city sewer rats carry lethal diseases. Forest rats, on the other hand, That's premium uncontaminated protein right there. If eating rodents grosses them out, then they'll just have to hike deeper into the woods for better loot. Curious Carlitos asks if there are more traps rigged up ahead. He can't wrap his head around why they're burying them so deep inside the heavy brush. Our hero explains that the thick camouflage is exactly why it works flawlessly. The prey feels completely safe creeping into the dark shadows. Suddenly, Carlitos absolutely loses his mind with hype. Up in a tree, a fat wild bird just got perfectly snared, completely baited by a juicy worm. Just like that, they bagged an upgrade. Manuel grins, noting that the catch easily secures tomorrow's lunch menu. And the kid, he couldn't agree more, already drooling. Over at the admin building of the mining site, a foreman reports the weekly haul hit 643 tons of ore, but 9 slaves dropped dead. The casualty rate is spiking, mostly stemming from straight-up starvation or massive overwork. He pleads with Director Angel, saying that even though they are slaves, they are still breathing human beings, begging him to bump up the food rations and give them breaks. Angel just flashes a cold smirk. He scoffs, declaring that headquarters couldn't care less about human lives. The foreman tries to push back, but Angel completely shuts him down, warning him not to make him repeat himself. As long as production skyrockets his performance rating, shoots up, and he will climb the corporate ladder way faster. He is not rotting on this trash-filled island forever, and he couldn't give a damn how many slaves bite the dust. They will keep grinding them down, since mining is the absolute priority. The defeated foreman just mutters, "Understood, sir." Angel snaps that it is time for the next report. One suit reports that sold goods racked up 2.5 million, boasting a massive 90% recovery rate. Those idiots blew their cash stuffing their faces and getting wasted again this week. Angel fires back, claiming that by chasing the dangling carrot, they walked blindly into the trap, proving they are no smarter than mindless animals. He demands if there is anything else to report. The guy nods, mentioning he heard number 8 from Team G is actually gunning for the Heaven Pass. The whole room bursts into mocking laughter at the thought of a lowly mining slave hoarding 1 million yen, calling it completely unheard of. Angel smirks with absolute arrogance, savoring the words number 8 from Team G. Cut to Masa aggressively pounding on the door, asking if he is awake. Our guy calls out that he is right outside. Masa pokes his head through the doorway, instantly caught off guard to find the protagonist hardcore sweating through a workout. The protagonist asks what is up. Masa replies that he thought they were hitting the mines together and wonders what on earth he is doing. He steps down, stating the obvious. This body is way too frail. If he wants to crush his goal, he needs to bulk up massively. Masa awkwardly laughs, calling him a total weirdo. The kid groggily wakes up whining about the racket. This early in the morning, he spots Masa and immediately demands to know who the heck he is. The guy introduces himself as Manuel's co-worker. Carlitos instantly fires up, accusing him of being the jerk swiping his paycheck, demanding he cough it up because that is his food money, crying about how starving they always were. Masa suddenly flashes back, picturing his little sister crying about an empty stomach. He asks if it tastes good, and his sister beams, calling it super delicious. She totally loves her big brother's toast. Masa softly thinks how badly he wants to cook for them, again genuinely apologizing to the kid. He promises to slide him something tasty, next time around begging him to just let it slide for today. Carlitos reluctantly agrees, but warns him it better be worth at least 1,000 yen. Manuel throws on his shirt and strides over. Deep inside the underground mining tunnel, Masa screams that the ceiling is unstable, demanding backup. He yells that the two of them can handle it, making sure everyone maneuvers safely. The foreman shouts that he will load up this section. Angel suddenly cuts in, slow clapping and praising his solid leadership and serious safety checks, just like the hype suggested. Number 8 is seriously impressive. Masa stammers, asking how the director knows his name. Angel smirks, claiming he is famous for keeping his squad in check without throwing a single punch, single-handedly driving up production quotas, proving the rumors are totally legit. Masa breaks into a massive grin, thanking the boss and saying he feels incredibly honored. Angel waves it off, telling him to drop the formalities, revealing he came all the way down here to hand-deliver a special bonus since the kid is oozing with untapped potential. A juicy reward skyrockets motivation, prompting Ueshima to let out a bitter, furious sigh. Manuel catches this sketchy vibe from the shadows. Angel whispers that flashing cash in public is way too risky, since you never know who is creeping around this dump, so he should follow him to a much safer spot. Masa excitedly nudges Manuel, whispering that maybe they can actually fast-track securing that Heaven Pass. Our guy frowns bluntly, warning Masa that his gut is screaming this is a trap, telling him to watch his back. Masa brushes it off, laughing that he is totally overthinking things, and they should just gratefully snatch up any blessing that comes their way. Then he eagerly jogs off, totally hyped for his massive payout. The foreman leans in, warning Manuel that if he gives a damn about his buddy, a twisted little party is going down at his place, right this very second. Our protagonist maintains an icy, furious glare. Cut to Masa brightly announcing they finally made it to his place. He stammers it is his humble spot, way too filthy for a high-rolling VIP like him. But the boss flashes a sinister smile, assuring him it is absolutely perfect, and a totally soundproof room works out way better for their little chat. Mesa smiles, visibly relieved, and ushers them inside with a flurry of apologies. "I'll go brew us some tea," he offers warmly. "Make yourselves at home," he says, but Angel instantly sneers, wrinkling his nose. "Man, this dump is way filthier than I thought. My freaking nose is gonna rot off." Masa blinks, completely taken aback. Angel snaps his fingers, barking orders at his goon. The thugs trash the guy's room. Out of nowhere, the foreman drives a brutal hook into Masa's gut, sending him collapsing to the floor, gasping for air. One of the lackeys drops heavy onto his back, pinning his arms down. Panic rising, Masa chokes out, "Who the hell are you?" The director glares down at him. "Trying to buy a VIP pass to paradise, huh? Tell me where you hid the stash." "I don't play around, kid. Spill it now, and you only lose the cash." Masa's eyes go wide. "No way. The special bonus. It was a total scam." Angel scoffs, rolling his eyes. "Just confirms my theory. Slaves are absolute morons." The crushing reality hits Masa. He got totally played. Frantic, he stammers, "I don't have any money. I'm literally just a slave." Angel sighs like he's dealing with a toddler. "Still dragging this out, huh?" He snaps his fingers at his lackey. "Bring it." The goon pulls a heavy pair of pliers from his pocket. Masa's blood runs cold. What the hell is he planning? The cold metal clamps down hard on his tooth. The kid screams bloody murder, begging them to stop. But the pliers wrench backward, ripping the tooth loose. "Rip it out," the director deadpans. With a sickening crunch, the tooth pops free. Masa thrashes on the ground in pure, unadulterated agony. Angel crouches down. "Didn't I warn you if you just used your words, you'd only be broke right now? Now make your choice. Hand over the stash or lose a lot more." Meanwhile, down in the grimy mines, whispers spread that Foreman Masa still hasn't clocked in. Guess that jerk-off boss finally took a liking to him. Bro's probably out partying. Manuel spots Washima creeping closer and squints. Wait, that dude was totally rolling with Angel. Manuel marches right up to him. "Yo, where's Foreman number 8? "No clue," Washima mutters, dodging eye contact. But our boy isn't buying it. He demands to know what kind of sketchy stuff they're pulling. The guy nervously looks away, mumbling that he'd better back off. After all, he's got a family waiting back home. Back at the rundown shack, Masa's raw, guttural screams echo through the walls. Crunch, snap. They keep ripping his teeth out one by sickening one. Finally, the goon pauses, letting the bloody mess of a guy catch his breath. Angel smirks. "Keep this up, and you'll be drinking your meals through a straw forever. Spilling the beans is your smartest play right now." Sobbing, Masa chokes out, "I swear I don't know." The director gets right in his face. "Still playing dumb about the cash. You really can't make one basic freaking choice." "Fine, I'll show you some mercy." The thug clamps the bloody pliers onto another pulled tooth and hovers it over Masa's mouth. Masa stares in sheer terror. What sick game is this? They forcefully shove the extracted tooth right back into his bleeding gums. Angel claps slowly. Boom, tooth is back. You should be thanking me. But guess what? We're gonna do the whole rip and replace routine all over again. Angel cheers mockingly, barking at his lackey to yank the bloody tooth out and smash it right back in. He spams the same psycho command over and over. The goon flashes a deeply twisted psychotic grin. Masa can only lie there drowning in mind-numbing torture, while the director eats it all up like a front-row movie. Hours bleed by. By the end of it, Masa's mouth is a totally toothless, bloody wreck. Angel tilts his head. So, still not in the mood to drop the coordinates for that cash. The kid wheezes, spitting out blood. Flashes of his little sister hit him like a truck. He locks his resolve. He will take this secret to the grave, because that money is his one-way ticket off this hellhole island. He remembers his frail sister in the hospital bed weakly apologizing. "I bet my surgery costs a fortune, huh?" But Masa had brushed it off with a huge smile. "Don't sweat it, Squirt. I scored a totally killer job. I'm gonna make bank and bring back an epic souvenir just for you." In the present, Masa's thoughts race. If he dies here, his sister rots away all alone. And there's absolutely zero chance he's letting these scumbags steal her lifeline. The director catches his defiant glare and gets instantly triggered. "You're a filthy slave, bro. Drop the tough guy act, or you're gonna lose way more than just your teeth." Masa glares up, spitting blood. "I don't have it." Angel completely loses his mind. "You worthless piece of trash. You brain-dead idiot," he screeches. Suddenly, Kusanagi crashes the party, brutally front-kicking the goon out of the way. Angel whips around. "What the hell are you doing?" Kusanagi cracks his knuckles. "Torturing him like a wimp isn't going to make him squeal," the director scoffs. "Oh yeah, and what's your genius plan?" The blonde giant yanks Masa up by his bloody collar. "I'm just wrapping up what I started, though gotta admit, kid, your durability is kinda insane." Without a second of hesitation, he launches a massive soul-crushing punch right into Masa's gut. Absolute zero mercy. The sickening crack of a rib echoes as Masa curls up gagging in pure agony. Kusanagi smirks. "Even after all that damage, you didn't drop a single hint. Now that's a real freaking man. Makes breaking you all the more satisfying. Just overwhelming beastly brute force. The kind of psycho who shatters bones with a single punch, getting a seriously twisted high off of torturing others." The blinding agony and sheer terror hit so hard, Masa genuinely wished he could just beg them to rip his teeth out instead. Kusanagi coldly tells him to just drop dead already. Masa squeezes his eyes shut, his mind instantly drifting to his little sister. He remembers Yuli's sweet voice insisting she didn't care about fancy souvenirs. She was just beyond happy to have her big bro back home. Bam! Another brutal hook smashes into him. Angel smirks, mocking how absolutely wrecked he looks, and betting it hurts like crazy. He casually adds that Kusanagi will back off the second he spills the beans. But Masa stays zipped, taking yet another sickening blow to the face. Through the haze, Yuli's words echo in his mind. I love you, big brother. The impact sends the kid flying backward. The director barks at him to just give up the stash location already. But Masa weakly props himself up, spitting out that he does not have a single dime. Angel coldly shrugs, claiming he knew it all along, and gives Kusanagi the green light to finish the job. Meanwhile, Manuel is sprinting like crazy. He kicks the door wide open, but the horrific scene stops him dead in his tracks. Masa is crumpled on the floor, absolutely battered to a pulp. Manuel frantically screams his name. Our MC is completely frozen in shock, listening to Masa's agonizing gasps on the blood-stained floor. Manuel's sharp eyes instantly scan the damage. Fractured ribs straight from the sixth one down. His ragged, rapid breathing meant a shattered bone had definitely punctured his lung. Factor in the crushed eye socket and nose, multiple skull fractures, deep stab wounds, and his completely mangled mouth. Missing half his teeth. His pulse is terrifyingly weak, signaling a ruptured artery and heavy traumatic shock. But no matter how hopeless it looked, all Manuel can think is what kind of absolute monster could do something this vile. Masa coughs up blood, admitting Manuel was spot on with his warning. That scumbag was after his cash, but he swore to protect it until the bitter end. Manu clenches his jaw. I know, man, I know. Fading fast, Masa whispers he won't get to spend a single cent of it anyway, so he's handing it all over. Manuel tries to play it tough, claiming he doesn't take free handouts, telling him to just hang on, get patched up, and spend it himself. But Masa weakly grips his hand, practically begging him to just take the cash. He knows his time is up. If Manuel doesn't take it right now, all that hard work goes down the drain. He pulls the MC closer for a final secret. Walks straight out of this hellhole. Keep going until you spot a massive tree near the shoreline marked with a deep gash in its bark. The stash is buried right there in the dirt. He grinded his whole life to save up every single bill, but now he's passing the torch. But in exchange, he just has one final dying wish. Whenever he finally escapes this cursed island, he has to track down his little sister. Manuel asks for her details. Masa's mind flashes back to a bittersweet memory of her wishing him a happy birthday, explaining how she literally cut up her own skirt to make him a gift. Even though it was her absolute favorite outfit, Yuli had just smiled, saying she wanted to treat him because he was always grinding so hard for them. Snapping back to reality, Masa chokes up, saying she's such an angel, so please, you have to find her. Our MC hesitates, muttering that he can't make promises he might break. But Masa tightly grips his arm. Her name is Yuli Honjo, he begs. And if you ever find her, promise to tell her that her goofy big bro never ever forgot about her. Not even in his very last breath. He whispers a final thank you for everything. And just like that, the light leaves his eyes. The protagonist stares down at the lifeless kid in absolute silence. Gently placing a hand over Masa's forehead, he helps close his eyes. A lingering tear slips down Masa's bruised cheek, carrying the memory of a sister he'd never see again. The MC steps out of that blood-stained cabin, carrying the boy's body in his arms. Walking in a dead trance straight toward the exact tree Masa mentioned. He drops to his knees and digs furiously into the dirt, eventually yanking out a hidden lockbox. He pulls out stacks of weathered bills. Whispering Masa's name, he vows he's officially accepted the payload. He then strips the bloody fabric band from Masa's arm, securing what was left of the kid's things, muttering that he'll be borrowing this as well. Using it as a makeshift mask to completely hide his face. Suddenly, Angel claps sarcastically, thanking him for leading them straight to the treasure and sneering that the kid actually kicked the bucket. He mocks Masa for being a special breed of stupid, going through all that torture for absolutely zero reason, fumbling both his cash and his life. A totally fitting end for a useless piece of trash. So, he demands this so-called slave hand over the dirty cash immediately. Manuel simply stands up. Hard pass, he growls. Angel rolls his eyes, sighing that just as he thought. These slaves are all brain-dead morons, and our MC is no different than the corpse next to him. Without missing a beat, he orders his goons to snatch the bag. But our protagonist instantly lunges forward. He smoothly ducks a wild swing from the first thug, and answers back with a bone-crushing right hook to the jaw. He spins, burying his elbow straight into the second guy's ribs. Out of nowhere, the third henchman charges in for a blindside attack. But bam! A brutal right hook shatters his jaw. He crashes down hard, completely knocked out. Manu spits out that Masa left him in charge of this cash. War funds, actually, and if they want to snatch it, they gotta step over his dead body. The bleeding henchman staggers up his nose, completely busted. And Ankel reaches into his designer jacket, scoffing that his crew is absolutely useless. He wags a finger, then pulls out a piece aiming dead center. Manu instantly tenses up, but Kusanagi aggressively shoves the barrel down. Hold up, Kusanagi growls. Don't waste a bullet on this trash. We're gonna finish what we started. Manu stays dead silent. Just shifting into his fighting stance, eyes locked. Ankel smirks, telling his brute not to take all day. Kusanagi nods. The two brawlers slide into their brutal stances. Kusanagi lunges forward like a freight train, unleashing a savage flurry of wild swings. But Manu slips every single one. Our boy realizes this giant isn't just a thug. He's got legit boxing skills. Kusanagi winds up a massive hook. Nice footwork, kid. But dancing around won't save you. Manu just ducks under the punch, twisting his hips to launch a lethal counter, and buries his fist straight into the giant's liver. Manu exhales, hard eyes burning with rage. Angel just smirks from the sidelines. Surprisingly, Kusanagi chuckles at the devastating liver shot, taunting that it felt like a freaking deep tissue massage. He instantly winds up for a brutal counterstrike. and Manu desperately throws up his guard, crossing his arms to absorb the impact. But the raw power practically blasts him off his feet. Manu gasps, totally shook by the insane force. Angel gloats internally, knowing that no matter how slick a stray cat moves, it's getting shredded by a tiger. Refusing to fold, Manu charges back in, hammering a rapid-fire combo right into Kusanagi's face. The boss notes the kid's crazy agility, but those featherweight punches aren't making a dent. Manu braces for impact again, taking another bone-crushing hit to his guard. He gets knocked flying backward again. His boots skid across the dirt, stopping just inches from a deadly cliff edge. Loose rocks crumble into the raging ocean below. Kusanagi stomps closer. "You seriously think hiding behind your little shield is going to save you?" he barks. So pathetic. A massive boulder of a fist rockets toward Manu's face, but our boy pivots cleanly to the side, loading up his shoulder and delivering a flawless bone-rattling uppercut to the jaw. Without missing a beat, he snaps another hook to the other side. Manu stays ice cold, but his rival just bursts into unhinged laughter. "Okay, kid, you're actually better than I thought. This is getting hype. Now, this is a real scrap." Instantly, Manu drops his level, and the giant clocks it immediately. It's another counter stance, not a slip-up. But wait, something's off. He slams the brakes on his punch, shifting his footwork, just in time to block a lethal high kick. Angel watches from the side, realizing the street rat was reading his guy like an open book. Sure, his boxing was pro-tier, but his kicks were straight-up lethal. Kusanagi tries to return the favor with a brutal leg sweep, but Manu cross-blocks it flawlessly. Kusanagi's eyes widen in absolute shock. Seizing the opening, Manu sweeps his leg violently, slamming the massive beast into the dirt. Angel's jaw basically hits the floor, totally shook. Our boy instantly locks him in a suffocating jujitsu submission. Grappling for air, Kusanagi sputters, "How? How did you know?" Manu coldly replies that the guy kept his center of gravity super low, his hips completely planted. Dead giveaways of a pro kickboxer. Crack! He drops a ruthless elbow right onto his nose. Kusanagi groans in agony. Without hesitation, Manu dives in to finish the job. But the giant suddenly flashes a terrifying, psychotic grin. His massive hand shoots out, choking Manu with a suffocating death grip. "Not bad, kid," he sneers, crushing his windpipe. "But you got way too close." Using raw strength, he flips the hold entirely. If this was some official tournament, you'd be winning. But newsflash, kid, as this is a dirty no-rules street brawl. He violently strangles the life out of Manu. The boss watches from afar, trying to remember the last time he ever saw his monster. Go this crazy. They've dealt with endless prisoner riots over the years, and plenty of cocky martial arts masters thought they were hot stuff. But literally 0 of them ever survived against this freak. He's a total savage who fights dirty. There's no way some textbook fighter is taking him down. The bleeding henchman scoffs, mocking Manu's technique, claiming that fancy gym stuff won't do a thing. But in a split second, Manu twists free and buries his fist deep into the giant's jaw. He slams his palm forward, locking onto Kusanagi's arm like a sausage. The massive brute realizes instantly this guy used an open palm strike just to carve out enough breathing room to swing his legs into position. Manuel traps him in a brutal armbar, slamming the giant into the dirt with bone-crushing force. Angel just stands there, totally shook. Our boy ruthlessly cranks that arm back, mocking the giant's earlier words. "You called this a street fight?" Kusanagi's eyes widen in pure shock. Manuel just keeps twisting. The absolute unit of a man shrieks in agony as bone and tendon slowly start snapping, until his entire limb is bent backwards. The beast whimpers, absolutely wrecked. Pinning him down, our guy leans in, whispering cold-bloodedly, "Don't get it twisted. You wanted a brawl, but this ain't even close to a fight. This is just me dismantling you." As the top dog of the elite Eldamir Ghost unit, Pablo Correa exhales sharply. Even with his god-tier combat skills, street brawling wasn't exactly his vibe. Out of nowhere, Kusanagi twitches, growling that things are getting spicy. Manuel zeroes in on the brute's 2 fingers, lunging at his eyes, and brutally shatters them with a savage headbutt. The giant howls, the pain going absolutely off the charts. See, Manuel only knew hardcore survival combat. He blurs into motion, dropping his elbow down like a freaking sledgehammer. Aiming straight for the dude's skull, Manuel breathes out. For Pablo Correa, life or death combat was just another Tuesday, which is exactly why he intentionally whiffs the strike. Kusanagi gasps for air, pure terror flooding his veins. He realizes that any normal dude would freeze up when it comes to catching a body, but not this guy. He's built different, ice-cold, insanely efficient, and completely unbothered. Manuel chambers his fist for another hit. Panicking Kusanagi scrambles to block, fully believing this monster is about to send him to the afterlife. The punch rips right through his guard, smashing directly into his windpipe with lethal force. Kusanagi starts violently hacking up a lung, finally understanding that the menace standing over him ain't some wrestler, and definitely ain't a street thug. This was beyond crazy. He was a straight-up professional Grim Reaper. Writhing in the dirt, the defeated giant realizes this guy is using the exact same lethal combat style as Pablo Correa, the legendary veteran. We're talking Krav Maga, the hardcore system abused by Black Ops squads worldwide. Literally the most brutal fighting style on the planet. Without missing a beat, Manuel scoops up a heavy rock, hoisting it high. He steps over the guy's face, ready to cave it in without a second thought. But right before impact, a familiar voice echoes in his head. Carlitos had begged him to never cross that line, to never let himself become a cold-blooded killer. So he powers down. He chucks the boulder over the edge, letting it sink into the dark ocean depths. Manuel slowly stands up, only to hear a twisted, raspy chuckle. Kusanagi drags himself up, grinning like a psycho. Perfect! This is exactly the vibe I wanted we're throwing down, until one of us stops breathing. Manuel instantly throws up his guard, totally locked in. But nobody could have predicted what happens next. Bang Manuel instinctively dodges a sudden gunshot that rips straight into the giant. Our boy backs up to the cliff's edge, while Kusanagi looks down in pure confusion, as a massive geyser of blood erupts from his own chest. Manuel hovers dangerously close to the drop, exhaling a heavy breath of exhaustion. Stepping out of the shadows, Angel whines about missing his actual target. Whatever, he smirks. At least I get to discipline a total loser. Hearing that Kusanagi absolutely loses his mind with rage, Angel just rolls his eyes, telling him to chill. After all, when a worthless mutt gets clapped by a literal slave, putting it down is just standard procedure. The hulking beast roars, charging wildly at his own boss. Angel just keeps dumping the mag, screaming at the filthy dog to stay down. Bullets tear into flesh, but Kusanagi just eats them, charging forward like a freight train. The director panics, pulling the trigger again, blowing holes in the giant's ribs and arm. Angel's face goes pale. This is impossible. Why won't this freak drop? Closing the gap, Kusanagi winds up a massive punch, roaring at him to rot in hell. Angel completely loses his cool, pointing the barrel point blank and putting a round right between the giant's eyes. The massive fist violently stops mere inches from Angel's face. The Titan's knees finally buckle, and he collapses dead at the director's designer shoes. Angel bursts into a high-pitched, psychotic laughing fit, brutally punting the corpse right in the face. Stubborn rabbit dog, finally, pull out of your misery, he screeches viciously, stomping the life out of Kusanagi's lifeless body over and over again. Sweating and unhinged, he glares at his remaining goons. How long are you idiots going to stand there? Get on your feet. He starts spinning the narrative. Listen up. Kusanagi was taken out by the rogue slave who stole our gear. That's the story we feed the bloodthirsty knights. But before we deal with them, the trash who actually caused this mess needs to be erased. Hearing this, Manuel just slowly glances over his shoulder. Aiming his smoking gun directly at our boy, Angel claps sarcastically. Props to you, honestly. Your combat skills are absolutely insane. But bro, it doesn't matter how cracked one guy is. You can't win a war in the modern era with just fists. Out here, it's all about high IQ plays and heavy firepower. Seeing the gun, Manuel casually raises both hands in surrender. Angel blinks, caught off guard for a second, before a sick, twisted smirk stretches across his face. Well, naturally, staring down the barrel of a loaded gun would shatter anyone's nerves. Angel barks out a demand for his surrender, but our boy stays dead silent. The ruthless warden doubles down, swearing to end his life right there. He promises Manu will pay the ultimate price for every wasted second and squandered bullet. Closing the distance with heavy, confident strides, the boss mocks him, claiming that sprinting straight into a dead-end cliff was a massive rookie mistake. But Manu just smirks chillingly, stating that everything fell perfectly into place. Suddenly, a strange mechanical hum cuts through the air. Angel's smug grin fades as he questions the bizarre noise, as a heavy-duty military drone slowly ascends, looming right over their heads. The warden stammers, demanding to know what it is, while our hero just casually glares up at the metal beast. Panic creeping in, Angel frantically questions the identity of this insane tracking device. His goons are clueless, guessing it's just some tiny chopper, but the second one, Unlucky Grunt, steps forward. Bang! A laser-precise shot instantly drills through his skull, and he crumples to the dirt like a rag doll. Angel freezes in absolute shock, his eyes glued to the bleeding corpse lying at his boots. Absolute chaos erupts among the surviving henchmen. The mechanical hunter whirs, locking on to its next prey. The remaining two guards completely lose it and sprint for their lives. But it's a huge mistake. The drone's sensors instantly catch their panicked movements. Red crosshairs lock onto the fleeing cowards, fully primed for a brutal execution. Manu calmly reminds them, this is the infamous Mad Tracker. The lethal machine aggressively hunts down literally anything that twitches, while the desperate men shriek for backup. Hovering smoothly through the night air, the robotic killer mercilessly wipes out the squad without missing a single shot. Despite the bloodbath, the warden keeps his pistol glued squarely at our hero's forehead. Manu notices the guy hasn't twitched a single muscle since the drone rolled up, and realizes this means Angel definitely knows how this psychotic tracking machine operates. The two lock into a deadly silent staring contest. The tension spikes as the killer drone drifts dangerously close to their position. Angel lets out a shaky breath, his blood boiling. He realizes he got played. Manu purposely baited them straight into the Mad Tracker's hunting zone. But how the hell could a low-level slave know about this highly classified tech? Whatever. This trash just crossed the point of no return, and now he's getting sent straight to the afterlife. But Manu breaks the silence, warning him that if he truly understands the drone's logic, then he also knows that the tiniest squeeze of that trigger counts as movement. He shoots, he dies. Simple as that. Angel's eyes go wide, totally paralyzed by the threat. The mechanical eye swivels directly facing the duo. The warden desperately tries to convince himself the kid is bluffing, rationalizing that such a micro movement wouldn't trigger the sensors. Sensing his doubt, Manu aggressively dares him to pull it, telling him to find out for sure if he's capping. The boss hesitates, sweating bullets. Manu chuckles, asking if he's going to spit out his usual garbage insults or actually do something. But when it comes down to it, Angel is absolutely petrified, too terrified to even part his lips. In his head, the enraged warden is screaming that he's going to slaughter him for the disrespect a crime strictly punishable by death. Twitching a finger barely an inch should be completely safe. But as the lethal machine buzzes right next to his ear, he second-guesses the drone's terrifying sensitivity. The mechanical predator slowly shifts its angle. Angel doesn't buy Manu's bluff, but he can't risk catching a bullet to the brain. Right now, his only play is a sweaty, agonizing waiting game. Eventually, the mad tracker is bound to think the sector is clear and buzz off. The second that happens, Angel plans to dodge out of the way and ruthlessly gun down this rat. The airborne killer stalls dead in the middle of their standoff. The warden is practically vibrating with rage, cursing under his breath, frantically running through his options as he stands totally cornered. The tense night drags on an eerie breeze sweeping across the deadly cliffside, gently blowing through their hair as they remain entirely frozen. Suddenly, the drone zips off to the side. A wicked grin instantly spreads across Angel's face. This is his golden window. Without hesitating, he rapidly unloads his clip at our guy, refusing to let up. One of the hot rounds violently grazes Manu's arm, forcing him to flinch. That split-second flinch is all it takes. The drone's sensors instantly snap onto Manu, locking him as the primary target. Realizing he's painted with a huge bullseye on his back, Manu explodes into a full sprint. The robotic hunter drops into kill mode, unleashing a storm of bullets right at his heels as he tears across the dirt. Manu makes a desperate mad dash straight for the terrifying drop-off. Another heavy round rips into him, but he uses the momentum, launching himself high off the rocky edge and flying out into the pitch-black abyss. Mid-air, the relentless machine aggressively pings again, adjusting its aim, and drives a bullet straight through Manu's thigh. Blinding agony instantly surges through his body, while Angel watches from above, flashing a sickening, victorious smile. The drone ruthlessly nails him in the exact same spot. Blood sprays as our hero completely loses his balance, tumbling out of control. He screams out in sheer terror, but rapidly snaps back to reality, mid-fall. Fighting the agonizing pain, he twists his body into a perfect dive posture, right before smashing into the freezing water below. But the mechanical menace isn't done with him yet. Hovering near the surface, it unleashes an absolute barrage of lead straight into the dark waves. Bubbles and blood mix as Manu takes a few more brutal hits beneath the surface. He lets out a muffled groan, the water turning red around him. Above, the killer drone violently circles the splash zone like a vulture. Pushed to his absolute limit, our guy forces himself to dive deeper into the abyss. The lethal hunter lets out one final robotic chirp, confirming that the execution was a total success. Up top, Angel's eyes light up in disbelief. He cautiously creeps over to the jagged edge, muttering to himself that the pest is finally wiped off the map. He bursts into a wicked, triumphant laugh, highly amused that a lowly slave actually thought he could win this chess match. His maniacal laughter echoes through the dead of night. But way down below the cliff's crashing waves, our guy slowly kicks his way back up to the surface. Gasping for air, he silently prays the coast is entirely clear. Suddenly, a white-hot agony rips right through him. Blood is absolutely gushing from his leg. Ripping the gag straight out of his mouth, he tightly wraps it around his thigh as a makeshift tourniquet. They totally caught him off guard, and worse. The lead is still lodged deep in his flesh. He has to dig that bullet out and patch himself up fast. Crimson clouds billow out into the water as he struggles to move. A massive shadow darts through the depths, locking right onto him. Manu freezes. Is he being hunted? Out of nowhere, a massive shark lunges straight for the kill. Manuel is paralyzed with shock, but barely manages to twist away from its razor-sharp jaws. It definitely caught the scent of his blood. Looming right in front of him is the ocean's ultimate apex predator, a colossal great white shark. Its torpedo-like body slices through the waves at 31 miles per hour, packing a bite force that easily crushes with over a ton of raw power. Gasping for his life, our guy barely dodges another lethal snap. But before he can blink, the beast's massive tail whips around. Bam! It slams right into him. As he tumbles wildly through the water, Manuel knows he is in serious trouble. His lungs are burning for oxygen, but the monster is already circling back. Manu kicks frantically toward the surface, breaking through the waves and violently gasping for air just as the shark banks around for round two. He braces himself, plunging right back into the dark depths. Throwing his arms wide open, he floats dead, still staring the beast down. Great whites are ambush hunters. They absolutely hate when their prey spots them. He projects pure, concentrated killer intent, praying the monster will just back off. But the crimson trail just keeps flowing from his leg. Sensing the feast, the beast unhinges its jaws and rockets forward. It is completely drunk on his blood. He has to strike its vitals, or he's dead meat. Manuel locks his sights on the very tip of its snout, directly at the ampullae of Lorenzini, its ultra-sensitive bioradars. It's the ultimate critical hit zone. He viciously strikes it, hoping it worked, but the nightmare just keeps tearing through the water. The beast rams violently into his gut. The creature immediately lunges again with its jaws wide open. Damn it, that attack was totally useless. The gap in raw physical power is just insane. He is tossed around like a rag doll in the raging ocean, his whole body screaming in absolute agony. He breaches the surface once more, choking down whatever air he can get. Frantically scanning the waves to track the monster, he completely misses it, stalking him from behind. Manu whips around in sheer terror, just as the abyss opens its jaws, shredding a huge chunk of his clothes to ribbons. He struggles desperately to catch his breath, but against the ocean's undisputed king, puny human strength is practically a joke. His oxygen reserves are hitting absolute zero, and his vision starts fading to black. Honestly, he is totally fine with checking out here. He refuses to pathetically beg for his life. The darkness finally takes him. But suddenly, a familiar voice echoes in his mind, screaming for Pablo Correa to wake up. A woman pleading with him to swear that no matter what goes down, he would make it back alive. His eyes snap wide open as Rita's memory surges through him. Adrenaline spiking, he viciously grapples onto the shark's flanks, mounting the beast. There's no way in hell he's breaking another promise to her. That would be straight up pathetic. A dark flip switches in his brain. Manuel is back in control. Winding up his fist, he ruthlessly pounds the shark's hide. The monster violently thrashes in blind rage. The size difference is actually insane. Worse yet, the heavy water pressure is completely nerfing the impact of his punches. Even blasting its ultra-sensitive snout didn't slow it down. It feels downright impossible to hurt the king of the deep. And at least not like this. Thinking fast, he yanks the shredded fabric right off the shark's fangs, kicking away to aggressively flank the beast from behind. He savagely hooks his fingers deep into the shark's raw gills, locking himself onto the thrashing monster. He tightens his death grip. He drives his fist in with absolutely everything he has. Piercing straight into the beast's flesh, he viciously taunts the monster. How does it feel having your insides ripped to shreds? He plunges his entire arm deep into the bleeding gill slits. The great white goes into absolute panic mode, wildly bucking side to side in pure agony. Manuel grits his teeth. There's no way he's letting go. Flexing every muscle in his body, he violently rips a vital organ straight out of its chest. The massive beast instantly goes limp, slowly sinking into the dark abyss. His lungs are completely fried. He desperately shoots up to the surface, sucking in the biggest, most gasping breath of his life. As he slowly regains his senses, the mangled shark suddenly breaches the water right behind him. Manuel whips around in terror. Is this thing seriously still coming for blood? The beast hurtles toward him with explosive speed. Total panic sets in as those gaping blood-stained jaws dive bombs straight for his head. Completely drained of strength, he just freezes. But right at the last microsecond, the massive shark completely crashes down dead right in front of him, slowly spiraling down into the freezing oceanic depths, sinking all the way to the murky seafloor. Our guy is wheezing heavily as the massive adrenaline rush violently wears off. Staring up at the sky, he smiles. Rita's memory seriously just saved his life. But taking a look around, he realizes the current dragged him way out, into the open ocean. He needs to haul himself back to the industrial waste island and patch up these gnarly wounds right now. Our guy completely blacks out, totally defenseless, drifting in the pitch-black ocean. A second later, he snaps awake violently, hacking up seawater. His tank is completely empty. He's absolutely freezing, and he's bleeding out fast. He seriously wonders, can I even make it back alive like this? But then, a warm glow hits his back. He slowly turns around. The sun peeking over the horizon tells him he survived the night. And right next to him, a massive piece of driftwood. Taking it as a desperate sign of hope, he pushes through the water, grabs hold, and hauls himself up to finally catch a breath. He just lies there, completely drained, chest heaving, as he gasps for air. Manuel grits his teeth, glaring up at the rising sun. He rolls over, a wild thought crossing his mind. I actually cheated death. Again, waves gently crash against the shore. Our MC has washed up on a deserted island. By his count, it's been roughly 5 hours since he caught that bullet. He desperately needs to dig this lead out and patch himself up fast. But his vision blurs and he collapses his head, slamming into the sand. Damn it, this is really bad. His core temp is dropping crazy fast. Suddenly, a shadowy figure looms over him. Paralyzed, he panics. Is this an enemy? Then a voice echoes. Hey, can you hear me? Do you know your own name? That question triggers a crazy flashback. Back in his past life as Pablo Correa, he was grinding at the shooting range, running drills non-stop, nailing flawless headshots every single time, until someone calls out his name. A blonde rookie walks up totally starstruck. Wait, is it really you? He hypes himself up, as Roy, the absolute newest recruit for the Ghosts, practically shaking with excitement to meet him. But Pablo just coldly brushes right past him. My bad, kid, but I don't do small talk. The kid's hype instantly dies. He looks down, dropping some heavy lore, saying he lost both his parents to a brutal terrorist attack. And the absolute legend who avenged them, it was Pablo, the warlord himself. Roy screams that he wants to be just as insanely strong, calling Pablo his ultimate hero. Taken aback, Pablo glances over his shoulder, but keeps it strictly professional. I was just doing my job. Roy is left completely speechless. Fast forward a few days, and their squad gets absolutely obliterated by heavy terrorist artillery. It's an absolute bloodbath. They take massive casualties and desperately need emergency medevac. Medics aggressively rush in, yelling that his consciousness level is dropping to 7, with a crazy low blood pressure of 40/80. They frantically start patching up the wounded. One medic spots Pablo's shredded shoulder, but Pablo just waves him off. Forget it, it's just a scratch. Suddenly, a terrifyingly familiar voice calls his name. It's Roy. Bleeding out on a stretcher, he still asks if Pablo made it out okay. Pablo immediately snaps, "Shut up and save your breath." Rita, the head medic, screams that it's a massive trauma to the abdomen, caused by high-caliber shrapnel with a completely shattered pelvis. Fading fast, the rookie realizes the harsh truth. I guess. I could never be a badass like you. Pablo is completely frozen. Tears well up in the kid's eyes as he chokes out, I don't want to die. I'm terrified. Pablo looks down with cold, dead eyes. Everyone kicks the bucket eventually, kid. There's literally 0 point in being scared. Living, dying, it's all meaningless garbage anyway. Then stepping up, the head medic yells at Pablo, "Hey, grab the damn stretcher and haul him to surgery. Keep heavy pressure on this gauze right now." She barks at him to hustle because they are insanely understaffed. The blonde badass introduces herself as Rita, the lead trauma surgeon, swearing on her life that she won't let anyone die today. Flash forward to the chaotic OR. Alarms are blaring as his vitals totally crash. Rita fiercely snaps at the panicking staff. A real doctor keeps their cool when a patient is bleeding out on the table. She vows that as long as he's breathing on her watch, the Grim Reaper isn't getting him. Pablo just watches completely blown away by her insane dedication. The intense day finally turns to dusk. Outside, the nurses are literally gossiping about how cracked she is, that Rita single-handedly pulled everyone back from the brink of death. The crazy rumors were actually true. She got her medical degree at the age of 17 years old, and chose to jump straight into active war zones. Correa leans back, finally connecting the dots. So, just then, Rita gently taps his injured shoulder with a cold bottle of booze. "Consider this hush money," she jokes. She straight up admits she violated protocol by dragging a combatant into surgery, which could get her instantly court-martialed. If he snitches, she's completely screwed. She takes a massive swig from the bottle, hyping herself up over her crazy successful surgery. Pablo is honestly baffled by her chill vibe. He quietly asks, "Is Roy gonna make it?" Rita drops her smile, sighing heavily. "Honestly, the odds are total garbage. But listen, I've seen guys pull off absolute miracles before. He just might." Our MC hits her with a dark question. "Don't you ever feel like this is all just pointless, like you bust your ass saving them today, just so these guys can rush right back to the meat grinder tomorrow? Doesn't it feel like a massive waste of time?" Without missing a beat, the doctor replies, "Even so, I'll never stop saving lives." She takes another big gulp. Right then, another medic comes sprinting over, shouting their names in a pure panic. Suddenly, a voice echoes through the room. Roy is finally awake. The blonde's face lights up instantly, and the two of them rush over to his side. She leans in softly, asking how he's holding up. And if it hurts, the kid groans a "yeah," prompting the doc to smirk, warning him to quit rushing to his own grave. Pablo just stands there, totally caught off guard. His mind flashes back to Roy being terrified of biting the dust, and then to her fierce vow to keep snatching souls back from the Grim Reaper. A gentle smile crosses her face, leaving our guy lost in his own thoughts for a beat. Rita peels back the bandages to check out his shoulder. She brags a little, pointing out how the swelling completely vanished, thanks to her top-tier skills. 0 signs of infection. Dude is officially 100% healed up. Out of nowhere, she smoothly asks to buy him a drink as a thank you for letting her patch him up. Pablo deadpans, asking what kind of torture she's plotting. The doc fires back, demanding to know how grabbing a drink with her could ever be torture. The rest of the squad instantly starts hyping them up, yelling about how cozy they've been getting lately, and even teasing that they probably locked lips already. The guys playfully complain, whining that they want to buy Rita around instead. Plus, the so-called warlord is definitely chilling out way more than anyone expected. The blonde just rolls her eyes with a heavy sigh. Right then, Roy locks eyes with the captain. His voice drops. He's made up his mind. He's walking away from the phantoms. Pablo's face hardens. He warns the kid that this isn't some game with his rookie skills right now. He'd end up a dead man walking before he even cleared the perimeter. Roy drops his gaze, admitting the captain is spot on. The doc literally just pulled him from the brink. So he owes her his actual life. Honestly, he's completely shook. He always pictured these elite Black Ops squads as absolute monsters. Our main guy secretly agrees. He's never experienced an atmosphere like this in his entire life either. She's the one who made this kind of warmth possible. Even in a literal war zone, you can hear genuine laughter echoing around. The grunts actually get a tiny slice of peace. But for Pablo Correa, this might just be his final breath of calm. Fast forward a few days, the blonde bursts in demanding to know what the hell went down. Saul grimly reports a sudden cardiac arrest and orders her to bring the dude back to life, no matter the cost. Rita doesn't even blink. She barks out an order to rush him straight to the OR now. Pablo watches the chaos unfold from the shadows. His eyes lock onto the body being hauled away, spotting a nasty burn mark right on the guy's forehead. But he zips his lips, keeping his suspicions totally to himself while outside the medical tent. His brain works in overdrive. That wasn't just a scratch, that burn scar screams high-voltage electricity brutally pumped straight through the guy's system. Cornering Saul, he cuts straight to the chase. Was that target an enemy spy from a hostile nation? Saul chuckles, praising his razor-sharp instincts. Pablo points out the obvious flaw: they usually squeeze top-secret intel out of these guys at the absolute last second. But frying a guy into cardiac arrest, that's way too sloppy to be their usual vibe. Saul sighs, throwing Brian under the bus. The electric ops guy completely botched the interrogation. He was running the show, so the blood is on his hands. So, why the desperate need to bring him back from the dead? Pablo asks. Saul's eyes darken. Because that guy's brain is still holding a massive gold mine of secrets they need to rip out. Our hero presses harder. Who the hell was this guy? Saul hesitates for a split second before dropping the bomb. The guy is a filthy rich arms smuggler. An absolute titan of the criminal underworld named Syed Arash, a top-tier executive over at Ignite. Pablo completely freezes. His knuckles turn white as his fists clench with raw fury. Ignite. For 16 agonizing years. That cursed name had been burned straight into his soul. Not even for a single second. The scene painfully shifts to the past, back when Pablo was just innocent little Pablito. The kid is happily begging for a piece of fruit, and his dad jogs after him smiling and promising they'll give it a taste. It was a picture-perfect family vacation down in the Republic of Aldemir, the absolute only time his workaholic old man actually ditched the office to take them somewhere fun. It was a microscopic 5-day getaway, but in Pablito's eyes, it was supposed to be the ultimate core memory, or at least it absolutely should have been. Boom! Absolute pandemonium breaks out. Screaming crowds running for their lives after a deafening blast. A random gut-wrenching terror strike that wiped out and injured over 200 innocent souls. His dad desperately screams at him to run to get as far away from there as possible. Then, dead silence. Little Pablito stares in pure horror at his dad's lifeless body, crumpled on the unforgiving pavement. Panicking, the boy frantically yanks on his sister's arm to drag her to safety, but the force sends him crashing backward, clutching nothing but her severed arm in his trembling little hands. The Japanese news coldly broadcasted the aftermath: 2 dead citizens and 1 completely missing person. But for a traumatized little kid, none of those sterile numbers made a single lick of sense. The president of Aldemir hits the airwaves, his face grim. Today, we are officially declaring this an act of war. They slaughtered our people. These absolute monsters are the worst kind of scum, and we promise we will never ever forget. The shadowy syndicate known as Ignite. Snapping back to the president at the training grounds, Saul reveals that for the past 16 years since that devastating ambush, they hadn't caught a single whisper of Ignite's whereabouts. But the ghost hunt is finally over. They've pinpointed their lair. Pablo's blood boils at the revelation. Saul drops the bomb that official orders are coming soon, but he's giving them a crucial heads up. Their next move, a full-blown strike operation to wipe Ignite off the map. Our guy clenches his fists, remembering how powerless he was back in the day. But he's not that helpless kid anymore. He's been itching for this exact payback. Suddenly, Saul's radio blasts heavy static. Command center screams for backup, calling it a code red, prompting the captain to bark out, "Talk to me! What's going down?" A panicked grunt reports that the injured prisoner just vanished into thin air, and Rita went missing too. Saul freezes, demanding to know if she got snatched as well, leaving Pablo absolutely stunned. Cut to the dark woods, Rita is gasping for air miles away from the military perimeter. She violently trips and slams into the dirt, bruising her head. Said coldly warns her there's zero time to slack off, ordering her back on her feet. Rita spits back, calling him insane, begging for just a second to patch herself up. But a razor-sharp blade presses right against her cheek. Said smirks, noting they've officially breached the base's radar, meaning her VIP hostage privilege just expired, forcing them to trudge deeper into the shadows. Said keeps the steel locked onto her. She gulps down her rising panic. A sharp click echoes from Saeed's back tooth. He whispers that the drop zone coordinates are J9, warning that the landing space is mad tight. Still, he claims he can make the extraction work. Rita's eyes widen. He literally has a comms device wired into his molar. It leaves her terrified, wondering just how much rogue tech is actually embedded in his flesh. Rewind a few hours she had, just slapped a biometric patch on him to track his fading vitals. It had been way too long. Since he flatlined, making any kind of CPR basically impossible. She was completely mind-blown watching him glitch back to life. The math wasn't mathing. They hadn't even prepped his meds yet, leading her to realize that maybe that heart attack was totally faked. The girl spins around, yelling that the guy is still breathing, but a sudden splash of crimson paints her face. Sophia watches the horrifying bloodbath unfold, paralyzed by pure dread. Said ruthlessly flatlines his nurse. The poor woman chokes out her last breath, while his face remains deadpan. Rita's flight-or-fight response absolutely redlines. But Saeed coldly orders her to zip it, flexing about a high-tech heart rate dampener shoved inside his chest cavity. He straight up ghosted his own pulse, masking it from everything except heavy-duty medical scanners. A super-cracked gadget for staging an escape, but the come-down hits with some brutal nausea. Rita shrinks back, completely horrified. Said aggressively shushes her, whispering that waking up feeling like garbage and hearing. Annoying screaming just makes him want to catch a body. Plus, he always planned on using her as his VIP ticket out of this heavily armed fortress. He sarcastically asks if she's tagging along, claiming he won't force her, while literally pressing a combat knife against her skin, casually adding that tossing out his leverage wouldn't hurt his sleep. The medic breaks down sobbing, snapping back to reality. Her mind races about this Ignite cartel. Their cybernetic upgrades are light years ahead of anything she imagined, but the tech isn't the true nightmare. The real horror show is their absolute lack of humanity, butchering their own bodies with metal and wires. Just to lock in the mission, unleashing pure savagery, ending people without blinking an eye. It's literally survive or get flatlined. Adrenaline spikes as she realizes she has one crazy shot. And she has to bet everything on it, being a hardcore combat medic. She's always packing serious pharma gear. She feels the heavy-duty morphine stash in her pocket, a top-tier sedative. It knocks out absolute agony, but even a slight miscalculation sends you straight into a deep coma. Her specific stash is insane grade. Just 2 milligrams is enough to knock a grown man out cold. If she jams the entire 10 milligrams into his system, it's game over for him permanently. The two continue trekking through the thick brush. A bird perches on a dying branch, suddenly tilting its head toward the sky. A heavy mechanical hum starts creeping up on them. Now or never, Rita thinks, moving at warp speed. She whips out the rig and viciously stabs it right into his jugular. Saeed's eyes blow wide in shock as she aggressively pushes the plunger down, emptying the barrel. His eyes instantly roll back as his system fully shuts down. She freezes in absolute shock right up until the guy's heavy body crashes into the dirt. A massive shaky breath leaves her lungs as the adrenaline crash hits hard, her eyes glued to his motionless frame. Watching him violently twitch on the ground, she figures 10 milligrams might have been serious overkill. But suddenly Saeed's hand shoots out like a viper, clamping in a brutal death grip around her throat. He casually mentions the heavy tranquilizer she pumped into him, giving her twisted props for a solid strategy. But guess what? You can build a crazy tolerance to that stuff. As a med professional, she really should have known better. Spend your entire childhood getting pumped full of toxic chemicals, and you basically become immune to it all. The blonde doc is absolutely losing her mind over this, but Saeed just smirks, claiming it's been a minute since he caught a decent high. He's feeling completely refreshed and ready to tear her apart. Plus, her little medical stash is completely tapped out anyway. She wasted every single drop on him, so she's got nobody to blame for this mess but herself. He presses a hand over his own heart, preaching some twisted logic about how life is just a temporary rental, and our souls are merely borrowed. The blonde doc stares at him utterly bewildered by his sudden psychotic spiritual rambling. Then he violently screams at the heavens for his god to take them away, lunging straight for Rita. She squeezes her eyes shut in pure terror, but slowly peeks down, realizing he had only violently ripped her shirt open, sparing her flesh. A strangled gasp escapes her lips. She's horrified, but the creep gently strokes her cheek, whispering for her to just chill out and not panic. He sickeningly explains that panic literally ruins the meat. Like if livestock gets too spooked right before the slaughterhouse, the beef turns super tough. It's those nasty stress hormones kicking in, making the flesh turn dark, and the texture turn straight to rubber. The flavor gets completely wrecked. It's a total tragic waste after babying the poor animal for 2 or 3 entire years. The twisted thought of prime cuts turning to pure garbage literally brings tears to his psycho eyes. And he says all this while still choking the absolute life out of Rita. Said lets out a deep dramatic sigh to catch his breath, wiping away a tear and begging her to just stop freaking out. He creepily promises to make it super quick and painless, even telling her to smile. Rita's mind is screaming, "This guy isn't human, he's a literal demon." The cold steel inches dangerously close to her throat. She's paralyzed, fully convinced she's staring at a monster wearing a human meat suit. The fatal strike comes swinging down. The blonde squeezes her eyes shut, bracing for the end. But suddenly warm crimson droplets splatter against the dirt. Saeed's iron grip totally fails, his deadly blade tumbling harmlessly into the ground. Saeed's hand is completely blasted open. He stares at the gory mess in utter disbelief, slowly lifting his ruined fingers toward his face to inspect the damage. Spotting the fresh bullet crater in a nearby boulder, panic instantly floods Saeed's face. He knows exactly what that means. There's a sniper out there. A desperate spark of hope hits the dock. Could this actually be a rescue op? Meanwhile, way off in the extreme distance, Pablo is chilling with his heavy sniper rifle locked and loaded. Zeroing his crosshairs on his target once more, he calmly squeezes the trigger. A second massive round violently cuts through the air. Said violently ducks just in time. The sniper round literally shaved the hair off his ear as he savagely slams Rita flat against the dirt. His tactical brain instantly kicks in. He clocks the muzzle flash from their 2 o'clock. The booming crack of the rifle took a full 2 seconds to hit them. That puts the shooter roughly 700 meters out, and before he can even finish the math, a third deadly bullet whizzes past their heads. Said furiously mutters that he's got a solid lock on the shooter's coordinates. Now he's sweating over the real question. Exactly how many guys is he dealing with? His radio comms have been dead quiet, which is super suspicious. He figures it's probably just a lone wolf sniper playing hero up on the ridge. The exact second he hits his radio to call in the strike team, Rita realizes this is her one and only. She violently thrashes out of his lethal grip, trying to scramble away, but Saeed mercilessly slashes at her leg. He viciously snarls, asking where the hell she thinks she's going. After all, her only job right now is to be his human meat shield. He aggressively twists his blade into her, scolding her like a disobedient dog for abandoning her post. Then he subtly clicks his back molar. Activating his hidden comms, Said barks out the intel to his squad. Hostile sniper at grid E13, dead center on the hillside. Tucked away in a dense clump of trees, some unlucky idiot just got totally exposed by the harsh glare of the morning sun. He gives the absolute kill order, wipe out every single hostile on that hill, 0 survivors. Instantly, an attack chopper heavily roars to life in the sky. Said viciously mocks her, asking if she genuinely believes some weak coward taking potshots from a mile away is actually a tough guy. He loudly brags that snipers are totally pathetic, they desperately need spotters and massive security details just to keep breathing out in the field. He goes on a full psycho rant, aggressively swearing that her little coward knight in shining armor is about to join the massive pile of dead bodies. He arrogantly claims the sniper is basically a sitting duck, just waiting to be slaughtered. But suddenly, Pablo casually drops down from the branches right above them, totally agreeing with the guy's logic. Said whips around in absolute wide-eyed panic, but instantly catches a brutal strike point blank. His heavy body violently crumbles straight into the dirt. Pablo realizes it's a decoy. They're laying down suppressive fire just to fake their position. It's a total distraction to mask their real move closing in for brutal hand-to-hand combat. Tears of sheer relief stream down the girl's face the second she spots him. He smirks, claiming everything went exactly according to plan, and gives her props for pinpointing their coordinates. Looks like our guy totally weaponized the blinding morning sun to flip the script. Wait, Zod is literally standing there, headless, absolutely shook. Pablo just shrugs casually, dropping that he actually sucks at being a sniper. Stepping up to the girl his eyes lock onto, hers wide with concern, and he asks if Rita is holding up okay over there. She just stares at him. A tiny whimper escapes her lips before she completely breaks down, sobbing uncontrollably. Totally caught off guard, he whispers frantically for her to keep it down since the enemy squad is still prowling, but she blocks it all out and practically tackles him in a desperate hug. I was so terrified, she chokes out. Taken aback, his mind suddenly flashes back to some seriously sketchy advice from an old buddy. Cut to the flashback, his friend smirking and hyping him up, claiming this exact scenario is where a real man proves his absolute worth. The dude's big brain advice, just pull her close and hold her tight without saying a single word. And the cherry on top, he swore that if Pablo played his cards right, she'd be totally swooning over him by the end. Still in the memory, Pablo instantly calls out the total BS, snapping at his buddy to drop the delusional fantasies and focus on actual combat strats. Snapping back to reality, that dumb advice echoes in his head. Just hold her. He pictures exactly how that would play out. Honestly, it was just his friend's insanely warped movie-like fantasy of how this stuff actually works. Freezing in his tracks, he stares down at her, his face screaming absolute panic. He's sweating bullets, overthinking if just patting her back is going to make him look like a total creep with hidden motives. While he's busy glitching out, the girl is just bawling her eyes out against his chest. Completely clueless, his hand just awkwardly hovers midair. He's practically blue screening, like this guy is a literal battlefield god feared globally as the warlord. But outside of throwing punches, he's basically a walking disaster. Burying her face into his chest, she cries harder, gripping him like a lifeline. Sweating from the intense zero personal space moment, he's totally speechless. Suddenly, a deafening roar from the sky completely shatters the tension. He snaps his head up just in time. He moves instantly to shield her. Raining down endless bullets, an attack chopper completely traps them inside the dense forest. Risking it all, he dives hard behind a massive boulder, dragging her down with him. It clicks, the enemy squad finally zeroed in on their exact spot. Suddenly, a stray bullet rips right through his leg, and a sickening feeling hits him that it's officially game over. Screw the pain! He scoops her up without a second thought, and bolts. Flung over his shoulder out of nowhere, she screams in pure panic, begging him to stop. Hold on for your life, he roars over the gunfire. Sprinting like a maniac, he barks a final warning, to bite her tongue and stay dead silent. Hitting the edge of a massive cliff, he doesn't even hesitate. He leaps right off into the abyss with her tightly in his arms. Absolute terror takes over, as she lets out a blood-curdling scream during the freefall. Together, they plummet straight down toward the raging river below. Gravity rips at them. The dizzying drop feels literally endless, right up until they slam brutally into the water. He locks his iron grip around her, bracing them both for the bone-crushing impact. She squeezes her eyes shut and instantly blacks out from the shock. Sometime later, her heavy eyelids flutter open. Letting out a painful groan, she finds herself washed up right on the muddy riverbank. The wild adrenaline is finally wearing off. Sitting in absolute silence, she scans the area, trying to reboot her brain and process the absolute chaos they just survived. Out of nowhere, he casually strolls up, lugging a massive pile of firewood. "You're awake," he mutters, telling her to just chill while he gets a campfire going. Super flustered, she nods quickly, confirming that she's okay. He breaks it down, explaining that he tracked the river's flow, which totally threw off the kill squad tracking them. Pointing out they desperately need to recharge, he drops a harsh reality check they're moving out soon. He figures it's going to take a brutal 12-hour hike to finally reach the safe zone. Flashing a soft, shy smile, she cuts him off and just whispers a genuine, "Thank you." Staring blankly at the water, he shrugs it off like saving her life was just a basic instinct. His nonchalant vibe gets her totally flustered, and she covers her mouth. Desperate to make herself useful, she hops up and offers to scavenge for food or extra branches. But the second she turns around, her jaw literally drops in pure shock. Her eyes lock onto his insanely shredded physique, completely freezing her in place. Catching her intense staring, his tough guy act crumbles, and he gets visibly awkward. Stumbling backward, she wraps her arms around herself, squeaking out the most embarrassing high-pitched scream. And of course, she totally trips over a random branch. Flailing wildly, she loses all balance and pitches straight forward right into him. She whines in pain, squeezing her eyes shut, bracing for the dirt. Peeking her eyes open, the horrifying realization hits. She landed dead smack on top of him. Blindsided, he completely freezes up. He's left completely speechless by the absolute crazy compromising position they just ended up in. Her mind races, desperately trying to figure out how to navigate this unbelievably thick tension. She can literally feel her energy draining away. Completely burnt out, she collapses against his chest on the dirt floor, fighting to catch her breath and steady her racing heart. She reminds herself that she's a trained soldier, she has to hold it together. But the gap between them closes, their lips hovering just millimeters apart. He stares back, knowing damn well there's no stopping the inevitable. His willpower snaps. He pulls her in and their lips lock in a deep, passionate kiss, both of them finally caving to the intense vibe. Right there in the dead of the forest, a sudden crack of a branch shatters the silence, throwing them instantly into survival mode. In a split second, he screams at her to get down, shoving her flat against the dirt. Without missing a beat, he draws his piece, zeroing his deadly aim into the pitch-black woods, eyes locked and lethal. His grip stays rock solid, fully prepped to blast whatever's creeping up on them. She stays frozen on the ground, watching the suspense unfold, holding her breath for the incoming attack. Suddenly, a tiny squirrel just scampers right out of the brush. Staring down at the little furball, it instantly hits him, total false alarm. Lowering his gun, he tells her to chill and drop the guard, but as he turns back around, heavy silence hangs in the air as they just stare at each other, totally lost for words. Blushing hard, she stammers out an apology for their little slip-up, but he just turns his back, brushing it off, as her brain glitching out from all the crazy stuff that just went down. He literally mansplains that it's just an acute stress response, making her act totally out of pocket. Claiming she's just exhausted, he tells her to crash and sleep it off. Hearing this lame excuse, her jaw drops. She seriously can't believe the absolute nonsense coming out of his mouth. Rolling her eyes, she snaps and straight up calls him a clueless amateur. Closing the distance, she places a hand on his shoulder before suddenly grabbing his face, catching him completely off guard. Pissed off, she demands to know who gave him the medical degree to psychoanalyze her like that. Genuinely baffled, he defends himself, saying he was just spitting straight facts. But she immediately screams at him to stop acting like a clown, totally shutting down his whole stress theory. Still super confused, he asks what the heck that was about, then if she wasn't just stressed out. The air thickens. Her entire vibe shifts as her eyes lock onto his with intense heat. Dead serious, she finally drops the bomb. What she's feeling right now is purely 100% love. Cupping his cheeks, she calls him out as the absolute legend Pablo Correa, the ultimate beast when it comes to close quarters combat. The scene snaps away, showing him effortlessly dodging a lethal strike at point-blank range. This guy literally tracks bullet trajectories in slow motion, like he's in the Matrix. So, Rita leaning in right now, to him it's moving at a snail's pace. For a cracked soldier like him, her movement is way more sluggish than a pro boxer throwing a jab. It was also incomparably slower than a bullet fired from an M1911 pistol. Yet trapped in this frozen fraction of a second, the two are locked face to face. Tossing all hesitation out the window, she finally plants a deep kiss on his lips, right there in the forest clearing. But this time, the master of dodging totally lets this unexpected sneak attack hit its mark. Up in the branches, a random squirrel just awkwardly spectates the whole spicy exchange. Unlike his usual god-tier reflexes, he doesn't even try to block her advance. But wait, let's rewind 30 days back to our main character's final mission. Jolting awake in a cold sweat as a young guy finds himself trapped in a creepy, unfamiliar room. Struggling to sit up, he instantly realizes he's strapped down by some sketchy restraints. He stares down at his own body, totally frantic, desperate to process what is happening. "Where am I?" he gasps out loud. Right on cue, a woman steps out of the shadows, her eyes widening in shock to see him actually conscious. Stirring a bubbling pot, she smirks. "Look who finally decided to wake up." Pivoting toward him, she casually asks how he is holding up. His jaw drops in pure shock as realization hits. "Wait, Rita, is that you?" But the second he gets a closer look, his blood runs cold. Something is terribly, horribly wrong here. Suddenly, a second woman steps in, harshly warning him not to move, since he has already lost way too much blood. Right beside him, a metal tray catches the light, loaded with terrifying surgical tools. Gripping a gleaming scalpel, she mutters that there is absolutely no way he should even be awake right now. He just stares dead at her, his brain completely short-circuiting from how insanely twisted this entire setup is. Pure panic kicks in. Feeling a sudden electric jolt, he starts thrashing wildly, fighting against the mattress with everything he has. But heavy restraints dig deep into his wrists and ankles, pinning him down completely. He fights like an absolute maniac, pulling and twisting, but those thick leather straps refuse to budge even a single inch. Letting out a dark, twisted little giggle, she tells him to save his breath. "Don't even bother," she taunts, bragging that not even a full-grown grizzly bear could rip through those custom-made belts. Smirking, she literally calls him a helpless fish on a chopping block. She mocks him, telling him to just play dead and let the blade do its work. Jaw clenched, he shoots her a glare of absolute murderous rage. Barking in frustration, he realizes the damn leather straps won't budge an inch. Strolling right up to his face, she completely brushes off his desperate thrashing. Pinned to the mattress, he growls, demanding to know whose twisted orders she's actually following. Suddenly, a gut-wrenching suspicion hits him. The shadowy face of a ruthless guy instantly flashes across his mind. Convinced this has to be Angel's doing, he spits out the name, fiercely demanding what sick endgame they have planned for him. She just stands there, totally freezing up for a split second. Catching that pause, he instantly validates his own theory. He totally knew it from the start. But then she tilts her head in genuine confusion, asking who the heck that even is, completely throwing him off guard. Scooping up her surgical tray, she casually apologizes for skipping introductions. She cheerfully drops her name, Rena. She claims she's an actual doctor. Still strapped down, he sizes her up with zero trust, extremely skeptical of her so-called credentials. Getting straight to business, she announces she's prepping to dig out a bullet. She points dead at his right thigh where the metal is buried deep. Her voice drops completely deadpan as she warns him the lead could break down, triggering major life-threatening blood poisoning. Digging it out isn't an option, it's mandatory. He just lies there completely silent, soaking up every word of her grim diagnosis. Then she hits him with the classic good news, bad news setup. The bad news, she's completely out of painkillers. This surgery is gonna hurt like absolute hell. That's exactly why he's strapped down, so he can thrash around all he wants. Slightly intrigued, he demands to hear the good news. Flexing her resume, she drops that she used to roll with Doctors Without Borders, proving she's totally unbothered by raw, messy procedures. Tossing him a confident wink, she tells him to just chill out and trust her. Echoing the organization's name, he admits he's actually familiar with their legendary reputation. Clapping her hands together, she brightly declares the pre-op briefing is officially a wrap, politely asking for his verbal green light. Staring him down with intense, serious eyes, she asks if he formally consents to the procedure. He bluntly snaps back with a hard no. Completely shaken, she just stammers, asking him to repeat his insane answer. Frantically warning him that this isn't some sick joke, she insists they have to cut into him right now. Scoffing, he asks if she's deaf, aggressively repeating his refusal. Then he barks an absolute order: unbuckle the straps right now if she actually gets it. She literally screams, asking if he has lost his mind, warning that he could literally die. Ice cold, he replies that he's fully aware of the stakes. Out of nowhere, he claims he'll rip the bullet out himself, bragging about some hardcore military training. She instantly calls his bluff, calling the idea pure nonsense. She yells that he literally has a certified pro standing over him, but he violently questions her skills, snapping that she hasn't proven a single thing. While she's absolutely fuming at his disrespect, he coldly challenges her to drop some hard proof. Coming up blank, she mutters an apology and completely shuts down. Taking control, he ruthlessly declares he isn't gambling his life on a random stranger. That savage burn leaves her entirely stunned and speechless. Panic creeping into her eyes, she tries to stammer out a defense, but her voice completely fails. Defeated, she mumbles that her medical oath completely blocks her from operating on someone who refuses. He pierces her with a death glare as she nervously recites basic medical ethics. She wraps up by admitting that forced surgery is a massive illegal red flag. Smirking, he dares her to play by the book and set him free. Fighting back tears, she finally caves and surrenders to his crazy demands. Shuffling closer, she nervously undoes the heavy buckles chaining him down. Once he's completely off the leash, she retreats to a quiet corner. She quietly ditches her white lab coat on a hook. Keeping a super safe distance, she just watches his every move in pure, terrifying silence. Yanking himself upright, he lets out a heavy sigh and orders her to hand over a scalpel. Dead silent, she turns around to fetch the surgical steel. Creeping back, she gently rests the razor-sharp blade right into his palm. But in one lightning-fast blur, he viciously locks her wrist, flipping the weapon instantly. Tears spilling over, she stares at him in sheer terror. The ambush leaves her completely paralyzed with shock. Pressing the cold steel right against her throat, he violently slams her down onto the mattress. Screaming, she frantically begs to know what the hell he thinks he's doing. Cutting to a sudden flashback, she echoes that she can't make a single move without absolute consent. Breaking the rules, she sobs, would instantly rip away her whole medical license. Even with a blade literally digging into her skin, she frantically tries to talk him down. Sobbing uncontrollably, she screams that a bleeding patient is literally dying right in front of her. Bailing on him now, she cries, would mean giving up her entire soul as a doctor. The raw emotion triggers a memory of Rita flooding his mind with the exact same desperate vow to always save people. His entire vibe flips as it clicks. Dropping a bombshell, he states he is adding one wild condition to his consent. This deal demands mutual blind trust. He casually mentions he is straight up putting his life in her hands. Letting out a dark chuckle, he actually finds this chaotic mess hilarious. Totally thrown off, she yells, demanding to know what is so damn funny. He leans in, breaking it down. The most terrifying threat in any war zone is the guy who does not care if he dies. He claims that throwing your life on the line for a single goal makes you borderline unstoppable. While she stares at him with watery eyes, he pulls a total psycho move, randomly licking the razor-sharp blade. Aiming the scalpel right at her, he drops his guard and says he surrenders. Flashing a reckless smirk, he calls her Doc and tosses his entire fate into her hands. She just freezes, completely shook by his insane choice. Squeezing her eyes shut, she takes a deep breath and locks in. Throwing him a quick wink, she steps up to claim the burden. She has got his back, but drops a brutal reality check. Like she warned before, this island is completely out of painkillers. She warns him this is going to hurt like hell. Grabbing her shears, she slices through the bloody bandages, tearing them back to expose the raw wound. She commands him to stay dead still, warning that the main artery is dangerously close. Giving a stiff nod, he signals that he gets it. Slipping into the zone, she preps for the high-stakes operation. Raising her sterile hands, she officially calls it. The surgery starts now. With ice-cold precision, she sinks the blade into his flesh. Tunnel vision engaged, she navigates the messy tissue to fish out the lead. Her eyes never leave the gory mess. Meanwhile, he stays glued to the table, swallowing the agonizing pain without making a single sound. Mind blown by his insane pain tolerance, she blurts out that he is literally built different. She admits she has ripped bullets out of plenty of guys. In absolute war zones. Flashing back to those nightmares, she knows even the most jacked soldiers they drag in turn into crying messes over a gunshot. Nobody just tanks that kind of flesh-tearing agony like it is nothing. But he coldly counters that agony is just a switch you can turn off with the right conditioning. He claims a trained mind can easily shrug off pretty much any hardcore torture. Totally floored, she wonders what kind of hellish boot camp teaches that. While her hands work the wound, her brain is short-circuiting over his freakish endurance. Hooked, she desperately wants to crack the mystery of who this guy actually is. Then his words echo in her head, the ultimate threat. And then in a crossfire is the psycho ready to die, putting the puzzle pieces together. As she drops a line about how looks are totally deceiving. Assuming he was just a local islander, she straight up asks if he is military. He shoots back, dodging the question. Does his dark history really matter while she is digging around in his leg? Feeling massive secondhand embarrassment, she backs down and stammers an apology. His piercing gaze stays locked on her, forcing her to awkwardly look away. Catching a vibe, he casually mentions how incredibly surreal this whole setup feels. He murmurs that the longer he stares, the more she looks exactly like Sophia. The room goes dead silent as his eyes just burn holes into her. He finally breaks the quiet, asking how a legit Doctors Without Borders medic ended up rotting in this hellhole. Her friendly mask drops into a deadpan glare, leaving him in suspense. Finally, she confesses the truth. She is actively hunting a very specific man out here. Intrigued by her confession, he pushes for a name. Who is this mystery guy she's so obsessed with? Instantly, a horrific flashback rips through her brain. In that twisted memory, a hollow voice kept screaming her name, while she was bawling in absolute despair. A blood-soaked face flashes in her mind, begging her not to forget. And then some sick freak whispered that true masterpieces always demand a brutal sacrifice. Snapping back to reality, her eyes are stone cold and locked in. She grabs the next shiny tool, ready to finish the job. Letting out a heavy breath, the tension finally leaves her shoulders. Flashing a triumphant grin, she announces she hit the jackpot. She found the slug and is starting the extraction. Pinned to the bloody cot, he gives her the green light to proceed, tools tightly gripped. She finally dives in to rip that metal out of his leg. Smash cut. Some time has clearly passed since the gory operation. Chilling right outside the shack, he is bouncing back like a champ. Sitting in the dirt with a crutch, he blows out a long, exhausted breath. Pushing himself up, he tests the bad leg and flexes, realizing his raw strength is actually returning. But out of nowhere, his head snaps to the side. He whispers that something is seriously off. She casually vaults right off the porch, strolling over to his spot. With a warm smile, she scolds him, telling him his body still desperately needs rest, throwing her a quick thanks for saving his life. He swears on his life he will pay back every single cent of this debt. He tells her to chill, he has got this. She assures him he's out of the woods for now, flashing a sly grin before casually dropping the bomb that it's time to pay up. Totally clueless, he blanks and asks what the hell she's talking about. Sticking her hand out, she beams as she rattles off the insane tab for his surgery and hospital stay. She drops the final number, 548,000 yen. Absolutely paralyzed, he shrieks, demanding to know what she just muttered. The scenery shifts, thrusting us straight into a breathtaking cherry blossom wonderland. Marching up to a massive gate, he locks eyes with two bouncers guarding the entrance. Taking in the surroundings, he admits the whole vibe is absolutely unreal. Past the gates, a vibrant street buzzes with crowds living it up at a massive local festival. Couples stroll through the bustling district, soaking in the heavy romantic aesthetic. A sweeping bird's-eye shot reveals the sheer beauty of the entire city. Mind blown, he questions how a gorgeous paradise like this even exists on a literal trash island. This twisted utopia, a famous haven for absolute lust, dubbed the Flower District. Striding right up to the barrier, he halts inches away from two suited-up goons. One of the muscleheads whips around, barking at him to state his business. Stepping even closer, our guy plants his feet and stares them down, in dead silence. Smirking, one of the guards mocks him, asking if the kid even knows what kind of joint he just wandered into. He keeps his cool, smoothly stating he's just a paying customer on the hunt for something specific. Without missing a beat, he announces he came straight here to buy a woman. Smashing cut to a flashback. He grills the doctor about actually charging for her services. Hearing her out, he nods along, admitting he totally misread the vibe. Confused, she demands to know what the hell he means. He casually drops that he thought she was running a charity, considering her whole Doctors Without Borders gig. Wrapping up his roast, he claims that to her, saving lives is just a massive cash grab. Triggered, she completely loses it and starts screaming in his face. Defending her hustle with absolute rage, she yells that medical gear and surgeries burn through insane amounts of cash, especially in this dump of an island. Backing down slightly, he admits her hustle isn't necessarily evil, since she definitely deserves to get paid. Catching his drift, she smirks and asks if he actually has the cash to clear his massive tab. Instantly, a dark memory flashes back, a pathetic guy begging for his life savings. In the vision, the dude is sobbing in pure agony, his face completely painted in blood. Snapping back to reality with a deadpan stare, our boy gears up to drop the truth. He solemnly swears he would love nothing more than to settle the bill, but painfully admits he is flat broke. Without a hint of shame, he drops the hammer, paying her back as straight up impossible. Right now, shell-shocked, her jaw hits the floor as she stares right through him, slapping. A hand over her face, she groans that literally no one has ever pulled this stunt on her before. Then she flips the switch, spelling out exactly what happens to deadbeats who dodge their debts. Heaving a heavy sigh, she figures out the ultimate way to handle this mess. She pitches a high-stakes undercover gig to fish out some top-tier intel. Sketching out the details, he demands to know the actual endgame of this crazy setup. Dropping to one knee, she drops the actual truth: her ultimate target is hiding inside that very district. With a deadly ice-cold glare, she orders him to straight-up assassinate the guy. Not blinking once he nods, locking in the entire lethal scheme. Letting out a breath, she confesses she desperately needs him on this, explaining that the club has a strict ban on most female guests. But as a dude, he can stroll right in posing as a VIP without raising any red flags. He stays completely mute, letting the heavy info dump marinate in his brain. Seeing through her act, he sharply asks if this was her master plan from day one. Flashing a cheeky wink, she whispers, maybe, officially welcoming him to her chaotic world. Staring right through her, our boy gives her dead silence. Smash cut to the present. The bouncers interrogate him, verifying if he really came to buy a girl. The two goons exchange confused glances, fully convinced they must be hearing things. A second later, they burst into absolute hysterics, ruthlessly roasting his grime-covered outfit. Completely unfazed, he keeps his icy death glare locked right on them. One guard sneers that he looks like a filthy mining slave and praises his sheer audacity, but his partner chimes in, admitting that if the kid really is a paying client, the whole dynamic shifts. He demands to see some heavy upfront cash as proof of entry, dripping with pure arrogance. The thug warns him that the talent here is exclusively top tier. Pressing for a deposit, the bouncer barks that stepping foot inside requires serious stacks. If he's broke, they'll label him a creeping perv and toss his broke self to the curb. Flexing their authority, they mockingly roar at him, "Dear customer." Unbothered, our hero just stares right through their souls, letting absolute terrifying silence do the talking. He lets out a heavy sigh, steeling himself for the inevitable chaos before locking eyes with the bouncers. "Yeah, I'm totally broke," he admits. But his piercing glare promises one thing. He's getting through those gates no matter what. The sheer disrespect instantly triggers the two meatheads. "You broke little creep," one of them barks. His buddy steps up, sneering that he's about to get utterly wrecked. Roaring in pure rage, they rush him, launching a coordinated double-team assault. Fists fly from every direction, but our guy doesn't even flinch. Dropping his crutch, he effortlessly deflects a nasty right hook. Using their own momentum against them, he vaults into a flawless mid-air backflip. Spinning gracefully, he sticks a perfect landing right on one thug's shoulders. Without missing a beat, he drives a vicious pinpoint strike straight into the guard's exposed neck. The massive dude violently staggers sideways, completely dazed by the ambush. Seizing the opening, our hero grabs the guy from behind and viciously wrenches his head sideways. He knows exactly how fragile human vertebrae are against sudden torque. Locking into the perfect angle, he cranks it with explosive power. His eyes go dead cold as he sets up the finishing move. Snap with one fluid lightning-fast motion, he instantly neutralizes the heavy hitter. Channeling pure kinetic energy, he completely launches the massive body away like a rag doll. Time for a quick lesson on surviving a one-on-two street fight. Seeing his fallen brother, the second bouncer screams in horror and dashes toward the unconscious body. "Always drop the first guy instantly," he mutters. Then with a smirk, he drops the second rule. "Your enemy is going to be way too mad to listen to reason." Taunting the lone survivor, he coldly points out that his pathetic buddy is already counting sheep. The guard completely loses it. His eyes practically bulge out of his skull, bloodshot and dripping with murderous intent. Screaming his lungs out, the furious meathead spits wild curses. Hook, line, and sinker, the bait is taken and the reckless charge is on. Blinded by pure adrenaline, the guy throws a flurry of sloppy, hilariously predictable haymakers. Our guy just yawns, effortlessly parrying the wild swings while exposing the massive gaps in his enemy's defense. Slipping smoothly to the side, he loads up for a devastating counterstrike. Boom! He buries a skull-crushing straight punch right into the center of the bouncer's face. The sheer impact sends the massive dude flying backward, completely sparked out before he even hits the dirt. He crashes down face first, out cold, but right on cue, a piercing shriek echoes through the alleyway, making every single head spin around. Spotting the wrecked body, some random lady absolutely panics, screaming bloody murder at the top of her lungs. A massive crowd swarms the scene, their shocked gasps confirming the absolute carnage left behind. In that split second, Pablo suddenly remembers a crucial warning he got a while back. The memory flashes. The guard's aggressively demanding his attention, blending into the strict advice his doctor had drilled into his head. "Do not start any beef in the flower district," she had warned. She made it super clear. That spot has zero tolerance for reckless thugs. It's an exclusive VIP zone, strictly reserved for high-class gentlemen, who actually know how to act right. Snapping back to the guard's threats, he recalls their smirks. The gate's only open for those who follow the rules. He briefly wonders if fully wrecking these gatekeepers is going to bring massive heat. "You're never going to find out," one of the memories of a guard sneers. "If you don't shut your mouth." Screaming, the battered bouncer charges again with a cocked fist, but our guy simply snaps at him to zip it, while shooting him a death glare that could freeze hell over. Adjusting his shattered glasses, the goon is totally paralyzed by the kid's terrifying aura. He can't wrap his head around it. How does this scrawny kid suddenly feel like a towering absolute monster looming right over him? Message received. Our hero sighs, slamming his crutch against the pavement. He casually announces he's dipping out for the day, leaving the guards totally bewildered. Flashing a cheeky grin, he jokes that he's leaving because he's a true gentleman. The goons are just left speechless, dumbfounded by the whole insane flex. Without another word, he simply turns his back and slowly struts away from the chaos. But right before vanishing, he casts one final calculating glance at the stronghold. Scanning the massive perimeter, he smirks. "Got it. So, that's how this place ticks." He pieces it all together. The entire district is completely walled off with only a single choke point. Trying to brute force his way in, without a solid map of the inside, would be straight-up suicide. But suddenly something catches his eye, and he lets out a quiet gasp. Glancing over his shoulder, he spots a young kid pushing a rickety wooden cart, skidding to a dead stop right in front of him. "Wait, Manuel," the kid blurts out, totally starstruck. Spinning around, our hero recognizes the boy. "Hold on, you're my buddy, right?" Screaming his name, the kid sprints over, face lighting up. Without missing a beat, he launches himself onto his buddy's back in a massive bear hug. Squeezing him tight, the kid demands to know where the heck he's been hiding all this time. "Dude, You totally vanished off the face of the earth. I've been looking everywhere, he vents, playfully punching his arm. The kid begs him to never pull a vanishing act like that again. Then glancing around, he asks what he's even doing in a shady spot like this. Stroking his chin, Manuel casually drops a bombshell answering that he was just here to buy a woman. Completely totally paralyzed by shock, the boy just stares at him, eyes practically bugging out of his head. Then he completely loses it, screaming his lungs out, totally refusing to process what he just heard. The kid keeps yelling, his brain totally short-circuiting over his best friend's sudden dark turn. He fiercely defends him, shouting that his bro isn't the type of guy to ever spit out garbage like that. Tears welling up, he violently insists that the Manuel he knows has always been a solid, kind-hearted dude. Flashing back to the good old days, he desperately reminds him of the pure guy he used to be. Sobbing openly now, the kid begs him to stop spewing. Such crazy, messed up stuff. Unfazed and deep in thought, Manuel completely ignores the breakdown, murmuring that there has to be a back door into the place. Staring him down, he bluntly tells the kid that he's holding on to a totally fake, idealized version of who he is. Blinking through the tears, the younger guy is dead silent, forced to just swallow his harsh words. Manuel then shuts him down completely brutally, warning him that he can never ever be that perfect guy again. The kid just stares, emotionally shattered by the cold, hard truth. Brushing it off, Manuel announces he's already plotting their next move, and sharply orders the boy to stay out of his way. Jaw clenched in pure frustration, the kid stays dead quiet for a second before giving a stiff nod. The kid forces himself to agree, admitting that, yeah, Manuel is a guy too. He awkwardly mumbles something about how dudes have certain urges that they can't exactly keep in check. Flashing a fake wink, the boy warns that if he ever catches him in the act, he's totally going to pretend they've never met. Manuel just stares flatly at the kid, realizing the idiot completely misunderstood his vibe. Slapping his hands over his ears, the boy begs to drop the super awkward topic and just get back to the grind. Shoving his heavy cart forward, the kid gets moving again, muttering non-stop complaints about his shady friend. Suddenly blocking his path, Manuel demands to know exactly what's inside that bulky cart. Pointing at his load, the kid breaks down his cargo. He explains it's just a bunch of fresh bed sheets, laundry gear, and some random cleaning supplies. Flashing a proud grin, the boy brags that he's basically the VIP assistant, handling all the personal errands for the top-tier girls. The second those words hit his ears, a dark realization sparks in Manuel's eyes, his whole face shifting. He smoothly remarks on how incredibly convenient that is leaving, the kid totally lost and weirded out by the sudden mood shift. Smirking, Manuel reveals his insane master plan, saying he can sneak inside by burying himself under the kid's laundry cart. Absolutely horrified, the boy shrieks in pure panic, refusing to sign off on something this crazy. Eyeing the massive tarp, Manuel casually notes that it's definitely big enough to stash a full-grown guy. Frantically throwing his hands up to block him, the kid screams that sneaking in is a massive red flag. Genuinely clueless, Manuel just tilts his head and asks why not, which totally pushes the kid over the edge into pure rage. Hell no, I'm not helping you with this sketchy crap, the boy roars, completely washing his hands of the plan. He harshly lays out the rules, explaining that waltzing through the front doors is literally impossible unless you drop a massive cash deposit up front. Chuckling nervously under his breath, the boy insists he'd never pull any stunts inside. Breathing a sigh of relief, Manuel admits that tiny detail completely slipped his mind. He then asks what kind of totally insane damage we're talking about. Dead serious, the boy drops the bomb, confirming you gotta flash at least 500,000 just to step foot inside. Throwing his arms wide open, the kid swears he hasn't even seen that kind of crazy cash in his entire life. Right then and there, the gears in Manuel's head start turning, cooking up a manipulative scheme to use the kid as his golden ticket. Flashing a wicked grin, he smoothly drops that he's figured out the perfect way to spend Masa's leftover inheritance. Flabbergasted, the kid stammers out, asking if he actually means that same Masa they both knew. Dropping the brutal news with zero hesitation, he casually reveals that Masa kicked the bucket, leaving the poor kid totally paralyzed by shock. With a dark, toxic smirk, he twists the knife, adding that Masa basically dumped his entire life savings into his lap before dying. The boy just gapes at him, desperately trying to decode what sick, twisted game his friend is playing. Wait, you're seriously telling me your big master plan is to blow Masa's death money on a brothel entry fee, he demands. Not even blinking, Manuel just smiles back, claiming it's literally their only VIP pass into the red light district. Absolutely speechless, the kid is frozen, completely chilled to the bone by his former friend's insane lack of empathy. Doubling down, Manuel points out that finding Masa's missing sister is a total dead end anyway, so blowing the cash on this mission actually gives it meaning. Boiling over with pure rage, the kid violently smashes his fist into the dirt. Grabbing Manuel by the collar, he screams at the top of his lungs, begging him to drop this psychopathic idea right now. Tears streaming down his face, he pleads with him not to dirty Masa's final gift on something so twisted. Voice cracking, he preaches that throwing away your basic humanity is a line you just don't cross. Totally unbothered, Manuel silently gazes up at a cherry blossom tree, calculating his next move, like it's just a game of chess. Finally, with a soft smirk, he throws his hands up and totally agrees with the kid's morals, leaving the boy hit with intense whiplash. Pivoting smoothly, he tosses out a brand new, highly toxic bargain. He swears he won't touch a single dime of the dead guy's cash if the kid helps him sneak in. Tilting his head, he asks if that isn't the ultimate win-win scenario, sitting back to wait for the bait to be taken. Grinding his teeth so hard they might crack the boy, is visibly torn by the brutal ultimatum. Manuel just stands there like a predator watching his prey, coldly waiting for the kid to inevitably cave. But out of absolutely nowhere, the kid's face totally shifts into a dark smile, admitting that this crazy plan is actually, "All right, bet," gesturing toward the rundown cart he claims he can totally kick back inside. Letting out a heavy sigh, he drops a quick apology to the kid, insisting it is all for the mission. This district was a flashy paradise, thriving right in the heart of the gritty slums. He is dead set that the ultimate ticket off this cursed island is locked away inside. His razor-sharp soldier instincts are practically screaming that something massive is waiting for him. Gripping the handles of the cart, the kid is visibly sweating bullets over this whole sketchy setup. Rolling up to the main gates, he ends up staring down two heavily armed guards. Whispering from the shadows inside, he begs the kid to keep his cool and just play it totally casual. But the boy snaps back asking who he thinks he's talking to and tells him to back off and let him cook. Catching sight of the kid, the guard raises an eyebrow in shock. Striding up with a breezy wave, the kid shouts out a super friendly greeting. Tucked away in the dark, Manuel keeps his mouth completely shut, intensely tracking the kid's every move. One of the massive guards spots him and calls him out as Carlitos, the hustle-crazy delivery boy. The kid practically begs them to fast-track him through the gates. But no shot. The two bouncers step right up, slamming a total roadblock on his path. Caught off guard by their sudden hostility, the boy stares blankly, totally clueless about the major vibe shift. One of the guards smirks, dropping the harsh truth that they alone pull the strings on who gets in. Trying to push through, the kid argues they already know who he is and demands entry, but the guards straight up ignore his plea and declare a full-blown raid on his cart. Boiling with rage, the kid screams, demanding to know what is up, since they have literally never patted him down before. Triggered by his disrespect, one of the guards viciously snatches him by the collar, barking at him to shut his mouth. The brute growls, interrogating if the kid is hiding some sketchy contraband. Zero patience left. The massive dude brutally hurls the kid straight into the dirt without a second thought. Once he is sprawled out in the dust, the guard stomps over and starts yanking at the heavy tarp. Tearing the canvas back, he gears up to rip through the cargo. Trapped in the pitch-black, Manuel just glares through the cracks, bracing himself for the absolute worst. Pinned to the floor, Carlitos realizes his panicked energy totally sold him out. Watching the ultra-suspicious guard, he scrambles up and aggressively tries to block the raid. For Manuel, this exact second is a massive do-or-die checkpoint for his entire master plan. With one violent jerk, the guard tears the canvas entirely off the rig, but his jaw drops when he spots absolutely nothing inside except a pile of boring supplies. This is exactly the bait Manuel plotted, heavily preparing for this precise scenario. Tearing through the junk, the guard aggressively scans every single item, totally ticking the kid off. Snatching up a jagged saw, he barks out a demand about why it is sitting in the stash. The delivery boy quickly defends it, swearing they are just basic gear for his insane daily hustle. The psycho guard slowly slides the cold steel near his own face, testing the lethal edge of the blade. Using those exact tools, Manuel had actually rigged a genius hidden compartment right under a false floor. He is literally chilling, completely invisible right below the danger zone. Cramped in the pitch-black space, he holds his breath, praying the brute wraps up his ridiculous search. The camera flashes back, diving straight into the insane events from just 60 minutes ago. Back then, the stressed-out kid was whining, begging Manuel not to totally wreck his precious gear. Scanning the busted rig, Manuel points out it is basically turning to dust, and flexes by offering a complete overhaul. Almost tearing up, the kid pours out his thanks. Instantly, jumping on his bros helps. In a heartbeat. Smashing back to reality, the guard grunts out that the coast is absolutely clear. The second bouncer just gives a lazy nod, staring off into the clouds, totally checked out of reality. Finally, they crank the massive iron gates open and yell at the kid to get lost inside. The courier frantically yanks the tarp back over, hiding his friend in the shadows once more. Pushing forward, he breezes through the entrance, muscling the heavy cart straight into the fancy VIP zone. Once past the walls, he lets out a shaky breath, complaining that the whole ordeal almost gave him a literal heart attack. Spitting mad, the kid insists he played it totally cool to keep the heat off them. Flashing a sly grin, Manuel drops a genuine thank you to Carlitos, hyping up their massive win. Blushing like crazy, the kid stares blankly, totally thrown off by the sudden soft praise, demanding to know why he is acting so soft. Shrugging it off, the boy claims it was not even a big deal. Realizing the clock is ticking, the kid gets ready to sprint off into the streets. Right before blasting away, he screams at Manuel to never forget the insane promise they made. With his eyes shut tight, the soldier gives a heavy nod, confirming the message is locked in. Out of nowhere, he demands the name of the mysterious crafter the kid is currently slaving away for. Flashing a cocky wink, the boy drops a massive bomb. She is literally one of the four Supremes. The second that legendary title drops, Manuel goes dead silent, his mind instantly racing with dark calculations. He tells the kid to head home, throwing up a quick peace sign before vanishing down the street solo. He internally hypes himself up. He finally managed to sneak his way into the but playtime is over. He mentally reviews his main quest, tracking down one specific guy hiding in this maze. The target's name echoes in his head, Don Dario. Realizing he's basically flying blind, he desperately needs a solid game plan. Leaning heavily on his crutch, he decides to prowl the neon-lit district to gather some intel. The streets are absolutely stacked with filthy rich dudes parading around with drop-dead gorgeous women on their arms. As he navigates the city, his eyes dart everywhere, scanning the perimeter like a hawk. He knows these alleyways are fueled entirely by dark history and vibes, not logic. He completely immerses himself, absorbing the city's chaotic energy. Sizing up the architecture, he spots a repeating cookie-cutter pattern hidden in the buildings. He zeroes in on one boarding house, rocking 5 identical, perfectly mirrored rooms. Posted up at the entrance, a girl lounges out front to lure in paying customers. Yet strangely, several doors remain tightly shut. Tracking the hustle and bustle, it hits him way too many of these spots are completely locked down. He mutters to himself about how insanely packed the place is, even in broad daylight. Striding through the courtyard, he realizes the open rooms are actually super rare. Glancing into one of the parlors, he spots the girl on the left, chilling totally free. Over in the right side room, another girl looks like she's just waiting to bag her next client. Making up his mind, he pivots on his heel to make his move. Taking that crucial first step, he picks his target. Without a second thought, he marches straight toward the room on the left. Politely interrupting, he asks if he can slide in and ask her a quick question. Her head snaps up, flashing him a deadpan, intensely curious glare. Looming over her, he holds his breath, waiting for her vibe check. A tiny smirk tugs at her lips. She's clearly low-key amused by this weird flex. Then she drops the bomb they flat-out reject first-timers here. Completely baffled, he questions this ridiculous no-newbies rule. Suddenly, an older madame steps out of the shadows, barking that desperate guys need to back off. He turns around, totally looking like he took the L, but he stays planted right where he is. Muttering the phrase under his breath, his brain literally short-circuits trying to decode the hidden meaning. Like a broken record, a bunch of girls start chanting that they don't serve fresh meat. One of them steps up, flashing a fake apology, while strictly defending the house rules. Another girl echoes the exact same line, a nervous, glitchy smile plastered on her face. From the back row, another female voice hits him with a hard pass. A girl hiding in the shadows scoffs, complaining that first-timers are super toxic because they never get the memo. He just stands there totally buffering at this bizarre rejection. Losing his cool, he snaps, screaming, "What the hell is a first-time client anyway?" But out of nowhere, a blood-curdling shriek rips through the alley, snapping his head around. Someone in the panicked crowd is shrieking for a guy to let go of Lady Kama Sutra. Watching the chaos unfold, he hears a desperate, breathy cry for help right next to him. Some unhinged dude has a girl locked in a chokehold, screaming he'll end her if anyone dares to step up. The mob is losing their minds, yelling at him to chill, because violence is strictly banned here, scoffing like a psycho. The guy sneers that they're all way too full of themselves. He screams that he literally gave his whole soul to Kosusu, but she just threw him out like trash. Pressing a jagged blade right against her throat, he roars that this is nothing but a filthy red light district. Some random dude claps back, yelling that it's his own damn fault for not being a VIP regular. The hostage taker screams right back, accusing the entire city of running one massive dirty scam. Completely losing his grip on reality, he curses the entire block, calling it a trashy slum. Surrounded by the wild panic, our guy just stands there silently watching the psycho meltdown play out. The crazy guy bawls that at this rate he's going to end up dragged off as a literal slave miner. The second those words hit the air, slave miner, our hero's face goes dead cold. His brain flashes back all the broken guys scammed in this district, get shipped straight to those exact mines. Totally unhinged. The madman looks into the girl's eyes and whispers, "You want to die right here with me?" Completely clueless, the crowd spirals into pure angry chaos. One of the guys snarls that he absolutely will not let those insults slide. Suddenly, a fierce woman slices right through the mob, barking at everyone to get out of her way. The thugs immediately recognize her gasping Esperanza's name in pure shock. He then realizes she is the ruthless boss, running all the courtesans in this district. Sweating with panic, the crazed man screams at her to back off, threatening to literally end the hostage if she takes one more step. He keeps yelling desperately, demanding if she even hears his threats. Stopping dead in her tracks, she just locks eyes with him, radiating a chilling, dead silence. Out of nowhere, she slaps him so hard his brain reboots. Drenching him in disgust, she roasts him for being such a massive loser that he could not even afford to be a paying customer. The onlookers whisper that guys throwing tantrums and threatening courtesans is basically a daily routine around here. He just watches closely, knowing full well this is just another typical drama in the underworld. She spits out that a pathetic guy who only barks, without the actual guts to bite, has zero right to challenge her pride, daring him to actually do something about it. Glaring daggers at him, she commands the trash to pack up and leave town quietly. Utterly terrified, the pathetic dude screams for backup from the guys in suits. She orders her own muscle to grab him, but they awkwardly freeze up. Trembling, they stutter out that the lunatic is holding a dangerously sharp blade. Genuinely caught off guard, she asks if they are literally joking right now, completely mind-blown by their embarrassing cowardice. Pushed to the edge, the enraged attacker screams at her to stop mocking him, gripping his knife with white knuckles. He violently lunges forward, roaring that she is going to die right here, right now, as he drives the blade straight toward her chest. The deadly tip inches closer and closer to a fatal strike, but in an absolute flash, someone instantly dashes into the crossfire to shield her. Moving like an absolute blur, our guy dives in and intercepts the chaotic assault. Snapping his fan open, he casually uses it to block the vicious knife thrust. Yanking her back out of harm's way, he flawlessly saves her from the maniac's deadly slash. Stunned, she just stares at him, entirely speechless at his lightning-fast rescue. Gripping the attacker's arm, he totally shuts down the ambush with pure raw strength. With an absolute iron grip, he locks the assailant's wrist tightly in place. Completely overpowering the thug, he strips the weapon away and hits him with a dead serious icy glare. Slamming the guy hard into the pavement, he pins him down, making the thug squeal in absolute agony. Blown away by his effortless moves, she just stands there totally frozen in awe. The bodyguards and the entire crowd are left completely shook by this crazy unexpected plot twist. Gripping the blade, he casually confirms the threat is neutralized, asking the bouncers if they brought any cuffs. The heavy muscle swoops in violently, dragging the screaming attacker away while he drops to his knees, begging for mercy. The younger girl frantically apologizes for dragging her sister into this nightmare, pulling her into a tight hug. But the elegant lady just brushes it off, admitting she absolutely refused to let that creep disrespect her like that. She drops a heavy truth bomb. This toxic environment breeds pure desperation, so they better stay on high alert, flashing a warm smile. The girl nods, promising to watch her back. Pivoting toward our MC, the lady clearly wants to unpack the absolute chaos that just went down, showering him with gratitude for the insane clutch save. She leans in totally curious if he's secretly trained in martial arts. He hits her with a vague, something like that, while she keeps hyping up his flawless combat skills. Scanning his totally basic outfit, she straight up asks if he's just some low-level errand boy. Eyes closed, he firmly shoots that rumor down. No way is he running errands. Locking eyes with her, he drops a deadpan flex. He is literally just a paying customer, looking for some fun. Shook by the plot twist, she stammers about him being a VIP. Then spinning on her heels, she totally summons him, demanding he stick right by her side. Totally clueless. He just zones out on her, utterly baffled by the super random invite. Flashing a wicked grin, she smoothly reveals she's taking him to her private game room. Our guy just stares back, giving zero emotional reaction, totally stone-faced. Meanwhile, sweeping the garbage-filled street outside, the kid lets out a massive sigh, looking bored out of his mind. He's hardcore complaining about Manuel trying to have a wild time with literally zero cash in his wallet. Furious, he snaps that it is way too early in the day for this level of nonsense, but quickly realizes that without making it rain, Manu is not getting any attention anyway. Smirking to himself, he decides to just whip him up a massive feast instead. Right then, Esperanza snaps him out of it, shouting that they have a VIP waiting to be served. The kid shoots back a cheeky grin, formally calling her Esperanza Gomez. But the second he catches those two walking together, his jaw practically drops to the floor, completely short-circuiting at the wild scene. He absolutely loses his mind, screaming in pure shock, seeing Manuel rolling deep with his actual boss. Once inside the ultra-exclusive VIP room, the duo settles down for a totally private chat. Peeking eagerly through the tiny crack in the door, the hyped-up kid whispers for them to have an epic time. Sitting across from each other, they drop into dead silence, just intensely locking eyes for a solid minute. Scratching his head, the kid is low-key spiraling, trying to figure out why on earth our MC is chilling with Esperanza. Spreading her hands in a super welcoming vibe, she smoothly motions for him to slide over and sit intimately close to her. Taking a slow, calculated sip of her tea, he just locks eyes with her totally unfazed. Whispering that he can do whatever he wants, she hikes up her kimono to tease him. Meanwhile, peeping from the hallway, the kid's jaw absolutely drops at the spicy scene. Bolting away in a panic, he stammers that it's time to do his chores. Back inside, Manu casually grips his teacup, studying her every move. He dryly asks if playing games is her way of saying thank you, but she purrs right back that he literally saved her life, making a simple hookup way too cheap of a reward. Grabbing his crutch, he pushes himself up and closes the gap. Sliding into her personal space, he sits dead center in front of the mysterious beauty. Without missing a single beat, he firmly plants his hand straight onto her bare thigh. She holds his gaze. Her icy expression doesn't crack even for a second, totally unbothered by the bold move. He slowly starts trailing his fingers, sliding his grip down her leg. But out of nowhere, he freezes, yanking his hand back and dropping a sudden apology. Dropping the act, he confesses that the whole paying customer thing was a total bluff. Instead, he demands a few straight answers as his actual payback. Letting out a heavy breath, a tiny smirk creeps onto her face at the wild plot twist. Bursting into laughter, she totally eats up the drama, but then her eyes turn deadly serious, admitting she knew he was a fake from the very start. Snapping her hand fan shut, she drops the bomb that he actually passed her. Little vibe check. Completely lost. He demands to know what kind of test she's even talking about. Super curious, he asks how she instantly sniffed out his lie. Flashing a sly grin, she playfully replies that the giveaway was actually super basic. Flicking her fan open, she points out that the secret was all about the wristband. She breaks it down. Legit VIPs get a custom band as a premium receipt. Catch anyone walking around without one, they're instantly flagged as a high-risk trespasser. Then she spills the tea. Her whole speech about refusing service is literally just a fancy, polite way of telling scrubs to back off. Hearing that, it finally clicks for him how this shady underworld really operates. She then warns him that chasing thrills in this neon city will completely bleed your wallet dry. The second a dude walks in, he has to feed straight cash into an automated machine just to breathe the same air and chat with the girls. That crazy machine swallows a bill every 5 minutes. She points out that the real challenge for the guests is fighting the sheer panic of watching their money vanish into thin air. Laughing it off, she flat out admits the entire system is an absolute highway robbery. Manu just stares at her in dead silence. Soaking in all this wild new intel, his eyes go dead serious. This is exactly how those twisted clients are forged, he mutters. Snapping her fan shut with a crisp thud, she completely vibes with his wild theory. She drops the cold hard rules every new client starts at the absolute bottom tier with a strict no-touching policy. It's only after dropping serious cash that they finally unlock that shiny VIP status. Leaning in uncomfortably close, she whispers that getting up close and personal is strictly a top-tier privilege. She drops the mic, only the absolute elites get to take things to the bedroom. Mind blown by this crazy hustle, he just stares at her desperately trying to process the madness. Shaking his head, he can't fathom why anyone would willingly blow their life savings on such a blatant scam. Smacking her fan closed, a dark shadow crosses her face as she thinks about the district. Dead serious, she warns him there's way more to this shady underworld than meets the eye. He keeps his mouth completely shut, waiting for her to spill the actual tea. Pressing her further, he demands to know who these loaded whales actually are. Hiding her smirk behind the fan, she reveals that the heavy hitters all roll in from the mainland. His eyes go wide as the puzzle pieces violently click into place, hitting him with a massive revelation. Desperate, he grills her about finding a ride off this cursed rockboats, planes, literally anything. Peeking over her fan, her bubbly vibe completely drops as she hesitates, dodging his intense gaze. Finally, she breaks the bad news. The escape routes off this island are highly classified top-secret intel. Frustrated as hell, he loudly clicks his tongue, completely handcuffed by the messed-up situation. Changing the vibe, she playfully asks if his intense little interrogation is finally over. Squeezing his eyes shut, he throws out one last wild card. He asks if she knows a guy named Don Dario, a former doctor. She aggressively tilts her head, totally blanking. Don who? The name doesn't ring a single bell. She sighs, explaining that tracking down a ghost with just a name in this chaotic dump is basically mission impossible. Swallowing his bitter disappointment, he nods in heavy silence. But then a sly grin spreads across her face. Now, it's her turn to play 20 questions. Grabbing his hand tight, she drops an absolute bombshell. Flashing a dangerously seductive look, she whispers, "How about you belong to me?" His brain completely short-circuits, staring at her like a deer in headlights, utterly clueless about what she just offered. And boom, the scene violently cuts, wrapping up another insane chapter. Flash forward to a gritty underground fighting ring where two guys are about to absolutely throw down. With a dramatic flick of her fan, the boss lady officially kicks off the brutal brawl. Now our guy is locked in a sweaty showdown against some massive dude in a slick black suit. The real reason behind this intense beef, we're about to find out. Rewind back to the bedroom. He frantically demands to know what she meant by her crazy offer. Quickly correcting herself, she clarifies she wants him to join their crew, not just be her personal toy. Still utterly lost in the sauce, he just blinks at her with pure confusion. She finally drops the punchline. She's straight up recruiting him to be her shiny new bodyguard. The floor totally wiped out from under him, he sits there speechless, just staring. Without missing a beat, she stands up and orders him to follow her lead across the room. Trailing right behind her, they climb the winding staircase to the mysterious upper floors of the joint. Kicking the heavy door open, she reveals her secret sanctuary. His jaw practically hits the floor when he takes in the wild view. This wasn't some rundown trap house. The room was an insanely aesthetic, high-class penthouse that oozed pure luxury. She explains the harsh survival mechanics. The girls roll in squads of 5 for max protection. They crash together in top-tier penthouses right above the grimy casinos. Clapping her hands loudly, she rounds up the entire squad for an impromptu meet and greet. Answering the call, all the baddies from the Camellia group pull up to check out the fresh meat. Kama Sutra immediately jumps in, hyping him up for saving her skin back on the deadly streets. The other two girls, Pon and Ron, throw him a casual nod while barely looking up from their own business. She lays out the rules. Every single squad gets to draft one exclusive bodyguard. But suddenly, the door blasts open, and a frantic dude storms in, screaming his lungs out for Esperanza Luz. Panic sweating and totally heartbroken, the guy begs to know why he's getting randomly booted from his cushy job. Flashing a fake apologetic smile, she points to our guy, declaring him the new muscle. Overhearing this, our hero quickly protests, hold up, I definitely haven't agreed to this yet. Dropping straight to his knees, the ex-guard desperately simps for his job back. Unfazed, the boss lady scans her squad, asking if anyone has beef with the sudden roster swap. Smirking maliciously, 2 of the girls completely back their leader's savage play. The rest of the crew just shrug it off, totally cool with upgrading their defense anyway. Sweating literal bullets, the rejected bodyguard pathetically begs for just one more shot to prove he's not completely useless. Pointing an angry finger, the dude screams. He refuses to lose his gig to some scrawny nobody. Hiding a wicked grin behind her fan, she's absolutely eating up the drama. One of the girls casually rolls her eyes and suggests throwing the pathetic loser a bone just to see what happens. The enraged ex-guard roars that he's going to utterly demolish him, broken ribs or not. With a devilish smirk, she points straight at them and yells, "Let the bloodbath begin!" And just like that, the high-stakes brutal brawl for the VIP bodyguard title violently pops off. The heavy hitter lunges in with a wild, crushing haymaker, but our boy effortlessly sidesteps the brute like it's nothing. Using his crutch for leverage, he fluidly glides back, ghosting the lethal strike. Pissed off by the slick evasion, his opponent barks at him to stop acting so damn cocky. He casually weaves past the strike's eyes, locked dead on his attacker in pure silence, just waiting for the perfect opening. Screaming his lungs out, the guy lunges back in, throwing a wild, reckless flurry of punches. He slips past every single swing with absolute liquid grace. As a former soldier, he totally despised pointless brawling no matter what the situation was. Howling in blind rage, the guy launches one last desperate assault. He charges in swinging like a maniac, throwing everything he has just to land a single hit. That cold military mindset bled right into his fights. He always kept his cool, never letting the chaos rattle him. He figured scoring a gig as a bodyguard was his absolute best shot at surviving in this city. The perks of the job were just way too good to pass up. Gripping his crutch tight, his eyes shift. Playtime is over. In a flash, he tosses the crutch aside and steps right into the danger zone. Thinking he spotted an opening, the attacker screams that this is the finishing blow, but our guy is already locked loaded and ready to snap back with a lethal counter. Bam! A surgically precise uppercut connects right under the guy's jaw. The sheer force of the impact sends the rival bodyguard literally flying through the air, knocking him out cold before he even hits the floor. Every single woman in the room gasps, totally shook by this absolute demolition. Grabbing the victor's arm, she hoists it high, hyping him up as the undisputed champ and their brand new bodyguard. Outside, the crowd is buzzing about how insanely overpowered he looked during the brawl. And just like that, he takes his very first step into his new life in this twisted district. Suited up in his fresh tailored gear, he groans about how stiff and completely restrictive the fabric feels. Right then, one of the girls sneaks up from behind, catching him totally off guard with a soft, playful giggle. She whispers that his tie is a little crooked. As her fingers gently fix the knot, she starts raving about that crazy fight from earlier. Leaning in close, she tells him that watching him absolutely wreck that guy was a total thrill. Pulling back, she glances around and sighs that business is pretty dead today, then flashing him a massive, stunning smile. She invites him to his own welcome party. Adjusting his tie himself, he just stares right back at her, his face completely deadpan. Glasses clink high in the air as everyone toasts to the new guy. The whole room is packed, buzzing with energy as they soak up the... She nudges him, asking why his glass is full, and he coldly shoots her down. Alcohol is literal poison. One of the girls points at the corner, asking why that other chick is totally pouting at a party, cheeks puffed up in pure frustration. She whines that this whole thing was supposed to be a private one-on-one hangout. The older woman quickly shuts it down, reminding her that catching feelings for a guard is strictly forbidden here. Flustered and turning bright red, the girl stammers out a wild denial, swearing it is nothing like that at all. But then she shyly mutters that she just gets this weird fluttery feeling whenever a ridiculously strong guy is around. Hearing this, Rand slams her glass onto the table, her face dropping into pure seriousness. Tearing into a giant drumstick, she looks incredibly invested in the drama. Staring the girl down, our guy brutally warns her, "If you cross that line into romance, I will snitch on you in a heartbeat." Casually popping a piece of sushi into his mouth, he points out that reporting rule breakers gets you points, which is a total win for him. Irritated Lady Kamakura snaps at him to stop being so toxic, reminding him that they are supposed to be a team now. One of the girls genuinely wonders out loud, exactly how many points is a romance violation even worth? Unrolling a massive scroll, Rand aggressively scans through the heavy text. Her jaw drops and she screams, "The bounty is 20. That is an insanely massive payout." Sweating bullets, the flustered girl screams that she is absolutely not flirting with him. Rand points out that bagging 20 points would instantly level him up in the district. Chilling at the table, he pieces together that your entire social rank here is basically determined by points. He breaks it down, noting that all three of these girls are stuck at the bottom tier basic courtesans known as the Usubeni. On the flip side, the absolute top tier untouchable queens are called the Oborozukiyo. Lady Kamakura drops some major gossip whispering that Asagiri is literally about to be crowned as one of the 4 supremes. The younger girl begs her to shut up, covering her ears and groaning that she doesn't even want to hear that name. She sighs, complaining that this whole messed up city is just obsessed with... Taking a long sip of her drink, she confirms the dark truth. This district is a ruthless top-down hierarchy. He just stares at her in dead silence, soaking up every drop of this heavy intel. He asks straight up, "So, snitching on people is a valid strategy to rank up?" And she nods, confirming it is. Pouring herself another shot, she murmurs that plenty of scumbags out there climb the ladder just by throwing others under the bus. Suddenly, he pushes up from the table, limping over to Rand with his crutch. Looming right behind her shoulder, he watches her intensely as her eyes go wide, staring at that scroll. He zeroes in on the document. With lightning speed, he just yanks the entire scroll right out of her grip, totally catching her off guard. "Ticked off," she yells at him, demanding to know what his problem is since he is supposed to be their guard. Scanning the parchment, his eyes lock onto a specific rule worth 10 points. He narrows his eyes and asks, "Does this seriously say that absolutely no one is allowed to leave the district?" She slowly nods, explaining that neither the girls nor the guards are ever allowed to walk out those gates. Her eyes go completely dark as she drops the bombshell. "The only way you ever leave this place is in a body bag." The other two just shrug it off, coping hard by saying that at least they never have to starve chillingly, calling this twisted cage a literal paradise. Living the dream. Surrounded by endless food and wild perks, the locals are totally vibing in this district. He even compares the whole setup to an absolute paradise. But there is a massive catch. His eyes go dark, dead serious. He low-key wonders if this so-called heaven is actually just a gilded cage. "Yo, we got a delivery guy around here," Ron shouts out. Flashing a huge grin, Carlito slides right into the scene. "Right here, man," he replies, answering the call. The party is absolutely popping, with everyone screaming for another round of drinks. But someone cuts the hype, pointing out that the delivery boy actually strolled in today. Straight through the front gates. She nods, confirming that couriers are literally the one and only exception to the rules. Pulling up a chair, she tells him to grab a seat and chow down. I mean, it is his welcome party after all. The kid's jaw drops. He realizes Manu is casually chatting with these high tiers like they are absolute equals. No fear at all. Staring up at the glowing moon, the boy lets out a heavy sigh, lost in his thoughts. In his mind, Manuel has already leveled up into a completely different world. Grumble. His stomach violently demands attention. The kid is starving. He desperately mentions snatching up Esperanza's leftover food. Out of nowhere, this old lady pulls up, screaming at him to back off. Puffing on her smoke, she snaps that those elite scraps get flipped for cash down in the slums. Getting super annoyed, the kid snaps and tells her to shut her mouth. Big mistake. She immediately verbally trashes him right back. Bam! The door kicks open and Manu steps out. He is looking for Carlitos. Sprinting over to the MC, the boy instantly questions, "Why are you even out here, man?" But Manu just reveals his stash. An absolute feast of top-tier mouth-watering food, literally drooling over the spread. The kid is hyped. He declares that the MC just completely understands his vibe. But the old lady flips out again. She screams a warning, telling the kid he absolutely cannot lay a single finger on those premium scraps. Pointing a shaky finger straight at Manu, she warns that the panic hits the boy. He nervously glances up at our protagonist. But Manu, he just stands there watching the chaos unfold in dead silence, unbothered. Breaking the silence, Manu casually states he doesn't give a damn about snitching or grinding out brownie points. Tapping the food tray, he smoothly drops that he actually needs a favor. And this is an upfront payment. The boy's eyes narrow, staring him down as he deeply weighs the sketchy offer. Cut to the next day. The kid is dragging his heavy cart through the dense forest, looking absolutely destroyed. Sweating, panting, he's completely drained from the endless trek. Then out of nowhere, he spots something in the distance and lets out a massive gasp. Frantically waving his arms, he yells out to a woman hanging up her laundry to dry. Whipping around, the woman locks eyes with him. She is completely thrown off by this random kid shouting her way. Rushing over, he catches his breath and asks, "Wait, are you Lady Rena?" She lets out a soft chuckle, mentioning that, thanks to this little guy, Manu actually managed to infiltrate the elite zone. She hands over a cup, offering the exhausted kid a drink. His eyes light up, totally mind-blown by how crystal clear the water is. "Whoa, I've literally never seen water this pure," he gasps. Taking a seat, she gently tells him that keeping hydrated with clean water is vital. She even offers to show him the ropes. Rena explains the simple trick of boiling and filtering the water. The kid is left absolutely stunned by the science drop. Flashing a warm smile, she checks in. Is Manu holding up okay? Buzzing with hype, he spills the tea. He reveals that Manuel instantly snagged a spot as an elite personal guard. Literally on day one, a proud, satisfied grin spreads across her face. "That is so good to hear," she whispers. Oh, snap. Remembering his actual mission, he tells her the MC sent him to drop off a secret message. He slides her a sealed envelope. As she tears the package open, her face instantly drops into heavy concern as she scans the words. Inside the secret note, Manuel was demanding intel on a shadowy guy named Don Dario. Super nosy. The kid tries to peek over her shoulder, asking if she's trying to track him down. Flashing a confident smirk, he volunteers to run the intel straight back to Manuel. She closes her eyes, completely silent. You can tell she's heavily debating whether to trust this kid. Finally, she hits him with a dead serious glare. "I can't trust you." The kid is totally blindsided. Triggered, he yells out, demanding to know why she won't let him handle the mission. She brutally lays out the facts. The district is on total lockdown. If anyone catches them slipping messages, things will get incredibly violent. Slapping his hand right on the envelope, the brave kid tells her to chill out and let him handle the risk. "Are you insane?" she screams. "Worst case scenario, they will literally execute you for this." Pure terror washes over the boy. The kid goes completely mute. The reality check hits hard, and he just stares at her, frozen in fear. Flashback time. We jump back to their shady meeting from the previous night. Under the cover of darkness, our protagonist had cornered the boy, demanding that he smuggle that exact letter straight to the doctor. Flashing a cocky grin, the kid bragged that it would be a total piece of cake. Easy money. Manu tells them to go ahead and smash the premium food he brought out. But the old hag is still screaming desperately, warning the kid not to touch the elite scraps. Crouching down to their level, Manu casually pushes the massive feast toward them. His price, absolute silence. He straight up calls it hush money to keep their mouths completely shut. And honestly, inside that box wasn't just scraps. It was a massive high-tier banquet loaded with insanely delicious dishes. The old lady's eyes nearly pop out of her skull. She's absolutely floored by the bribe. Gritting her teeth hard, she furiously battles the urge to accept the shady deal. But hunger wins. She completely caves and starts aggressively devouring the luxury feast. Mumbling muffled thank yous, the two of them stuff their faces, desperately, insanely grateful for the sudden jackpot of food. Cheeks absolutely stuffed. The boy flashes a massive grin, practically in heaven over the meal. Snap back to present day at the clinic. The boy sits there deeply lost in thought after crushing his food. His knuckles turning white around the bag, he finally makes up his mind and spills every single secret to the doctor. He admits Manu totally played him. She just watches completely hooked, waiting for the rest of the tea. Fuming, he reveals Manuel claimed he was going to buy a woman. Frustrated, he admits that lie almost made him hate the guy's guts. But honestly, he's just relieved our boy is actually out here saving lives. Eyes blazing with pure determination, he practically yells that he wants to have his back. She just stares in dead silence, totally caught off guard by the kid's intense energy. Leaning in, he whispers that Manuel is basically useless without him. Letting out a heavy sigh, she actually seems to agree with the kid. Sharing a quick laugh, they both admit Manu has been moving super weird lately. Flashing a warm smile, he tells her to just drop the truth without sweating it. Shutting her eyes, she finally caves and decides to trust the kid. Her face drops dead serious as she brings up the guy going by the name Don Dario. She drops the bombshell that he is probably rocking a totally fake identity and a new face. Panicking, the kid shouts that finding him is impossible. Now, taking a seat, she calmly reveals Dario has one dead giveaway and super unique trait. Deadpan, she drops the fact that it's something he absolutely cannot change. The kid locks eyes with her, hanging on to every single word she spits out. Meanwhile, cutting back to the flower district, business is booming like usual. He spots outsiders actually pulling up to the island just to hit up the district. Esperanza casually points out that the vibe is shockingly dead right now. That instantly clicks in his brain. There has to be a secret route on and off this rock. But he shoots that down, saying no way, since this whole thing is a hardcore mission for him. Cracking up at how ridiculously tense he is, she teases him for being such a stiff. She points out he's clocking in a little late today. Glancing up at the balconies, he catches the others already grinding. She breaks it down. The morning shift is strictly for the girls with the lowest scores. Out of nowhere, Lady Kamasutra screams out for a dude named Fabio. Waving him down, she shoots her shot, asking if he's free today. Totally cringing, he awkwardly mumbles, "Maybe next time," shooting her down cold. Absolutely gagged by the rejection, she's left speechless just watching him walk away. He mutters that she looks desperate as hell. They definitely have quotas to hit. Smirking, Kamasutra tells him he'll figure out the system eventually. Sliding up next to him, she casually asks if little Carlitos enjoyed those scraps. He plays dumb asking what she means, but she flexes that she already knows everything. Flashing a wicked glare, she demands to know what kind of scheme he's plotting. Not saying a damn word, he just hits her with an ice-cold stare. Then he fires back, warning her not to throw around wild accusations, without any solid proof. Spinning around, she promises not to snitch, but tells him to engrave this in his brain. Pointing right at his chest, she warns him he owes her big time now. Completely unfazed, he straight up demands to know her real endgame. She smirks, claiming that when the time comes, he just needs to back her up. He just silently reads her, processing the sketchy deal she just dropped. Suddenly a voice shouts her name, totally killing the conversation. A dude rocking a hat rolls up, flashing a huge smile. He checks in on her, asking if she's keeping herself healthy. Tipping his hat, he casually asks if she's noticed any weird changes in her body lately. Calling him Dr. Jose, she smiles and reassures him she's feeling 100%. The doc smoothly claims all the girls here are his patients. He explains he's just doing his rounds, making sure their minds and bodies are top tier. Catching a glimpse of Manuel, he squints, saying he doesn't recognize the new face. She quickly introduces him as Manuel, the Camellia Group's brand new VIP guard. Flipping the intro, she explains the doctor is the guy handling all the routine checkups for the working girls. But she looks suspicious, pointing out the health exams weren't scheduled until way later. The doc brushes it off, explaining he's here early because of the district boss's current condition. Suddenly panicked, she asks if the boss is okay, and he gives her a quick thumbs up. Out of nowhere, the doc zeroes in on something and snaps his head toward Manuel. Staring at his crutch, he asks if he busted a bone. Our boy plays it cool, saying it's just a deep gash. Nothing major. Rubbing his chin, the doc insists it looks gnarly and could easily get infected. Playing the good guy, he offers to take a quick peek. But the MC shuts him down hard, warning him not to treat injuries like a joke. The doctor aggressively insists, crouching down. He literally tries to sanitize the wound himself, but gets totally blocked again. Eyes turning dead cold, Manuel braces for absolute chaos. In a split second, he delivers a brutal spinning kick, launching the doctor flying across the room. The doc tosses his gloves skyward. This sudden ambush leaves the entire street totally shell-shocked. Completely clueless, the kid demands to know what just went down. That's when she drops the bombshell the guy they're hunting is rocking a prosthetic arm. The kid's eyes go wide, totally floored by this twist. She breaks it down, the target is missing everything, from the elbow down. She points out that no matter how much he alters his look, a severed limb isn't growing back. The boy just stares in dead silence, letting the heavy truth sink in. Cutting back to the chaos, the doc's young sidekick lunges into an all-out assault. Eyes locked onto his target, Manuel braces himself to clash with this new threat. He dives to the side, narrowly dodging the kid's vicious strike. With laser focus, he spots a crucial detail mid-fight. The apprentice slashes at lightning speed. Manuel just tracks the incoming blow. Without even flinching, he swings his crutch and parries. The deadly blade with flawless precision, absolutely stunned by this flex Esperanza, can only watch this brutal showdown unfold right in front of her. Gripping the wood with insane raw power, he holds his ground against the crushing weight. Mind blown by the flawless parry, the lackey glares at him, completely shook, bellowing at the top of his lungs. The doctor barks a strict order for his underling to stand down immediately. He violently disarms the kid, shutting down the deadly clash right then and there. Taking a step back, the doc looks visibly relieved to have dodged a total bloodbath. Wearing a deadpan glare, he just watches the tension simmer down. Offering a quick, "my bad," the doc admits his pupil severely lacks discipline. He also drops an apology for trying to patch him up. Way too aggressively a minute ago. Shifting to a worried tone, he warns that deep gashes like that are a massive infection risk. Tapping his own prosthetic, he admits he knows the absolute hell of losing a limb. Snapping his fingers, he complains that living like this is a major drag. Manuel just hits him with an icy stare, not giving away a single emotion. Turning back to roast his sidekick, the doc makes it crystal clear he isn't letting this reckless stunt slide. He then tells the apprentice that he's apologizing to the wrong guy. The young fighter just locks eyes with his boss, taking the heat. Dropping into a deep bow, he gives a genuine apology for acting like a total hothead. Sporting a deadly dark expression, Manuel thinks to himself that this punk was inches away from ending his life. Stone-faced, he stares down the kid, calculating his next move. The doctor then pivots and apologizes to Esperanza for his lackey going totally rogue. Hollering for Ricky, he announces they're rolling out, and the boy quietly falls in line. Visibly stressed, she asks if he's holding up okay. After that absolute train wreck of a fight. Gripping his makeshift cane, he brushes it off and says he's fine. But then he catches sight of the massive crack down his crutch from the clash. With a heavy gaze, he inspects the splintered wood in his hands. Later that night, he's posted up on the roof soaking in the full moon's glow. Closing his eyes, he dives deep into his mental archives. Entering pure focus mode, his mind renders a simulation of him marching right up to the young swordsman. They lock into an intense staring contest. Like two gunslingers at high noon, the tension is incredibly thick. Knowing blood is bound to spill, he leaps straight at the kid who just tracks his movement. Manuel unleashes a brutally heavy jab. But suddenly the sidekick whips out some specs, totally shifting his whole vibe to pure killer. In his headspace, he visualizes parrying a strike, but the enemy instantly counters. Thanks to his busted leg, he fumbles and hits the dirt. Spotting the massive opening, the apprentice lunges in for a lethal thrust. The enemy executes a wicked spin attack, throwing him off balance. He barely scrapes by, but the savage blow completely shatters his crutch. Dripping with sweat, he screams out as the shockwave rattles his bones. Caught off guard, he watches the attacker launch into a devastating aerial smash. But the kid smirks, mocking that his reaction time was just way too sluggish. Breaking into a freezing cold sweat, he realizes he's playing at a massive disadvantage. The apprentice delivers the final blow, striking him dead center. With an agonizing roar, his mental self gets absolutely decimated by the enemy's relentless combo. Chilling on the rooftop, he accepts that he just caught another fat L. That makes 57 losses in a row. He keeps grinding out every single attack and defense scenario inside his head. Factoring in his trashed leg, he calculates his combat stats are nerfed down to a mere 40% of his prime. Even so, he refuses to quit constantly running the simulations to predict every single twitch the enemy might make. He pushes through the brutal mental shadowboxing, taking endless phantom hits straight to the dome. This obsessive loop was the absolute core of his hardcore training regime. As a battle-hardened veteran in the trenches, it's how he learned to read and counter any enemy strike before it even happened. This skill absolutely skyrocketed his battle IQ out on the field. He flashes back to the simulation, remembering just how overpowered that assistant felt. Rocking a win rate under 10%, that was completely uncharted territory for him. Being just 12 years old, his mind is blown. How is that even possible? He seriously questions if hitting that insane speed is actually humanly doable. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the silence, snapping him right out of his deep trance. Glancing over his shoulder, he spots Carlitos rolling up, asking what the deal is. Manuel flashes a smirk, dropping the bomb that he finally cracked the mystery behind that prosthetic arm. He spills the details, revealing he's already tracked down Don Dario. Looks like an epic showdown is literally right around the corner. Totally clueless, the kid demands to know what is going on in his head. Grinning, Manuel tells Carlitos he actually pinpointed the target, all thanks to him. The kid practically glows at the hype, giving him a solid pat on the back. The boy tries to act tough, claiming flattery will not get him anywhere. As they stroll down the hallway, Manuel tells the kid to keep this whole chat strictly on the down low. Pausing dead in his tracks, he catches a super weird scent drifting through the air. His brows furrow in heavy confusion eyes, scanning the area to figure out what the heck that smell is. Stepping inside the room, he stumbles upon two women looking completely drained and sick. Lady Kamasutra is absolutely bawling her eyes out, while another girl holds her tight, desperately trying to comfort her. He just stands there totally frozen, having zero clue how to handle this. Barging into the room, the duo walks straight into this heavy drama. The kid violently yanks on his leg, yelling out to grab his attention. He casually asks what is going down, but the kid snaps, screaming at him to read the room, pointing directly at the two young women. The boy frantically warns him that Miss Kamasutra is crying. His absolutely ruthless response: "So what?" This completely triggers the kid, causing him to yell right in his face. The boy insists they need to play dumb and act like they never saw the tears. He aggressively reminds the guy of this golden unwritten rule. From a distance, the man just silently watches the two women venting on the couch. Meanwhile, between heavy sobs, the crying girl drops a hint about the monthly evaluation meeting. The other girl looks shook, demanding to know exactly what she means. She panics, swearing that this dark secret absolutely cannot leak out under any circumstances. Her bestie tells her to take a deep breath, promising that literally nobody is going to find out. Pressing a finger to her lips, she promises that this secret stays strictly between them. Staring right into her soul with tear-filled eyes, she begs for validation, asking if that is okay. The other girl just freezes up completely speechless and unable to reply. Bathed in cold moonlight, a notification suddenly pops up, confirming the cash has finally dropped into the account. Pinning the dude violently to the dirt, he mockingly thanks him, rubbing in just how useful he actually ended up being. He watches the VIP client walk off into the night, with the girl shouting out massive thanks to him. The client swears he is coming back, and she smoothly promises she will be right here waiting. But the second he is gone, she lets out a heavy, exhausted sigh and just shuts her eyes to process it all. Out of nowhere, a coworker sneaks up from behind to hype her up, snapping her right back to reality. Esperanza flexes that this was her 4th booked room today, basically guaranteeing she crushes the monthly evaluation. Clenching her fists with fiery determination, she vows to hustle hard as Gomez's partner. Her friend gently warns her not to burn herself out. Meanwhile, across the street, his crew starts hollering at him that it's time to bounce. Left entirely alone with his thoughts, the pieces finally click together. He realizes exactly how this intense monthly evaluation game works. Over time, the Flower District slowly shifted its entire vibe, evolving into something completely different. The streets exploded with crazy energy, packed shoulder to shoulder with massive crowds swarming the neon-lit blocks. Fast forward to the next morning. 2 birds are just chilling on a quiet branch high up on the rooftop. The guy is sitting cross-legged, totally zen in deep meditation. But suddenly, his eyes snap wide open, locking onto a target straight ahead with lethal focus. Planting his hand firmly on his knee, he smoothly launches himself upward. In a blur of insane speed, he unloads a devastating kick, then lands gracefully on the roof with a 6-spinning follow-up strike. Spooked by the sudden shockwave, the birds scatter into the sky. Standing tall, he intensely inspects the raw mechanics and wiring of his cyborg leg. After testing the joint mobility, a totally cocky smirk creeps across his face. Cut to the next scene. Boom! A giant mallet violently smashes into a heavy brass gong. Gripping the mallet tight, a hype man steps up to drop the main event announcement. He roars to the crowd that the brutal monthly evaluation meeting is finally kicking off. Right below the stage, a massive crowd of women stares back in dead, terrifying silence, feeling the heavy tension. A giant scoreboard flashes the twisted rules, highlighting the brutal penalty, waiting for whoever drops to dead last. Down in the pit, every single competitor glares up at the board, their faces locked in pure sweat-inducing anxiety. This event was not just a game. It was the ultimate power ranking that literally dictated their entire futures. To cap it off, the announcer hypes up the highly anticipated entrance of the absolute boss, the Grand Madam. Stepping directly into the spotlight, the boss lady confidently struts forward, completely owning the runway with absolute ice-cold boss energy. She casually steps right on a guy's back, using him as a literal human stepping stool. Keeping that insane momentum, she scales a massive staircase forged entirely out of people standing at the very peak of this human pyramid. She struts straight toward her podium. From a distance, our guy watches this wild flex unfold, his face completely deadpan. But then total disaster. She trips out of absolutely nowhere, completely losing her balance and violently pitching forward. Boom! Out of thin air, a hand snatches hers, instantly killing her momentum and saving her from eating dirt. 2 elite guards immediately catch her, frantically asking if she's hurt. Flashing a cocky smirk, she just praises them for being so clutch. Zero hesitation. One of the guards completely snaps, lunging at the lackey who tripped her and delivering a brutal bone-crushing hook straight to his jaw. The guy crashes down violently, convulsing on the floor from the massive impact, before finally going dead still. Our guy and his crew just stare at the brutal beatdown. Unfazed, she finally reaches her podium, heavily flanked by her security. Up on the main stage, a guard drops to one knee, respectfully holding out a megaphone for her to speak. Gripping the mic, she addresses the massive sea of women below. She hypes them up, declaring that clients keep coming back purely because of their insane grind and undeniable dignity. The crowd absolutely loses it, erupting into passionate cheers. Flashing a brilliant smile, she drops a hard truth: just surviving another day in this hellhole is a massive win. Then her whole vibe shifts. Her voice drops as she admits she absolutely hates hosting these intense evaluations. But she lays out the brutal reality: fierce competition is the only thing keeping their district elite. Without that cutthroat rivalry, the whole system collapses. Flashing a completely sinister smile, she drops the ultimate question: who's going to end up dead last? That single sentence instantly suffocates the entire room in a spine-chilling silence. Smashing a massive gong, a guard roars for everyone to fall into formation right now. A swarm of guys instantly scrambles, hastily lining up exactly as ordered. They stand completely frozen in dead silence, terrified of their next command. Our protagonist zeroes in on the sudden chaos, his eyes narrowing as he intensely studies the shifting dynamic. The women glance around nervously, the suffocating tension making them realize things are about to get incredibly dark. Out of nowhere, a sharp-looking dude in a fedora cuts straight through the massive crowd. Flanked by his assistant, he adjusts his glasses clinically, analyzing the whole terrifying setup. Sweeping his cold gaze over the terrified mob, he announces it's finally time to kick things off. Right on cue, the hype man screams that the moment of truth has arrived. He winds up preparing to smash the massive war drum with everything he's got. Bam! He violently hammers the drumheads, the heavy beats sending shockwaves through the entire arena. The president's voice booms through the megaphone, officially crowning Esperanza as the ultimate sales champion. Instantly, her name lights up the very top of the massive digital leaderboard. Her entire squad loses their minds, screaming that she's an absolute legend. It's exactly the outcome everyone saw coming. Soaking up the massive wave of hype, Esperanza Gomez simply shouts out her squad, humbly thanking them for carrying her to the top. Hyping her up, one of her besties claims she's practically guaranteed a spot among the untouchable Supreme Four. Sobbing profusely, the girl dramatically confesses that just breathing the same air as Esperanza is the biggest blessing of her life. While the second place results roll out, the president calls Esperanza Gomez over the megaphone. Walking up to her, Kumika drops her guard and actually congratulates Esperanza on her massive victory. Totally caught off guard, Gomez jokes that getting genuine praise from Kumika is honestly a rare glitch in the Matrix. Rolling her eyes, Kumika snaps back, telling her to stop treating her like some kind of heartless comic book villain. She scoffs that she can at least be decent, and offer a basic congrats, making Esperanza quickly apologize. Kumika points out that the Supreme Four literally get their own mansion, bluntly admitting Esperanza was always a giant roadblock for her. But her tough front cracks softly, admitting that with Esperanza leaving the trenches, things are going to feel pretty lonely around here. Catching that rare vulnerable moment, Esperanza flashes a warm smile just right before the third place announcement drops. The president's voice booms through the megaphone again, officially declaring Kumika as the third place winner. Kumika's face absolutely lights up, completely thrilled about securing her high rank. Hyping her up, Esperanza aggressively claps her on the back with a massive thud. Groaning in pure agony, Kumika desperately begs Esperanza to chill with the superhuman brute force. Esperanza nervously laughs it off, apologizing for getting way too hyped and letting her monstrous strength slip. Turning to the rest of her crew, she seriously asks them to watch over Pawn while she's gone. The president then rattles off the 10th place spot, keeping the energy completely electric. But the second they cross that halfway mark, a suffocating dead silence swallows the entire room. In this absolute hellhole known as the Isle of Misery, their district was considered a true paradise. That meant getting booted out was pure nightmare fuel. Sweating bullets, the terrified girl waits for those final brutal rankings to drop. For every single one of them, getting expelled wasn't just a loss, it was basically a flat-out death sentence. For the poor souls whose names still hadn't been called, the soul-crushing anxiety of getting eliminated was skyrocketing by the second. Taking a deep breath, the president grabs the mic, preparing to drop the name for 22nd place. The announcer belts out Ron's name, and her rival completely pops off. Jaw on the floor, Ron mutters that she actually lost to that pale, sickly chick. The winner claps back, smirking that her glamorous curves are in crazy high demand. Seconds later, Pongo gets called out, locking in 23rd place. Catching her vibe, Kama Sutra asks if she's seriously okay with taking an L. Her bestie steps up, pulling her close and telling her to chill and brush it off. Esperanza hypes her up, insisting she pulled enough clients to never hit rock bottom. But the president cuts the chatter, deadpanning that she's bored out of her mind, and decides to dump the entire ranking on the big screen all at once. Kama Sutra's name flashes in 30th place, barely dodging the dead last chopping block. Letting out a massive breath, she flashes a bright smile, totally ready to get back to her normal hustle in the district. The president wraps up the monthly sales chart, but then drops a massive bombshell. Those were just the raw, unedited baseline scores. Waving a top-secret report, she brings up the savage system of bonus points and massive penalties. With a cold smirk, she declares the entire leaderboard is getting a hard reset. Smashing the heavy gong, the hype man screams into the mic that the true brutal rankings are dropping right now. The digital giant board violently scrambles every single name and rank. The bottom two slots glitch and flash red, leaving Esperanza staring blankly, totally confused. The other girls are equally clueless, whispering frantically about what the hell is going down. Slowly, the mid-tier girls lock into their new spots. And then the ultimate gut punch. Kama Sutra's name slams into the absolute bottom of the screen, frozen to the core, as she is utterly speechless at the brutal twist. The room erupts into messy whispers, with the girls gossiping about what wild stunt Kama Sutra pulled behind closed doors. The president glares down, snapping at the announcer for suddenly going mute. She barks at him to hype up the crowd, or his paycheck is getting slashed. Jolted by her icy tone, the guy straight up blue screens for a hot second. Snapping out of it, he screams into the mic, broadcasting the insane plot twist about who just hit rock bottom. While Kama is literally spiraling into a panic attack, Esperanza is just not having it, finding this whole power trip exhausting. Face scrunched in pure annoyance, Esperanza Gomez aggressively clicks her tongue, radiating big over-it energy. Cutting through the noise, she boldly demands the president's attention to ask one glaring question. The boss lady actually praises Esperanza for her top-tier hustle. Stepping up for her girl, Esperanza straight up demands to know what so-called crime Kama Sutra committed. Flashing a toxic smile, the president teases that Esperanza Gomez is actually quite savage. She tilts her head, asking if she seriously wants, and her bestie's absolutely humiliating secret dragged out into the spotlight. Backpedaling hard, Esperanza yells that she didn't mean it like that. Ignoring her panic, the president coldly states that public humiliation is literally part of the penalty. She orders the hype man to read Rule 23 of the House Code. Screaming the law, he reveals the ultimate taboo: hooking up with first-time rookie clients is strictly forbidden. Massaging her temples from the screaming, the boss states that this rule is literally basic knowledge. Piercing the trembling girl with a dead stare, she asks if she was seriously dumb enough to ignore it. Stuttering a broken mess, Kama stays dead silent, while Esperanza grabs her shoulders, demanding to know what she did. The madam paces the stage preaching that their district isn't some cheap dive. She paints the turf as a lush, exclusive playground, built purely for filthy rich VIPs. She makes it crystal clear they do not cater to broke basic losers. Hidden deep in the chaotic crowd, some guy just quietly watches the brutal drama unfold. Throwing out a rhetorical question about the club's true worth, the boss snaps her own answer. It's the thrill of being completely untouchable, dropping a killer analogy. She compares them to discounted designer bags. In her eyes, no high roller drops fat stacks on a girl who gives it up on day one. By playing hard to get and starving the guys, they skyrocket their own premium value. Yet, she spits their dead last loser threw that away for a random newbie. Sobbing hysterically, Kama can't even deny the vicious call-out. Hearing her pathetic silence, every single girl in the room turns to glare at her. Begging her friend, she cries out that she is obsessed with the city and their crew. She aggressively chokes out that she was literally paralyzed by the fear of getting booted. Face shrouded in blurry shadows, her bitter rival just silently watches the mental breakdown from the back. Through heavy tears, Kama wails that her client list was totally drying up, and the few regulars she had left. Flashback hits hard, a psycho client shoving a razor-sharp blade right in her face. Sweating bullets, she begged for just one more shot, swearing she'd never slip up again. Ripping through the megaphone, the madam brutally asks if she's actually brain dead. She screams that they dripped her out and forged her into a premium brand, but she trashed her own worth by acting like a totally impulsive amateur. Dripping with pure disgust, the boss spits that she's nothing but absolute garbage. Kama bawls her eyes out, totally shattered by the venomous roast. The president then sarcastically thanks the anonymous snitch who leaked the crime. Deep in the crowd, a random girl spots something super glitchy happening on the giant screen. Smacking her friend's arm, she points out that something incredibly shady is going down. Out of nowhere, the scoreboard starts reshuffling again, aggressively pushing out new ranks. In a sick twist, Kumika's name skyrockets straight to the #1 crown. Locking eyes with Esperanza, Kama gasps that she can't even process the betrayal. Flashing a toxic, sickly sweet smirk, Kumika opens her mouth to play the victim. Shrugging, she purrs that rules are literally rules and she couldn't just turn a blind eye. Lunging forward, Esperanza Gomez grabs Kumika by the collar, screaming in her face, demanding to know how she could be such a snake. Collapsed on her knees, she actually pulled a stunt like that. Kamasutra is absolutely shell-shocked. A sudden flashback hits, dragging her back to a sketchy chat with Kumika. That very night, Kumika had hyped her up, pushing her to hook up with the VIPs right away, tears streaming down her face. She chokes out a question. Did Kumika play her from the start? Flashing a toxic smirk, the backstabber shrugs, claiming she hasn't a clue what she is crying about. Up on the main stage, the chairwoman showers praises on the so-called heroic whistleblower. She hypes up Kumika, officially crowning her as one of the Elite Four Supremes just for snitching. Flashing a smug, self-satisfied grin, she demands a round of applause from the crowd. The women clap along, whispering that the brutal punishment was totally justified. Gripping her coworker by the collar, Esperanza glares daggers at her, absolutely seething at the blatant disrespect. Smack Kumika ruthlessly backhands Esperanza across the face. Looking down on her like absolute trash, she flexes her brand new status as a Supreme. Screaming like a lunatic, she orders Esperanza to back off, calling her a worthless peasant. Flanked by her new entourage, she preaches that karma is always watching. With a sickening wink, she claims that justice always wins, or at least that is the fairy tale they sell. Once night finally crashes over the neon-lit flower district, the chaotic energy settles down. Deep inside a dim lounge, different cliques huddle up in the shadows. Chilling on a velvet couch, someone mutters about how dead quiet the Camellia Squad has been ever since the trials wrapped up. His face remains deadpan. The double standard between the rat and the victim is painfully glaring. Rewarded for snitching, Kumika hopped straight into a ridiculously expensive VIP ride. Meanwhile, the so-called rule breaker was violently yanked out the front gates by security, her face twisted in pure agony, as she gets tossed out of the district like garbage. Esperanza and her crew can do nothing but watch the nightmare unfold from afar. Cutting back to the gloomy room, Esperanza lets out a head. Slumped over the cushions, one of the girls whines that her vibe is completely killed. She is still racking her brain over why Kamasutra pulled such a suicidal stunt. Slumped alone at the wooden table, Esperanza aggressively downs a full glass of hardcore liquor. Bam! She slams the empty glass down, splashing the harsh booze everywhere. Watching her spiral, he steps up, warning her to cut the crap and get some sleep. Raising her glass in defiance, she scoffs that nothing is ever that simple. She snaps back, reminding him that it is his literal job to guard this hellhole until she finally passes out. Refusing to even look her way, he coldly mutters for her to do whatever the hell she wants. Dropping to the floorboards, he grumbles that messy drunks are a total headache in every universe. The room falls dead silent as she burns holes into him with her glare, before finally breaking the tension. She spits out that in this twisted city, backstabbing rats get worshipped like literal superheroes. Furious, she screams about how everyone is trashing Kamasutra, but nobody says a damn word about Kumika and her betrayal. Pounding her fist, she curses this whole setup as an absolute dumpster fire. He tries to rationalize, claiming strict rules are the backbone of any organization. She scoffs, agreeing on the rules, but insisting that handing out trophies for snitching is sick. Deadpan, he fires back. Is she just salty because she lost the #1 spot? Slamming her glass down, that comment clearly strikes a serious nerve. Wrenching her head away, she growls that she is absolutely not in the mood to be messed with. Shutting his eyes tight, he immediately backs down, apologizing for crossing the line. Blowing out a thick cloud of smoke, she pivots, laying out. She explains how the hostesses are practically drowning in endless luxury. Topping off her drink, she asks if he honestly thinks this neon city is some kind of paradise. He casually replies that the locals definitely hyped it up as heaven on earth. So, yeah, he figured the glitz and glamour were actually legit, bursting into a cynical, breathless laugh. She drops the bombshell every single breath they take is being brutally monitored. She reveals they are all trapped in a sick game, paralyzed by the fear of getting thrown out, yet desperate for a promotion. It is straight up selling their souls. This so-called happiness, a total scam. Hanging onto her every word, his eyes lock intensely onto hers. She spits out that they are being brainwashed into grinding their lives away until they drop dead. And the mastermind pulling all the strings, Kiki the untouchable district chairwoman? He mentally pieces together the monster hiding behind that woman's flawless mask. Beneath that sweet smile lies pure unfiltered cruelty and a twisted obsession with absolute control. He asks point blank if the chairwoman is the one who engineered this sick system. Glancing away, she smirks, noting that he catches on scary fast. Turning her back to him, Esperanza shudders, declaring that Kiki is an absolute nightmare. She loses it, screaming that the boss treats them like literal livestock destined for the slaughterhouse. Letting the silence hang, he just sits there and lets her fiercely vent. Suddenly, the info broker kid busts through the door, yelling that he just scored some crazy top-secret intel. Sprinting right past Esperanza, he bolts straight for his boss. Totally lost, she demands to know what kind of intel he is freaking out about. Spotting her standing right there, the kid instantly slaps both hands over his mouth, totally spooked. Watching this train wreck unfold, the guy just clicks his tongue, seriously annoyed. Wasting zero time, she corners the boy, demanding to know exactly what this so-called intel. The kid just stammers, completely paralyzed and stumbling over his own words like a deer in headlights. Prowling around the table like a predator, she presses him again. What exactly do you mean by information? His hands are shaking so bad he can barely string a sentence together. Losing patience, she snatches his face right in her hands and orders him to spill it right now. Thrashing around to break free, he practically begs, swearing he can't leak a single syllable. Still squirming, he screams that he'd never betray Manuel's trust. Watching from a distance, his boss just deadpans, wondering if the kid is actually brain dead. He dramatically wails that he'd rather drop dead than snitch on his boss. Unfazed by his little tantrum, she coldly asks if he remembers the district rulebook. He nods, frantically bragging about how he practically memorized it just to score a job in this sector. Suddenly popping with confidence, he claims he can quote the whole thing word for word. Smirking, she flips her fan open and challenges him right on the spot. Quote Article 3, she snaps. Caught totally off guard, the kid chokes on his words for a hot second before finally rattling off the rule. The one explicitly banning any kind of defiance against higher-ups. Flashing a wicked grin, she pats his head like a good little dog and drops the bomb. That same rule means he literally cannot disobey her. She corners him, accusing the boy of actively defying her direct commands, a massive red flag. Tapping her fan aggressively, she lays down a brutal threat. Absolutely petrified, the kid breaks into a massive cold sweat, nodding his head like crazy. Watching this, his actual boss thinks back to her own previous warning, holding up 2 fingers. She lays out 2 choices for him. Option A, keep playing dumb, zip his lips, and get completely exiled as payback. The boy violently shakes his head, horrified. Smirking, she teases that she isn't some kind of monster. So here's option B. Just spill absolutely everything, no matter how sketchy the intel might be. In exchange, she swears she won't rat him out or his boss. Practically weeping with gratitude, the kid glazes Esperanza Gomez, praising her for being an absolute saint. Stuttering over his words, he begs to know if he's finally allowed to drop the T. Watching from the sidelines, his boss cringes at how ridiculously easy this kid is to play. Finally cracking, he blurts out super loudly that he secretly tailed the rule breaker right after the evaluation. She aggressively shushes him, snapping at the kid to keep it down before someone overhears. Then she grills him on whether he was the one pulling the strings. He nods. Then lowering his voice, he asks if she's ever wondered what actually happens to the people who get kicked out. He figured there had to be some massive dark secret hiding at the end of the line for them. Totally backing him up, she brings up the insane rumors flying around about banished courtesans being used as human lab rats. He spirals, wondering out loud if they're all just dumped into some creepy extermination camp, or if they just get permanently shipped off the island forever. Pivoting hard back to the kid, she demands to know exactly where on the island Kamasutra was dragged off to. Dropping a massive bombshell, the kid reveals that Miss Kamasutra was never actually exiled at all. Completely floored by the plot twist, both of them instantly demand him to repeat that. Grabbing the kid by the collar, she practically screams, demanding Kamasutra's exact location, while he frantically begs her to chill out. Catching his breath, he explains how a bunch of goons in suits snatched Kamasutra up. Cutting to a flashback, we see him parkouring across the rooftops, tailing them from the shadows. The crew halts at a gate, while guards sweep the area to make sure the coast is clear. Suddenly, whatever goes down right in front of him completely paralyzes him in pure shock. Instead of actually leaving the premises, the shady squad just pulled a U-turn and bolted straight for the east wall. She immediately calls him out, pointing out that the east wall is literally a dead end. With a dead serious look, he swears up and down that Kama was dragged right into that alleyway building. Totally lost, Esperanza's jaw practically hits the floor. Turning her back on him, she flat out denies it, calling the whole story impossible. Rolling his eyes, the guy tells her to cut the theatrics and just ask which specific building they went into. Looking seriously spooked, she mutters that there's absolutely nothing down there, except for one clinic. She drops the name. It's the personal clinic of the infamous Dr. Joe. Shocked by the name drop, he demands to know if she's 100% sure. His brain goes into overdrive trying to piece together where the exiled woman actually ended up. With this massive clue, a dark new theory starts brewing in his mind. A subtle smirk creeps onto his face as the puzzle pieces finally start clicking into place. The banished girl was supposedly under the care of that absolute creep, Dr. Rin. Suddenly jumping up, she storms off, making the guy yell out, asking where the hell she's running off to. He immediately springs to his feet too, making the kid ask what his deal is. Whipping around, he glares at the younger guy, explicitly ordering him to stay behind. Completely caught off guard, the dude totally blanks his boss and shadows him down the hallway, shouting his name. Whipping around, he warns that a massive brawl is about to go down right there. Stepping outside, the duo navigates the pitch-black corridor together. She demands to know what his deal is and where he thinks he's creeping off to so quietly. She locks eyes with him, shooting him a dead serious, super suspicious glare. Matching her fierce energy, he pushes back, demanding to know her destination and telling her to just go back to bed. But deep down, he totally gets she can't just let it go. So he straight up declares it's his sworn duty to protect his top-tier courtesan. Turning her head away, she stays quiet, but clearly caves and lets him tag along without another word. Side by side, the pair keeps pushing forward until they finally rock up right outside the clinic. She announces they've hit the end of the line, but hanging right outside Jose's clinic is a massive sign screaming "closed." Letting out a heavy sigh, she gears up to summon whoever is inside. Pounding on the heavy door, she screams the doctor's name, demanding they open up immediately. Gripping the door frame, she refuses to back down, relentlessly hollering for the doc. Suddenly, the main entrance creaks open, just a crack shattering the dead silence. From the pitch-black interior, a pair of eyes locks dead onto them. A young assistant barks out, asking what the hell they want in the dead of night. Thinking fast, she claims she's feeling terribly sick and begs to see the doctor. Trying to shoo them away, the guy warns that the doc is totally crashed out. Getting completely shut down like that? She starts totally stuttering, completely losing her train of thought. Startled by the harsh rejection, her bodyguard's gaze abruptly snaps up to the clinic's second floor. He intensely scopes out the upper level of the building for a hot second. Totally clueless about what he's staring at, she snaps her focus back to the assistant. Giving her a quick once-over, the guy coldly states she looks perfectly fine while keeping a tight grip on the door. Refusing to take no for an answer, she shoves the assistant, snapping that he doesn't know a damn thing. Ice cold, he warns her that the area is strictly off-limits to non-patients. Hovering right on the threshold, she catches a serious threat from the clinic worker. He drops a heavy warning, one more step, and things will get incredibly ugly. Rattled by the threat, she instantly stumbles back and stares him down. Out of nowhere, her bodyguard scoops her up into his arms, tossing a quick apology for the drama. Thrashing around, she screams to be let go, but he sharply reminds her the doc is resting. He literally hauls her away as she shrieks at him to put her down. Leaning in close, he whispers directly into her ear, warning her to just chill and listen without reacting. He drops a massive bomb. The entire building is absolutely rigged with hidden security cameras. Mind blown, she instantly questions his crazy claim. He swears he just counted 18 separate lenses. Still trapped in his arms, she asks why a basic clinic would need that insane level of surveillance. He casually points out that they're either hoarding treasure or hiding a massive dark secret. Processing his wild theory, she just goes completely mute. Her brain frantically tries to process the information. Glancing back over his shoulder, he starts critically breaking down their super sketchy situation. Piecing together all the red flags he locks in his theory, this clinic is definitely covering up something huge. He mutters that they're way too blind right now to make any kind of actual move. Meanwhile, the assistant creeps in the shadows of the clinic, silently tracking their every move. He completely gets it too. The timing just isn't right yet. Still carrying her like it's nothing, he frantically brainstorms their next power play. Hard cut, 3 solid days have dragged by since the brutal monthly evaluation. Tapping a finger against her lips, Esperanza looks deep in thought, sizing someone up. Kneeling helplessly before her, a girl is told her vibe isn't half bad for a place like this. Snapping her fan open, Esperanza smugly declares that the chick actually passed the insanely tough test. Calling her Romina, she flashes a wicked little smirk, getting ready to drop the final verdict. Esperanza dramatically announces that as of today, she's officially a high-ranking courtesan. Utterly shell-shocked, the girl just stares, her brain totally short-circuiting at the news. Flashing back 3 days prior, the squad is huddled around a table, heavily dissecting their sketchy clinic run. Heavy, awkward silence completely swallows the trio. Mentally chewing on that night's absolute chaos, she obsessively questions the insane camera setup, desperate to crack the clinic's dark mystery. That's when he confidently lays it out. Ring's ultimate endgame was 100% the doctor himself. For some twisted reason, the doc was using that super sketchy clinic as a massive front to bury a secret, something absolutely zero people were allowed to dig up. Smashing through the tense quiet, the guy nervously tries to pitch an idea to both of them. Catching their deadpan vibes, he decides to totally lighten the mood with a crazy thought. He casually drops the big question, who exactly was going to step up and replace them? While he points out that the local feds would probably take over the open spots, she instantly demands to know where exactly these rookies were even coming from. She drops the bombshell that they'd likely be smuggled in from completely off the island using some highly classified underground route. Completely blindsided by that info, he stammers out her exact words about them being outsiders. Shooting up from his chair, he straight up asks if she and the rest of the crew were also dragged in from somewhere else. Shooting him a lethally annoyed glare, she fiercely snaps that digging into anyone's past is strictly off limits. She bluntly states that literally no one in that hellhole knows their own true backstory, and the craziest part? She was totally clueless about her own past too. Nothing spilled about Ron and Pong's dark past. Catching that intel, he just shrugged it off as a super messy situation. Pushing herself to her feet, she claimed she was totally drained and dragged herself over to the mattress. The boy finally confessed his nerves were completely wrecked over some fresh blood moving in. Then he asked if she could actually reject the government's picks. Tapping her chest, she fired back that she held the absolute final say. Hearing that, a mischievous spark lit up his eyes. He immediately pitched the idea of bringing in his own girl for her to judge. She gave him the green light, but warned him the island was completely wiped out of decent candidates. Snapping her fan open, she bragged about her hardcore screening process. Flashing a sly grin, the boy challenged her claim, but he just gave a firm nod to lock it in. Flashing a smug smirk, he bragged that dropping a fake medical emergency was all it took. Completely floored, the kid pieced the scheme together and just stood there, jaw practically hitting the floor. Snapping back to reality, Esperanza dropped the bomb on the doctor. She was officially working as a courtesan now. Totally bewildered, the doc stared at the unfolding chaos with a massive question mark on his face. Dropping to her knees, she begged him to stop, completely shutting down his offer. She snapped that selling her body was never part of her plan. Head spinning, she demanded answers about that critical patient they kept bringing up. Then the brutal truth hit her. There was never any dying patient, leaving her absolutely paralyzed by the lie. Pivoting toward the duo, Esperanza Gomez barked an order to show the rookie the ropes. Slammed by that command, the girl completely froze her brain, totally short-circuiting. Whipping around, she glared at him with pure, unadulterated fury blazing in her eyes. A woman shrieked that she had been completely scammed. Groveling in the dirt, the kid frantically spammed apologies at the doctor. Grabbing him by the collar, she fiercely demanded if he was the mastermind behind this whole setup. Tugging at his tie, he confessed the whole vibe was definitely sketchy. Flashbacks hit her of the boy deadpanning that fake emergency without a shred of emotion. During the ride over, he was crying so many fake apologies that she actually felt low-key terrible for him. Clutching her head, she cried out that she never expected him to play her like that. Pointing a furious finger, she blasted him for using a literal child to pull off his scam. Then he dropped the ultimate plot twist: her target, Don Dario, was hiding out in this exact city. Rocked by the intel, she stood completely speechless, eyes blown wide in pure disbelief. He quickly warned her that a golden window to strike him down would open up the very next day. Face hardening with pure resolve, she stood her ground and locked in the deal. The next morning, the doctor and his right-hand man rolled up for their medical rounds. A lady greeted him at the entrance, sweetly checking in on his vibe. Lurking in the shadows, the duo spied on the entire exchange, but they were way too far back to catch a clear view. Once the monthly checkups wrapped, he promised her moment to shine would finally drop. With a fierce look, she nodded and camped out for her perfect opening. The doc then knocked on another door, announcing it was time for her exam. Getting the green light, he stepped inside the bedroom to kick off the physical. Waiting at the entrance was a totally new face, purring that it was an absolute thrill to finally meet him. Tossing him a flirty wink, she introduced herself as Rin, the freshest girl on the block. Catching her intro, the doc casually noted she was definitely a new arrival. Asking to step further inside, he dropped that this space used to belong to Miss Kamasutra. Tipping his hat, he formally introduced himself as Dr. Jose from the Red Light District. The second that name hit her ears, her blood ran cold, locking her muscles in place. Scanning every single micro detail of his face, she desperately needed to double-check his identity. With cold sweat dripping down her neck, she kept dead staring at him without breathing a single syllable. Finally, she locked it in. The guy standing right there was 100% her mark, Don Dario. Kneeling down, she cooed how incredibly relieved she felt to get such a sweet doctor. Flashing a psycho smile beneath her mask, she whispered that she had been absolutely dying to track him down. Whipping out a hidden dagger, she confessed she had been craving to end his life for a very, very long time. Gripping the hilt with white knuckles, she braced herself to strike. Suddenly, a flashback hit her, him sternly warning her to absolutely never, under any circumstances, murder her target. He hammered it in that the doctor's massive bodyguard would literally snap her neck seconds later. Because of that brutal reality, he begged her to hold off the assassination if she actually wanted to pull this mission off. He even swore that the perfect timing to take him out had not arrived just yet. Snapping back to the present, she yanked her arm back and stashed the blade. Catching her intense vibe, the doc asked if something was bothering her. Brushing it off, she claimed she was totally fine and told him to start the exam. Slipping on his stethoscope, he casually asked if she had been eating well as he leaned in. Starting the checkup, he casually asks if she's been getting enough shut-eye lately. Then he digs into her medical history, asking about past sicknesses or if she's ever gone under the knife. He drills her with more questions. Is she popping any daily pills? Do her parents have any conditions? Deep diving into her exact genetic makeup. He even wants to know if she catches colds easily. The intense interrogation keeps going, checking for high fevers and any random aches or pains. Wrapping up the endless questions, he nods, his lips curving into a creepy smile as he stares right through her. Tapping his clipboard, he declares her organs and systems are in absolute top-tier shape. With a totally weird, lingering gaze, he mutters that her body has always been this way. In her head, she silently agrees. Her mind instantly flashes back to her brutal days working out in active war zones. Surrounded by bleeding soldiers begging for death, one broken man sobbed, that he just couldn't take the agony anymore. Standing with his back turned, the doctor just sighed, calling the dying man a massive waste. Flashing a wicked grin, he whispered that the soldier would make a fantastic test subject. Furious, she screamed at him, snapping that it was an incredibly twisted and inappropriate thing to say. Spinning around, he coldly clapped back that the soldier was completely useless now and totally unfit for duty. He then bragged that by using these broken bodies, he could push science forward by 30 whole years. Snapping back to reality, she shudders, realizing he's always viewed human beings as literal lab rats. Locking eyes with him, she wonders what sick, twisted game he's playing right now. Suddenly shattering the silence, he casually mentions he forgot to ask her age. Without missing a single beat, she tells him she's 28. Stunned, the doctor repeats the number out loud, looking completely mind-blown. His bizarre reaction immediately sets off loud alarm bells in her head about his true motives. Finishing up the exam, the doctor officially clears her, saying there are absolutely zero red flags with her health. Tipping his hat, he says his goodbyes, claiming he's got a packed schedule of patients waiting. Snapping for his assistant, he spins on his heel and dips, leaving her totally alone in the room. Watching his back fade down the hallway, she can't help but wonder, did he completely lose interest just because she's 28? Staring blankly into space, the gears in her brain start turning, cooking up a brand new theory about Don Dario. Later, sitting across the table, she hears her boss demanding she spill exactly what she uncovered. Taking a deep breath, she warns him that she first needs to explain exactly how unhinged their target really is. Totally clueless, he just stares blankly at her, waiting for her to drop the promised intel. She jogs their memory, reminding them about her past gigs working the front lines with Doctors Without Borders. And right there, deep in the absolute trenches, is exactly where she crossed paths with Don Dario for the very first time. Coming all the way from Japan, only 3 rookies had actually joined the squad during that chaotic draft. The trio was made up of her Dario and another dude named Satsuma. Since they were all Japanese natives, they naturally clicked and bonded at the base camp. But even back in the day, she remembers Dario giving off major weirdo vibes. Honestly, she just figured he was an intense hardcore medicine nerd. Slapping her back to the horrific memory, she remembers staring at a patient strapped down tightly to a rusty gurney. Freaking out, they demanded to know what on earth Don Dario was doing to the poor guy. Flashing a psychotic grin, he casually dropped that he was testing out a shiny new transplant surgery. Flaunting a severed leg, he flexed about, finding the absolute perfect replacement limb for the operation. Horrified, Satsuma screamed, asking if he was completely out of his mind and understood what he was doing. Unfazed, Dario explained that way, too many soldiers bail on the front lines just because they lose a couple of limbs. Roaring with insane passion, he swore that battlefield medicine was about to be completely revolutionized by his genius. Rendered totally speechless, the two of them just stared in sheer terror at the mangled victim on the operating table. Suddenly, the patient started violently thrashing and convulsing against the tight straps. His eyes rolled to the back of his skull as thick foam bubbled from his mouth in an uncontrollable seizure. Watching the gruesome scene unfold, Dario just clicked his tongue, whining about the annoying immune rejection ruining his masterpiece. Without hesitating, Satsuma barked orders to dump the failing experiment right back onto the battlefield. Quoting Thomas Edison like an absolute psycho, Dario chuckled that there was no such thing as failure, only a sick learning curve. A manic spark ignited in his eyes, showing he was getting even more addicted to the madness. Pushed past his absolute breaking point, Satsuma unleashed a devastating right hook straight into his coworker's face. Grabbing Dario by the collar, he roared that he would never let this monstrous surgery fly. To make things even more messed up, he pointed out that it was an enemy soldier's freaking leg. Screaming in pure rage, he blasted Dario for completely trashing every single rule of medical ethics. Sprawled out on the dirt floor, Don Dario scoffed, claiming that morality was just a pathetic roadblock, slowing down true progress. Totally baffled, Satsuma demanded to know what the hell he was rambling about. Wiping his bleeding lip, Dario challenged him, asking if he actually believed that cute little medical ethics were what pushed science forward. Glaring daggers straight into Satsuma's soul, he ground his teeth together, ready to spit out an even darker counter-argument. Satsuma just locked eyes with him, pure unadulterated fury radiating from his stare. After their explosive brawl, the fallout was actually pretty straightforward. For blatantly shattering the camp's rules, Don Dario got chilling in his dark cell with a mosquito buzzing right on his face. He just laid back dead-eyed, staring up at the cold ceiling. But those 14 days absolutely shredded his mental state, pushing him straight to the edge of madness. Barefoot, he dragged his feet down the freezing, dead-quiet prison corridor. Back in the day, they actually stepped up to watch over Don Dario because the facility was crazy understaffed. Satsuma genuinely thought Dario would snap out of it, learn his lesson, and just go back to normal. Hitting the cell block, he called out that grub was ready. But then, squish! His foot sank right into a massive puddle of blood pooling across the floor. Peering through the bars, sheer terror locked his chest. He lunged at the iron door, desperately yanking the handle, while screaming his lungs out, begging to know what Don Dario had just done. The heavy door wouldn't budge. Pure panic completely took over as he frantically shrieked for his partner. Down below, the tray of food he'd just brought